PJs are problem solvers. So if you have 20 casualties, you only have 2 medics. That's a pretty big deal. So we focus heavily on that. But we're the problem solvers for everything. Are you trapped? Are you lost? Are you at the top of a mountain? Are you under the water? We can solve that problem. We can fix it out. We had guys from the 58 that would go on the deployment and then we come back with 150 missions during a 4-month deployment. They would take the patient that they just picked up out of a firefight. They would take them to the hospital and wash the blood out of the helicopters so that they could go on their next mission, and they were already getting their next call before they would get washed out. Draw a box around any area where something could happen, and there's an ACC rescue team that's ready to respond in that box for anything. And it's the entire DOW. We are the premier rescue asset for everybody.
Here we go. We are rolling. All right, welcome back to the show. Today we have an amazing guest on. His reputation speaks for himself. Aaron Love, parajumper, or PJ. I'm going to totally botch this.
You're totally
Air Force, PJ, retired over 20 years. I mean, extraordinaire. We were just talking on the way over. I mean, you're doing 4 different things, 4 different businesses all over the place. You run One's Ready podcast, and I saw some of the stuff you guys are doing. It looks amazing. Aaron, thanks for coming on.
Dude, thank you so much, man. First time in Minnesota. I didn't tell you that before we got here, but I've actually, there are very few states that I haven't been to. Got Alaska, got Hawaii, some of the Northeast states, but Minnesota, I was thinking to myself, never even flown through here, so I'm happy. Here in the belly of the beast, Minnesota. You know?
Yeah, here we are.
Here we are on the ground.
Yeah, we've made the news a lot over the last 6 years.
You really have. It's been pretty good.
Yeah, we people bring that up all the we were talking about it on the way over, and it's everyone's like, is Minnesota like that? I was like, man, like it's like, yeah, some parts, but honestly, the rest of the state's like great. Like we love it, you know. Like my wife and I, we just like, I was like, I can't move. Like I'm one of those guys that like, I love the mountains. Like I kind of envy sometimes people that are like, yeah, I just packed up everything. I moved across the country and my family's back there and I don't care. And they just like, they're, you know, people that move to Texas all the time. They're like, oh, I love Texas. Yeah. And like, I am not a fan of the Texas and the culture is amazing. Yeah. I don't like the dry desert rock. I hate it. I hate the weather.
It's my jam, dude.
Yeah, I know. You're out of Las Vegas.
lived in the Southwest, so I had back-to-back assignments kind of in Kirtland and in Vegas, and I just fell in love with the American Southwest, man. It was just it's a great place.
Yeah. Which I've seen people do and they love that. Like what is it? The place in is it? I think it is. It's near 29 Palms. It's Joshua Tree.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Gorgeous. God's country. Oh, fantastic.
I see you say that. And I was like, I drove through it and I was like, I want to kill myself.
Well, now I get to the East Coast now and it just feels claustrophobic, right? Like I spent my last assignment in Tacoma. So I lived right down the street from Seattle, and you know, those huge trees where you can't see and there's those deep woods, like, you know, I'll pass.
Oh, see, I love that. See? I love the mountains and trees. Yeah. Like, and
I'll take the mountains, no trees.
Yeah. I get that. That's why I like Montana's like pretty dope.
Right.
I love Montana.
Yeah. Gorgeous.
And even then I was like, man, I don't know if I could, like, cause we have so much family here. And I love the fall, the colors, like the culture's great. We got a lot of the German population. You have like a lot of like Oktoberfest stuff. Like, you know, we got our problems and we are working on them. They're like, it's not, you know, it's Minnesota nice, but there's definitely like, we ride the line. I always say we're a very like purple state. Like there's like 1 or 2 votes. And so it doesn't get too wild, but you do see obviously clearly the crazy stuff that has happened, and it's concentrated in Minneapolis, which is funny because St. Paul, I was in that guard for a while, and one of the majors was a St. Paul cop. And so St. Paul's are like, oh, we support Minneapolis. And then the mayor would turn around to his police department and be like, you keep that shit in Minneapolis. Yeah. So they put, at least the St. Paul mayor would be like, oh yeah, Black Lives Matter. Oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. Right. And they'd turn around his police force and be like, you keep that shit in Minneapolis. Right. We're not doing that here.
Well, people hate on Washington too. I don't have bad things to say about Washington, the state. It's you take 50 miles in from the coast and then you draw a line and the rest of the state is normal and it has completely normal views on absolutely everything, and it's gorgeous and it's a great state to live, but it's those 2 city centers of Seattle and Tacoma. Yeah.
And that's the thing too. I went up to JBLM for one National Guard drill or AT, and it was awesome. It was an unusually hot summer, so everyone's like, "This is not what Washington State's like." It was like super clear.
Oh yeah,
warm weather.
Gorgeous.
No clouds.
Gorgeous. Well, the summers are
like, this is awesome.
That's how they get you. So I got there in May. Oh, okay. And then the joke in you know, Seattle, that entire region is like July 5th is the first day of summer. Like it really doesn't. May will be like 58, 65 degrees, but it's sunny. The sky's clear. It's like, because of the high northern latitude, is essentially exactly like England. Almost like when I lived in England, it was the exact same thing. The summertime hits, no clouds, 30 or 40 days in a row. You actually have problems with wildfires. It gets so dry, like you don't get any precipitation. It's light out from 4 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Amazing. No bugs, because they can't survive the wet winter. So you don't have to worry about a lot of that stuff. It's fantastic. It's really good.
That's awesome.
Other than the people that live in Seattle and Tacoma.
I know, right? So you're just like, oh man, you know. But it was cool though. I was like, oh man, Washington's great. Yeah, there's like I said, there's some areas around. You're like, man, this would be a good place to live. Like I said, Montana. But that's, I mean, like I said, Vegas though. Where I was telling you, I'm heading out to Vegas this week. So
I got all the food recommendations.
Yeah,
we already talked about. I'll text them all to you. I got it.
Hell yeah. Well, we'll get this fired up. So let's just start. Well, you know, as all podcasts, we'll start with your origin story. And you know, it was funny. I was saying, it was like, I saw your Instagram first. I was like, oh, this is a Mexican dude. And then I listened to your Vanguard wall. You're like, I'm 1,000% Irish. And I'm like, wow. And it was like, love totally makes sense. Kilroy. I'm like, oh my God, you like right off the boat Irish. I was like, okay, sure. Yeah, so,
man. Yeah. I am the white privileged kid you've heard so much about, man. Like I grew up in Northeast Ohio as the oldest of 6 kids. You know, all four of us brothers. So there's boy, girl, boy, girl. The 4 boys all went into the military. Everybody's done more than 20 years. My youngest brother, Kyle, just hit the button on his retirement. I've got one other brother in. They're all in the Army, by the way. Nobody followed me in. They were like, no, we're not doing it. But I was just growing up and I was tooling around. I was good enough in high school that I didn't have to try real hard, and that doesn't work in college, brother. So I went to Ohio State for a little bit, and I just didn't go to class, and I was on a water polo team. It was a drinking team with a water polo problem. And we would like occasionally spice up a couple water polo tournaments with our binge drinking, but you know that's what you did in Ohio, because it's cold winters and you stay inside and you eat crappy food and you drink. And that was it. And I was just kind of looking for a purpose. I was bouncing and bar backing and doing the normal thing. And I ended up working at a factory making truck tires. Like, no kidding. I was working 3rd shift at some weird factory in my hometown where I hadn't left. And I was just lost. I was rudderless, just doing all the dumb stuff. I look back on that time now and I just laugh about like, what were you doing with your life? And then, like so many other people, you know, September 11th happened. I went out to a bar, you know, the night before. It was 50-cent draft dollar shot night. It was gorgeous, you know, early fall in Ohio, so it was still warm out. We were playing sand beach volleyball on the Portage Lakes. It was gorgeous. And we woke up and you saw the towers fall. And one of those planes, the plane that crashed in Shanksville, actually flew over, made their turn over kind of like Northeast Ohio before they ended up crashing in Shanksville. So that hit home to us. And my grandpa Kilroy and my grandpa Love were both in the Navy. My dad was in the Army for a short stint right after Vietnam, got in, did a tour in Germany, and came back home. And then he was a fireman. But you know, my grandfather's words, both of them, sort of rung in my head that each generation owes a debt to this country for what you got. And my upbringing, we couldn't afford a picket fence because my mom was a stay-at-home mom and 6 kids. My dad worked 2 jobs the entire time. He would go, you know, for 24-hour shifts at the fire department, get home, quick shower, and he was off doing his B job, working ambulances and doing marketing and being an ambulance rider for those dudes. And I knew that, you know, despite we didn't know we were poor. Looking back on it now, I'm like, oh, mom and dad were scrounged, just like, you know, with you. Like, we ate a lot of peanut butter. You know, we ate a lot of my mom was making magic out of a lot of spaghetti. Because in Akron, Ohio, the Irish and the Italians lived together. And when nobody was allowed to make fun of Irish or Italians back then, but then like the Irish and the Italians would fight unless it was somebody else. Like if the Germans came in or there's a big Polish population, like you stuck together in that sense. So we ate a lot of spaghetti, a lot of Italian food, but it's because it was cheap and you can make a lot of it. My mom
especially for 6 kids, man.
And it was 4 rambunctious boys. We actually lived in our my grandfather's house. My dad's dad, we lived in his house. They lived there for 30 years before they sold it to my dad. And now my little sister owns that house for something like 100 years. The Loves have lived in that house in Barberton, Ohio.
So were they like, is your grandparents off the boat, or was it like, I mean, how close of it?
It was one out. So their parents were Irish citizens. They came over here to do shipbuilding. They started off in Baltimore. And then they ended up going to Akron because of the rubber industry. So Akron is the home of the Goodyear blimp and LeBron James. It's the only 2 things that people know about Akron. But the rubber industry was there, so the huge industry, and they moved there. And Barberton was where they grew up. Saying that Barberton is a different city than Akron is like saying that you live in a different city than the airport, which is 12 minutes away, except it's 5 minutes. You can just drive right in. So, but nobody knows where that is. Shout out to Barberton, the Magic City. But I knew on that day that I wanted to do something. I looked at my dad. I was so broke at the time, actually, that I went to my parents' house and I ate dinner with them. Oddly enough, spaghetti. My mom's spaghetti. Me and Eminem have that in common. Eminem and I. I looked at my dad. He was driving me back home because now let's put this in context. This is 2001. I was a 21-year-old dude. And I was so broke that I couldn't afford bus fare to get back to my house in Akron where I was living, where I was just doing this stupid job.
Into the Breach is excited to be teamed up with 9 Line Apparel. They are the best. They are a veteran-owned apparel company that embodies the American spirit. Go check out 9lineapparel.com for freedom-loving, patriotic gear perfect for your family members, first responders, veterans, and active duty service members. When you're done selecting the amazing merchandise and apparel 9 Line has to offer, punch in the code ITB20. That's India Tango Bravo 20 for a 20% discount off your next purchase at 9lineapparel.com. Thank you for listening, and now back to the show.
To pay the rent and bouncing and literally selling plasma to get my beer money. Like that's where I was. And I looked at my dad and I was like, hey man, I think I'm going to go talk to a recruiter. I don't know where this thing is going, but I know we're going to go fight. I know that I owe this country a debt of gratitude for everything that it's given me. I'm going to go fight. I'm going to talk to Marines. And he kind of heard me out and he was like, listen, man, I want you to go talk to the Air Force dudes. He's like, the Air Force, I just know from experience, it's a better brand of life, whatever. They've got a bunch of different jobs that you can do. You can still go fight from there. You just have to pick a job that goes and does it. So I said, hey, no problem. Went down to the recruiter's office, and in classic recruiter fashion, the Army just straight up big time me. They were like, well, there's no really program to get off the street. I wanted to be a special operator. There's no program off the street. We can get you in, maybe you can do infantry. Possibility to get to the Rangers pretty quickly. Special forces, you're going to have to do another job and then assess and go through that whole process. It wasn't really great. And the guy was just, like you would think right then that everybody's like, oh, we got to get everybody in. Yeah. They were not. They were super
I heard about that, like post 9/11. Or like the day after. It was like influx, and they're like, we don't have...
They don't have the spots.
The funding or the spots, because it was still pre-9/11 military, but 9/11 happened, so everybody that, like next week, there was no options.
Well, the war hadn't even started.
Exactly.
The country was united. We were watching George Bush throw out the best first pitch of all time. Like, I love when pitching coaches evaluate George Bush's pitch. They're like, perfect tee position. He throws a perfect strike, walk off. The stadium erupts. Star Spangled Banner play was great. But they had no clue, and we didn't either. We had no idea that the triple nickel was about to go into Afghanistan and ride on horseback with, my good friend Will Markham, who killed more people than cancer in those early days of the Afghanistan war, and then Iraq to follow. But I knew that I wanted. So
was Mark a PJ or was
Will Markham? Oh, combat control legend. He actually
CCT. Okay.
He works for POVAT now, which is Project One Vet at a Time. They help people get through their VA process.
Okay. Cool.
Totally free. It's awesome. Scott Zastro, good friend of mine. He was actually my rep. That was the 18 Delta that went in with the triple nickel.
Oh no shit.
With the Air Force attachment of Will Markham and some other huge names.
No, I got all the books. They're all around. I'm redoing this, but I have my bachelor's degree is in intelligence. So I was reading those books for fun, but then I also had to read them for school.
You're a learned reader.
Yeah, learned. Yeah.
This is how's a doctor's. So I knew.
That's cool.
At that point, nobody knew what it was, right? But I knew that it's going to be a thing. I could at least, in my young, immature mind, I could at least see that we were going to have to go fight and we were going to go do something, and I wanted to be in the fight. Like this was my chance to go. Army guy completely shuts me down. Marines weren't even there. The Navy, I had no desire even at that point to be a SEAL. I sort of knew a little bit. I had done zero research, but I had a military family, so I knew kind of like the different flavors. But I knew that if I didn't make it as a SEAL, I can tell you for sure I didn't want to be on a boat. Yeah. So I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. So the Air Force, no kidding, I'm leaving the Army place, and he kind of sticks his head out and he goes, hey, I heard you were a swimmer and a water polo player. I was like, yeah. And he goes, can you still swim? I was like, well, yeah, I did it my entire life. I was like, I was a water polo player because Northeast Ohio, people don't understand it, but it's one of the centers of gravity for swimming. The school in Akron, it's called Akron Firestone, has produced something ridiculous, like 12 Olympians and 50 All-Americans. Like you go into this little public school in Akron, Ohio, and they've got banners from multiple All-Americans and Olympic swimmers. And that's who we were competing against, so no colleges gave me the time of day for swimming. They were like, congratulations. You suck. We used to play this game where you would look it up, and back in the day you'd have to look up papers from you'd have to go to the library and find papers from other states, and you would look at their times. You'd be like, I would have won state if I lived in New Mexico. And here, I didn't even qualify for I didn't qualify for anything.
Yeah, it's like wrestling in Minnesota.
I could have gone down. Minnesota, Michigan, all these corn-fed white boys. Right.
Yeah.
100%. You can't get a starting spot on your varsity team, and you would have dog walked everybody that lives in North Dakota or something weird. Same thing. So he's like, hey, here's the deal, man. There's a job. Here's a trifold pamphlet, and it was just gear laid out, and it was a dude with great hair. Good looking, chiseled jaw, steely eyes. And it was all the gear that they get to use. And there's medical stuff, and there's jumping, and the free fall equipment, and scuba, and ATVs, and guns. And he was like, listen, man, I've actually never put anybody in that made it. But if you can swim, you've got a leg up on everybody. If you want to take this test, they used to call it the PASS test. It's now called the IFT. So it was the physical ability and stamina test, passed. And now it's the IFT, the initial fitness test. And they haven't really changed a whole lot. But he was like, listen, nobody can ever make the swim. Can you make the swim? I was like, what was the time? It was a 500 meter. That was my event. And he's like, well, the time, you have to do it in faster than 12 minutes and 30 seconds. And I was like, by the way, I was hungover at the time. And I was like, I could do this hungover right now. I was like, that's not even a kick time for me. Like I'm usually below, I think my fastest time in the 500 was, low sixes. So 610, 620. If I get in the pool and I just figure it out, I was like, yeah, I can easily beat that time. And he just didn't believe me. He was like, well, when can you do it? And I was like, I don't know. It was Tuesday or Wednesday at that point. And I was like, I don't know, Friday. He's like, if you can pass the swim on Friday, how long do you need to get to these physical numbers for push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups? And I looked and they were super low. And I was like, I don't know, a couple weeks. I was like, just tell me what the standard are. I'll train to the standard and I'll tell you when I'm ready. So I go in on Friday. I did the swim and he was like, I want to schedule you for a test. How long is it going to take? I was like, well, 1 week sounds about right. Let's go. So I went in. I ended up passing, had bare minimum standards. He had me on the bus to San Antonio, Texas, New Year's Day. I spent my New Year's of 2002 in MEPS, and then I showed up to Lackland Air Force Base, now called Joint Base San Antonio Lackland. Yeah. I showed up on January 2nd, and that's when I started my Air Force career to be a BJ.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's cool. I mean, like you said, that having that swimming background, I know, like, because that gets guys sometimes when you're like,
the pool is the great equalizer,
like,
brother.
yeah, and SEALs are like, they're like, oh, we knew we had to do something, but there's always like an advantage depending on your sport. Clearly,
right.
PJ SEALs, if you're a swimmer, that's right. Like huge leg up, or say recon for Marine recon.
Absolutely, anybody with a water-based selection, you're gonna be better because the pool is just a different beast. And if you have that water confidence, it also helps that my swim coach just happened to be a Marine recon guy.
That's right, yeah.
And I kind of look back at the stuff when we would do other stuff. Like he would cut practice once or twice a week to kind of break up the monotony of just putting miles in the pool. He's like, hey, here's the deal. We're going to do 5 underwaters. You got to go the entire pool. Then you're going to hit the crack and you're going to swim back. And we're going to do that again. And then we're going to do this thing where you got to go down, you got to pass a brick and you got to do some treading. Yeah. And it was funny because as I was, going through the training and was realizing what it was, I was like, oh, I've done all this stuff. I just didn't know that I was doing it. And which was great. It was an advantage for me because that was always connected with fun. That was a break from practice. He was like, do you guys want to do more 400 repeaters on a short time block? Or do you guys want to do this wacky breath holding thing? And I was like, I'll take the breath holding thing. I don't want to put in another 10,000 yards today. Let's do that. So it ended up working out well.
Did you ever find out his background a little bit more? Like, how did you find out he was force recon, or what was
he told us, and I actually had a relationship with him. Pause.
Yeah, pause.
I had a relationship.
Clip that.
That's 100%. But I had a relationship with him later, so where he would eventually say, and especially when he found out in the military, like social media wasn't really a thing. Facebook was kind of a thing. MySpace, he was in my top 8, no big deal. Shout out Tom. Tom was everybody's friend on MySpace. He actually told me a little bit and just, hey, this is kind of like what I'd done. And he had a serious injury. He was actually fast roping off a pretty big rig, and the pilot didn't know he was on the rope and started to pull away, and it threw him off the rig into the ocean, and he broke his back, and that's what ended his career. It was pretty bad.
Oh, shit, yeah.
But, it was just crazy is you look... Retrospect is the only way to look at these things. And sometimes, like Charlie Day, when he's trying to figure out who Pepe Silva is, you have to connect those little pieces of yarn. And as you look back and you see those things that are somewhat innocuous and never connected in your life, and suddenly it's a straight line to where you are, that's kind of how I look back on it now. Is that everything, by the grace of God, was this led to a very distinct decision and inflection point in my life, and it just so happened to work out for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So was there any kind of thrill for you? I mean, like, so you're a bit older though. How old were you at this point? 22?
I was 21.
21 still? Okay.
I turned 22 the first time that I was in Indoc.
Okay, yeah. Because that's that weird, when guys join pre 9/11 and post 9/11.
Right.
And like, what was your feeling like that? Like, what was it like? Am I going to war? Like, what were you going through? Because I went in 2005.
Right.
And shit was really cooking.
Right.
So what was it like for you, like post 9/11 in the first few months? That's like, what is that feeling going into, into the Air Force and be like, I'm going to try to do this PJ thing?
It was very real right away. It was very real because as a civilian, you're not really, I had this feeling that we were going somewhere where these guys were actually getting ready to go, especially my instructors at Indoc, I distinctly remember, a couple times we had some combat controllers come in and they were, bearded out and they wanted to come say hi to their bros. Well, they had just gotten back off those first rotations to Afghanistan. Like, this was a very real thing. The peacetime military science project was over.
Yeah.
And all these things that they've been trained for. I say this all the time, like, no shade to any of the PJs in the 80s and 90s, but 90s PJ and 90s Green Beret is kind of like a slur.
Yeah.
Where you're kind of like, hey man, tight career of 20 years, what'd you do?
Yeah.
Because a couple of teams did Mogadishu, a couple of people did some one-off stuff. Some PJs had some great rescues, stateside missions or humanitarian response sort of things. But the full thing that we would come to know as GWAT just wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
And these guys knew what was coming. They had trained their whole life for it and they were ready to go. And they did a good job, even with their low experience, and I say that with all the grace in my heart, but the people that were instructing us they were stuck at a schoolhouse assignment that's a 4-year controlled tour. So even with the surges, they had to watch all their friends go do the job that they trained for their entire career. Yeah. So there was a little bit of that saltiness underneath it.
Oh, I'd be losing my mind.
And the guys do.
Yeah. Like, you just be like, I got 3 years left of this,
right.
And you're watching them just get after it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it became very real. Like, all these things that you say and in training, and this is the reason why we do this, those things were they just had the volume turned up to 11 because they were, I remember a guy that had seen a little bit, he was at one of the tier 1 units and then was a contracted instructor, was down there, and he just absolutely lost his mind on us one day in the pool, like literally throwing all of our stuff in the pool and emptying stuff out because somebody put a sensitive piece of equipment outside of arm's reach. And you could just see the PTSD. Like, he wasn't even talking to us. He was a world away screaming about how this will kill people because that was his experience.
Yeah.
So it got very real very quickly. And you can make whatever fun of the Air Force, but this is a different community in the Air Force. Like, you can call me Chair Force all the time, and I'll lean into the jokes and tell you that I get the nicest hotel rooms, and I get my own room with a pillow top mattress because I'm on crew rest. Like, I love those jokes. But even inside of those jokes was the real thing. Like, people were going. Jason Cunningham was killed shortly after I got into the military in 2002. He was in Takragar. He was a pararescueman that was killed on Roberts Ridge during that event, and pararescuemen responded to that event. So very real. I remember them reading off Jason's award citation, hearing the words that they had said shortly after Jason had passed away. This guy was a young guy. He had a family. He had a small child. Like, it was very real.
Yeah, that was getting real. So when did you start doing the PJ pipeline then? Or like, when do you guys do their trials? Because you're at Air Force boot camp, whatever that is.
Basic military training. Put some respect on my name. Basic military training. Hit Texas in 2002, and then the base of Lackland is set up. There's main base, and that's Air Force home. Basically, everything is there. The land of basic training. Everybody goes through basic training. San Antonio, Texas. Well, there's a little annex, and it used to be an airfield, but then the airfield got decommissioned. But it used to be called the Medina Training Annex, and we're talking a bus ride out the Valley High Gate over. It takes you about 7 minutes total to get to what they call the Flores complex now. That was the home of the indoctrination course. PJs and controllers used to go through the indoctrination course together, like my co-host Peaches, combat controller, legend, this big, he's a little battle dwarf. He went through Indoc with the PJs for a bunch of different reasons, largely logistical. Combat controllers split off, so it was only PJs going through Indoc at that point. And it was literally, you graduate basic training on Friday, you take a bus ride, you get your room set up, and then Monday morning, you were into the start of the Indoc process. Back in the day, they had 2 weeks of prep team. Because again, like any culture, there are expectations. Like, you didn't wear your shoes in the schoolhouse. You slapped the door and said, "Who y'all never quit when you left." You announce yourself when you come into rooms. All those things that we level on students, right? So you had to take a little bit of time to learn those. You got 2 weeks of sort of non-retributional learning, but it was more like, we're going to tell you this exactly one time, and then you have to do it correctly, or we're going to smoke the living crap out of you for not listening to me. But that volume was turned a little bit down. Standards are slower. They were a little bit more instructional. You had that 2 week period to figure it out. And then you hopped into the 10-week indoctrination program that we refer to as Indoc now. It's now called assessment and selection, but the legacy model was indoctrination, or just Indoc. But I started that pretty much right away.
So that 10 weeks, that's just the tryout. That's the, like you said, assessment selection per se. So that's a pretty long, 10 weeks is pretty long. I mean, because you got SFAS is 30 days, so you're looking at 4 weeks. Delta selections, 4 weeks. That 10 weeks is was a hell of a fucking,
It's not fun.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that much. It took me
a long time.
Well, the first two, I tried 2 classes, and because I was emotionally and spiritually not ready to do it, I had to do it 4 times. So, 10 weeks is bad enough. I'll tell you what sucks way worse is taking 5 years to do it over 35 weeks, because that's not the way to do it. I would highly recommend against that. I give it 0 stars. Yeah. So don't do that. But basically it was built off of, pararescue. One of the things that they did is they'll take you right off the street. You'd be a 17-year-old with a GED, and they'll be like, come on in, you can try. If you can make the ASVAB score, at that time it was super low. It was like you had to have a 43 on your ASVAB.
Really, for PJs?
They don't care.
Really?
Because they're like, hey, it's a 91% attrition rate. It's been a 91% attrition rate forever. So 91 out of 100 people fail. They're like, we'll handle the adult learning stuff later. Like if you need some help with adult learning, we're going to figure that out later. But let's talk about the highest attrition rate in the DOW first. If you can make it through that, then we'll be able to give you a little bit more WASTA on some of the other stuff.
Really? I didn't know that. That's,
We'll take all comers. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, if you can make it through the physical and be like, all right, let's see how this mental game goes. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you're the type of person, and we've seen this, you could be very low IQ, terrible adult learner, but if you have the grit, the willingness, the determination, the sheer intestinal fortitude to make it through that 10 weeks of the Indoc program, I bet you'll figure out how to study and lock it down, and how to be a paramedic, and how to be a good combat diver, how to be a good jumper.
So you guys get those guys that are like Charlie Day that play the piano. He's like, I don't know, man. I don't
know. It just speaks. I just makes sense. Like Charlie Day can read Gaelic. He can read Gaelic, but he can't speak it because of his Irish. It turns out it's his brother, his pen pal. That's 2 It's Always Sunny references.
Exactly. Yeah. He can't spell anything, but he's like,
no, he's an expert in bird law if you need him.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So you go do the 10-week assessment selection. How'd that go then that first time? Because you've discussed this before.
Total fail. Yeah. Quit. Absolutely quit. So I went through my first team. We have this thing called extended training day. It's like into SEALs Hell Week, right? No sleep, water, constant training evaluations. They're taking you to the pool at 2 a.m. You've already had 2 pool sessions that day. They're just trying to absolutely push you to your limits. Yeah. Made it through there. Totally random. We were just doing a run around the track. Somebody asked me to move out of the way. I did, but there was a lip on the track. Just rolled the crap out of my ankle, right? Yeah. So I off that team, onto the next one. Got through the next one, and the entire course was wearing on me. Everything that I should have been prepared for, I wasn't, and that just came to a head. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm good. I quit. So said the words. They held me to a standard. Good is what it is, because I wasn't ready. So I got to spend about 4 years of my life being an aerospace physiologist. I was a technician, so I was the enlisted side of it. And I did human performance and training and high altitude airdrop mission support, which means I got to go with the teams and be their oxygen guy. So over a certain level, you have to have a dude that puts oxygen on the jumpers. And that was my job. It was super cool.
Because it sounds awesome.
Oh, dude.
It sounds really cool.
Totally awesome.
Yeah.
My oldest daughter's godfather was an active duty physiologist for the entire time. I still talk to all those people I work with. They're great. I went to jump master school with one of them 20 years later in the career. It was fantastic. Not a bad thing to say. And they supported me when I wanted to go back. I went to jump school. I came back home. My daughter was 3 weeks old. My oldest daughter was 3 weeks old. And my wife was, no kidding, breastfeeding as I got home super late at night, off the road, freshly qualified from airborne school. It was in Fort Benning, Georgia, airborne, home airborne, super duper paratrooper, no big deal. And I walked in and my wife said, hey, did that make you want to go back? Well, I had played poker with all the PJs at the 38th. My good friend Rob invited me over for a poker game. And about halfway through, he was like, how do you feel, you fucking pussy? He was like, you could have been on this team. Yeah. You could have been here with us doing this real thing. Half of them had already, just gotten back from a deployment. The other guys were getting ready to go on their second one. And this was my peer group. This is people that I went through Indoc with. Yeah. And he was like, you should be here. And you didn't. And that one hurt. Yeah. Like that hurt a lot. And I looked at her and I was like, yep, I think I do want to go back. I want to try this thing. She's like, listen, this is serious business. I'll support you. I will take care of the kids when you're gone. I know what we're getting into here. But if you quit or fail, like that's it. Like we're not doing this. You're not taking me through this entire training up to and then cross training and telling people I was going. You're not putting me through that. So you're either going to make it or we have to have a serious talk. And I was like, all right. And I put my packet in. Went back in 2006, hurt myself on that first team after a couple weeks. So got a good refresher, good left seat, right seat, and then went back and ended up graduating on that second class.
Yeah. How'd that feel?
It was good. It was good. However, I knew that that wasn't the end. You know, I caution people, you know, on One's Ready, we talk to people all the time that had failed out once before and they can't wait to get back. And the one thing that I will caution them is that the point isn't to graduate Indoc. The point is to get through the pipeline, be a PJ, and actually go deploy and do the job that you want to do. It's okay to try to have a revenge tour where you succeed at something that you previously failed. And it's okay to feel really good about that, because I felt great. When I graduated, I give this, we weren't a great Indoc team. Like as teams go, there are some teams, you're never going to smoke the indoctrination course, but you can do well at it. Yep. We did not. And my instructor at the time, an old combat controller that was working down there as a contractor, he goes, you know, Love, you were the least shitty NCL on this team. And I was like, you know what? I'll take it. After the beating that I just took for 10 weeks in this pool down in San Antonio, Texas, I'm the least shitty. I'll take it.
You met standard. We're good.
Right, yeah. I'll take it. C's get degrees. A 70% standard is good enough. You know?
A doctor with a C is a doctor. That's what we'd always say. Yeah. Scout Sniper School.
So, I mean, it felt great. It felt good to go home. I had righted that wrong, so to speak. But my goal was always to become a PJ. It wasn't just to graduate the indoctrination course.
Nice. So when you get to that 10 weeks, then what goes into becoming a PJ? Because I know their pipeline is astronomical. Right. Like anytime I think about it, I always think about like the 18 Deltas. And I've been working with a lot of specific 18 Deltas are for special forces, for those who don't know. And then Delta, there's Delta Force. And I'm working with more Delta guys recently. And it's like, and even sitting down and having drinks with them even a few years ago was cool. I'll sit down with one. I'm like, oh, okay. Selection, obviously it's very hard. Right. Very hard culture. Obviously I'm not downplaying it by any means, but their OTC is like 6 months. And you're like, okay. And then you still think about the other pipelines that are out there. Now, maybe, you know, this it's so stringent that the attrition rate's incredibly high. Not saying that SF or the others aren't as stringent, but there's a lot more people getting through. You got to fill a lot more teams. So, I mean, there's 6 months. What is PJ? I mean, how long is the PJ pipeline? I mean, you guys are going through medical, you're doing through jump, you're doing dive, you're doing, you know, everything, you know, you can control, correct? Like JTAC, all that stuff. I mean,
so any of these berets, typically we tell you 2 years, right? So technically, if you could graduate a course on Friday, be in place on a Monday for your next course, you could get everything done in like 14 months, right? But that's never the way it works out. You miss a class side. Like I had a child in between this. I had to move. I was in kind of a weird spot where I was actually going TDY to these pipeline schools from my home because it was cheaper for the Air Force to keep me where I lived, as opposed to PCS me, because, you know, during that move and then you got a house hunt and then you got to get in, it would have set my pipeline way back. So I was doing that. The normal flow is that you'll go through your assessment selection, and now we have the Zulu course, which is a common skills course. So that's about 20 weeks long. When you get through there, you hit all of your other schools, and this is where pararescue is a little different. We front load every single advanced employment capability up front. So you're going to airborne, SEER, helicopter dunker, military freefall, combat dive, and then you go to what we call your apprentice course. So you're and then pararescuemen also go through the pararescue medical program. It's gone through a bunch of different names. Currently, it's called the MP3, Military Pararescue Provider Program, MP3. So that takes you, that's about 7.5 months with clinicals, and it takes you from no medical experience to nationally registered paramedic in that 7.5 month time to include your clinicals. So for me, it still took 18 months. I already had airborne knocked out. I already had my survival schools knocked out. So I immediately saved 2 months on my pipeline just off the rip because I had all these other schools because of the other job. But it takes 2 years to get through. It is not uncommon to hear folks, especially when I was an instructor later in life, guys would be getting ready to graduate, and had they not graduated on that course, they'd have to re-enlist on their first 4-year contract in order to have the retainability to actually go into the course, which is just a crazy thing to consider. But usually, you know, for pararescuemen, it's about 18 to 24 months is what we're talking now. The pipeline's going through a big optimization, and that time may come down, and I hope it does. I think they can do it more efficiently. But that's usually what we say. Combat control was a little bit shorter. That was anywhere from 14 to 18 months. TAC-P was a little bit shorter than that, usually 9 months to a year. But these things took a long time because you're getting all of that training uploaded. And it just is the nature of the game.
What's that? I mean, what's that like? As I was fortunate enough, like I did back-to-back deployments. I got right into the fight. What's it like for guys that are going through that? They know the fight's going on, and you're 2 years out, right? Or you're a year and a half out, and you know what I mean? Like, what's that? Because you're wanting to get into the fight, clearly, you know. So what? I mean, you know, because I've seen guys like, and I've talked to other guys recently too that they went to the recon in doc, and they're like, oh. recon, it's going to take you like 6-7 months, and then you got to do it. And they're like, send me back to the infantry unit. And then they deployed.
Right.
Because that's what you joined to do, you know, or guys that go through SF, you know, a 2-year pipeline or so. And then they're like, yeah, we finally got to it. You know, they eventually got to it because the GWAT was on so long. But was there something in your mind at all? I mean, no one knew we were going to go for 20 years, but, you know, like you're just chomping at the bit. Does that wear on guys at all? They're like, dude, I got a year and a half. Am I going to even get into the fight? You know, that type of mentality. Is that something that you guys deal with, you know?
The pipeline was way harder than the selection, bro, because you're being evaluated every single day. It's all cool to talk about going to dive school. There's like 40 different evaluations that you have to pass in dive school or your pipeline's over. Airborne, we always make fun of airborne. You can fail out of airborne school. You can fail out of free fall school. You can fail out of paramedic school. You could fail out of any one of these courses. You can have a disciplinary issue. You have to be locked in every single day just to get to the apprentice course. The pararescue apprentice course is remarkably hard. While the attrition rate isn't super high like it is down at the indoctrination course, imagine getting all of these pieces and parts of your training, and then you can't put all those pieces and parts together at the apprentice course because we want you to look like a PJ. So up until the apprentice course was just 6 months in and of itself, we're just asking, just be a good jumper, just be a good diver, just be a good medic, just be a good technical rescue specialist, just do all these things and do all of these sort of a la carte little specialties. Just do each one of them up to the standard and you're good. Well, the pararescue schoolhouse, the evaluated event is you're going to plan a mission. You're going to jump free fall with all of your friends and all of your gear. You're going to get to a mass casualty where you have 15 patients for 2 people to treat. There's going to be a tactical scenario. Sometimes that includes jumping or technical rescue or rope or some sort of technical problem that you have to fix, to include exfil. And if you fail any one of those parts of the mission, you fail the entire mission. And you're not going to get another shot at it. So imagine getting all the way through. Some of the hardest student instructor conversations I've had to say is look at everybody and be like, listen, man, you're good at all these things, but when we asked you to put them all together because that's what the job requires, you didn't make the standard. So at the end of 2 years, sorry, but you got to go.
Yeah. What does that qualify? It's like, how many guys then that get to that point do actually like don't make it?
So the medicine gets a lot of them because even though pararescue is remarkably different, that we require everybody to have the national registry for paramedic. The Army has gone back and forth a bunch on this. Like for the long course, they used to give guys paramedic right out of there, and then they went away from it for a little while. Then there was a problem with accreditation and yada, yada, yada. All that to say, pararescue never moved away from the national registry requirement, which is why we don't go to SOCM anymore. We used to go to the SOCM course, right? Yep. And just before I started into the pipeline, that's when that split happened. Is because the school, for whatever reason, and I'm not even, some 18 Delta that knows better than me is going to hit me in the comments, be like, that's not why you guys left. Sorry, I was young and stupid. But we separated ourselves from that program because we never wanted to give up the national registration, because we have a stateside mission where all pararescuemen that work at Guard and Reserves have the state mission. They have to have the state, the national
makes
registration.
sense. Yeah.
You know, so it's a distinct requirement for the career field. So, medicine is the hardest part of there. So outside of safety or disciplinary stuff, the failures you usually see inside of the medical block, but it's few and far between. You know, there's plenty of experiences. I saw, we were running 4 classes a year for the first 2 years I was there, 3 classes a year for the second one. So what's that? 14 classes. Out of those 14 classes, it was really common for everybody to get through, barring discipline or something that they found themselves out. The attrition rate at that course isn't super high, but the medicine got everybody. Because when we're asking you, it's super easy to do medicine when you have a preceptor, even on a real human, over your shoulder. It's a little bit different when you're in the middle of a mass casualty and simulated explosions and gunfire are going off, and we're asking you to do these skills in an austere environment where everything is dirty and filthy and you don't know what's going on. Some people just couldn't put it together. I don't know the numbers on I wish I could give you a percentage of how many people it was. But usually 1 or 2 times a class, somebody would need a setback to get some extra training. And then unfortunately, you only get 2 shots at it. Yeah. You get 1 shot. Okay, we're going to give you some training. Now you get to try it again. And then if that's it, that's it.
Just curious, is like, where do guys go after that? With all this training, all this time?
Needs of the Air Force, brother.
Oh, okay. All right. That's when you get the needs of the Air Force. Yeah.
Sometimes you have being triple stacked, because you'd wear your free fall wings, your dive bubble, and your halo wings. And call it triple stacked you'll have a triple stack guy that works at services, or a triple stack guy that works at the front gate, because you keep those badges because they're required. You ain't doing a job.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. That really does hurt my heart to see that happen. But the game is what the game is. Yeah. You have to know that going in.
Yeah. So you guys, how long did it take overall then, from day one to getting that beret?
About 18 months. So I graduated the Indoc course. I was back home at my house on March 17th on St. Patrick's Day. I was living in Baltimore, Maryland. So I was back on the East Coast, not Baltimore, it was Upper Marlboro, Maryland, just outside of DC. I was working at Andrews. But I graduated that course. That was 2007. So I went down to Indoc at the end of 2006, graduated in 2007. And then I graduated the pipeline from the Pararescue Apprentice course, put the beret on in December of 08. Oh, okay. So right in the beginning. So that's almost a full 2 years.
Well, almost 7 years from the get-go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I got in January of 2002, and then in the end of 2008, I put a beret on. So it took me 6 years.
Yeah, 6 years.
Yeah. Just a little break in a different job.
So when you were doing the other job, did you just think about that all the time?
I didn't think about it all the time.
Oh, really?
To be honest with you.
Yeah.
Well.
Oh, yeah. What was your thoughts like on that?
I had a lot of resentment, both to my own failures. And again, I was, we all are, but I was a completely different person. I don't even know that 22-year-old version of myself anymore. And to be quite honest with you, I cringe to think about that person. And I cringe to think about the people that knew me at that time. I usually, when somebody's like, oh, hey, I met you in, any time before today, I usually say, hey, I'm really sorry. I'm trying to be better. Yeah. But I didn't think about it a whole lot because I didn't want to be that guy. I saw too many examples of people that couldn't let it go, that talked about it constantly, wore their little team shirts, wore the very distinctive little short shorts that everybody runs around in. And I just knew that I didn't want to be that guy. I wanted to serve. That's why I got into the military. It's just I wanted to be a PJ because I thought that would be the best use of who I thought I was in that service. And the second that I left San Antonio proper and showed up to my first job, I didn't want to be that guy that's all they talked about.
Yeah.
It was still a calling. I still felt called to do it. Yeah. And then the situation presented itself, and luckily I was able to make it happen the second time. I think I always wanted to go back, but it wasn't one of those things that was just nagging in the back of my head every single day. Like I took a ton of time off working out completely. I did just the bare minimum to make it in the Air Force for a little bit of time, as a matter of fact. I was way more busy partying with my friends in the dorms as a dumb E4 than I was training to go back. It wasn't this thing that was just driving me to the gym every day. Like I had to reorient and come back to it.
How tough was that?
It was very tough.
Yeah.
It was very tough. But once you know, and I didn't know if I was going to make it, but I knew that I wanted to do it. If I look at this thing that is a thing for whatever reason, like why do I feel this way? Why? Like, let me really explore what is calling me to do this. When you make that decision to go in, okay, well, then that's it. Then we just got to go. I knew what it takes. I had a bunch of friends that graduated. I was in the same Indoc class as two of the guys that were killed on extortion, Dan Zerby and John Brown. Those guys were in my first Indoc class, and those guys were dead now. I knew the exact output of what this little venture of mine could be because it wasn't about graduating Indoc. It wasn't about putting a beret on my head. It was putting myself in a situation where I could respond like those guys did. And I knew that was a big deal. That was a big lift.
So what happens then? You get as soon as you get to the units, like how do they kick off? Because I don't know much about the Air Force side of the house, like how you guys separate, how you guys go into, because again, it sounds like me like pair of PJs, and I know them since when I was in the Marine Corps. We knew of them, like oh shit, yeah, those guys are fucking wild, and but we didn't know much for details. Obviously, this is like 20 years ago, right? But how do they split you guys up? Like, what's that? How do they determine that? Where do you guys go? Like, what's your job after that? Because it's like you have CCTs, you have PJs. I'm sure you guys have your tier 1, I think it's 24th STS or something like that.
You can never say that again.
Okay, all
you
right.
have to bleep it out. The AFSOT geographically separated unit, their unclassed mission statement is to do tactic, techniques, and procedures and development of tactic, techniques, and procedures and gear and equipment on the East Coast. Okay. That's the nicest that I can possibly be.
Got it. Okay.
You can look on the internet for everything else, everybody. Put those numbers in and Google it. You can watch the whole recruiting video. It's on there.
I know my buddy did that. I said SEAL Team 6. He's like, you just not say that. I was like, come on, man.
We're contractually obligated to protect the brand. I never worked at that organization. I did deploy in support of them one time for a thing.
He's like, you say Dev Group? And I was like, yes, I'll say Dev Group.
Fine, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. The rest of us are like, whatever.
Well, you don't even have to bleep it out now. Now everybody will be like, okay, cool. Now we're good. So PJs work across 5 separate commands, right? Okay. So usually what you do when you graduate the pipeline is you go to what we called the big 3. It was the 38th Rescue Squadron, the 48th Rescue Squadron, and the 58th Rescue Squadron. Okay. Those 3 were inside of the Air Combat Command. That's large Air Force. Okay. So the rescue squadrons live under the Air Combat Command. The Special Tactics Squadrons And those are the 2 series. So 2-1, 2-2, 2-3, 2-6. There's overseas units, the 320th and the 321st. Those are for AFSOC. Typically what you would do is you'd go to one of the big 3, and the whole job of the big 3 was get your training plan. It still takes you, by the way, about another 9 months of training at that unit in order to be ready to deploy. They call it your mission qualification training. So you still can't, even as a vetted graduate of the pararescue pipeline, when you got to your first unit, you were back in training for another 9 months to get yourself fully qualified, ready to deploy and go down range. That timeline could shift, especially early in GWAT. They were like, we don't have 9 months to train you, so we're going to get the bare minimum of your stuff ready to go because you got to go out on this next deployment. But you were supposed to go to, we called it green team, just like everybody calls everything green team when you show up at a unit. You get trained, you get qualified as a 3 level. We have different levels. There's 3, 5, 7, and 9 level. And those are just skill qualifications. So you would go and you would train, and you would typically go to the big 3. I was a little bit different because I was already a staff sergeant. So it's just an Air Force gonculation. There's a huge spreadsheet of where we put people of certain ranks. They didn't have any spots for me as a 3 level staff sergeant, E5, in any of the big 3, but they did overseas working for AFSOC. So my first assignment was at the 321st STS, which was in Mildenhall, England. And I immediately went into AFSOC. Usually you had a rescue assignment, get your feet underneath you. And when you got to that next skill level from 3 level to 5 level, usually that's when AFSOC would take a PJ, because the AFSOC units, it's changed a little bit, especially when you look at places like Florida or Cannon, but they just didn't have the people and they were jobbing out. So they couldn't actually train you on the timeline that you were supposed to train, because everything has a training plan. Everything has a progression. Well, the AFSOC units didn't have a whole lot of PJs at them, first of all. And second of all, you just didn't have the ability to train. They were supporting SOCOM and providing forces to SOCOM on the hook every single month.
Okay. So that's news to me. So you do, basically there's 3 units and you're not in SOCOM yet, correct?
The majority of pararescue does not live in SOCOM.
So they're like, what's that called? Like, I want to say that's not
the Air Combat
just
Command.
the Air Combat Command.
The Combat Air Forces is the larger umbrella term.
Okay.
But the Air Force owns you. ACC, the Air Combat Command. So that's where all the fighters live, almost all the aircraft, almost all the transport, a lot of the support jobs.
That's cool here because I didn't realize that. I assumed all you were under SOCOM, but so
Right.
you guys are actually, you respond to everything else then within the Air Force.
Everything.
That's not even related to Special Operations Command.
And it's the entire DOW.
Oh, okay.
We are the premier rescue asset for everybody. So if you think about it, draw a box around any area where something could happen, and there's an ACC rescue team that's ready to respond in that box for anything.
Okay, yeah. So like East Coast, West Coast, Hawaii, there's PJ, like, hey, something happens, this helicopter goes down.
Everywhere.
Okay, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. All right.
Stateside, overseas, it doesn't matter. To include humanitarian assistance and humanitarian aid and disaster relief, or HADR, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. But people have responded to Haiti. We responded to the Fukushima nuclear reactor, avalanches, Hurricane Katrina, any time of instability the world over. There's a PJ team that's ready right now to respond and start operations in 72 hours. It's what's called the Global Response Force.
So that's pretty wild. So I'm imagining you guys are pretty busy even in peacetime. Was that like something too that like guys that were like, oh yeah, in the 90s, like, yeah, well, we actually did a lot of shit because
A ton of
it's not just combat related. It's
You're right.
actually disaster relief. It's rescues. It's all the above.
And that's outside of those stateside missions.
Yeah.
You know, the guys from California, the guys from Moody, especially the guys in Alaska. The guys in Alaska are the premier rescue force of choice for the entire state. So if you have a hunter that's attacked by a bear in the backcountry, like my friend did, a good mentor of mine, him and one other dude jumped out of a C-130 into the backcountry and provided life-saving aid to somebody that was attacked by a bear and then got him out.
No shit.
But Alaska does that all the time. Alaska, every unit kind of takes on their own sort of identity. And I do give crap on the internet to the 212 unit up at Alaska, because they will tell you they are the tier 1 rescue unit. Like, that is a funny joke that they will say. Like, if you say it to kind of be like, oh, well, you guys are tier 1 rescue, they'll be like, damn right we are. To quote Lil Wayne, men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. Those dudes job out, and they are the most experienced guys at the true rescue unit. They really do great work.
They're just doing trigger time on rescues constantly.
I mean, you know, you talk about the rescue season in Alaska, and there's a couple of great books. Roger Sparks wrote a great book, you know, pararescue legend. He worked at Alaska. Jimmy Settle shot in the head with a 7.62 round and lived and worked in Alaska. Like, these guys are getting like 3 rescues a week during rescue season.
Really? No
Oh
shit.
yeah.
Wow.
They still deploy. They still go down range, and they still do all of that. Highly experienced, highly useful team, like amazing. But that was a really interesting part of the mission too. If you get into any one of these other sister service units, you may see some stuff. The Green Berets have a great FID mission where you're still going down range and doing stuff. But pararescuemen, really, if there's something that's going on, pararescuemen have been involved in every single big event that's happened, whether it's a disaster. You look at I think it was 1988 with the earthquake that happened in Los Angeles, and it was during the World Series. It collapsed a bunch of bridges.
Yep, I remember that.
We're confined space rescue specialists. The team from Moffett showed up to cut people out of the rubble in that.
Really? That's wild. That's super cool.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of something I just learned, but it makes sense. If you get that much training, you can't be like, well, we're just for combat.
Right. The perfect storm, that entire movie, like people forget, like the guys that jumped in the water, hey, I'm your pararescueman. I'm here to save you today. When the Coast Guard won't go, they send the PJs.
Really? No shit. Oh, that's pretty cool. That's super awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Is there any stateside stories that you guys like kind of grew up on, or like the guys would tell you like this is a legendary story of like?
No, man, because I grew up in GWAT. They didn't care. Like
they care. Yeah. There was this bear attack. Like, no, hey, man, we're
bear attack.
Taking on Taliban.
I had it was funny because this was the Alaska team, but like bear, they don't talk about the bear attack. They talk about the fact that they're the ones that stopped the Bastion base attack, the deployment before that I got there. Like that team, no kidding, were the guys that got on golf carts and went and got into gunfights with insurgents that were dressed up like doctors that were trying to go to the hospital and cause a mass casualty event. So everything with us was GWAT.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It was just good to know, so especially for guys that are asking what to, like, that's the other thing I like doing this podcast or doing the show. It's like, what do you do? Like, what are the options that are out there for people? And that's, I think, the generation I always kind of, it's cool. I don't say I envy them, but their information flow is so much more annoying, huge. Like I'm a filmmaker, but I'm just like, I look at my job field and I'm like, dude, you don't realize how everything's at your fingertips.
Bro, I went in off a trifold pamphlet.
Yeah.
A trifold paper pamphlet, and that was all the information I had. I'd never heard about pararescue. I went from signing a contract and not knowing about pararescue in the course of 12 hours. Yeah. Okay? I just dropped episode 604 specifically about Air Force Special Operations on our YouTube account.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the difference.
That's the difference. Exactly. 100%. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't even know that Air Force had, special operations guys.
Well,
nobody does. Yeah.
Hence the podcast, because only 23% of Americans right now even qualify for military service. The SEALs, the Rangers, MARSOC Raiders, FBI, DEA, fire, police, first responders, they're all fighting for the same 23% of people. And if you don't know that pararescue is the only combat job that you get to do in peacetime,
which is super cool, by the way.
Super cool, by the way.
Yeah.
Super cool, by the way.
Especially these days.
My first rescue was a civilian rescue. I went to AFSOC and I thought I was going to go support these teams and go down range, get in gunfights. And the very first call I got was to go get a sick Filipino sailor out in the middle of the North Sea.
Yeah, we'll go into that story. How was that?
It was dope. The funniest part about this is that, there's always different COAs for a mission, right? COAs are courses of action or the way that you're going to do it. So we got the call. I was actually doing a completely different training event. So you get called a pup when you first get there, like the young pups. Like if you're an unqualified PJ, you're a pup, and all you do is train.
What makes you qualified PJ? Sorry, just like
a whole list of stuff that you got to do.
Dude,
you have to rehack your medicine, you have to rehack your diving, you have to rehack your jumping, you have to rehack your tactics, your shooting, your mission planning. You have to get evaluated constantly. The evaluations never stop in the pararescue community. Even if you're a chief, you can be a pararescue chief legend with an Air Force cross, like my good friend that lives in Vegas, Ivan Ruiz. And during at the end of that guy's career, he had to have some E5 come over and he had to treat a patient in a simulated environment. And if he failed, they would take away his beret.
Really?
100%. If you don't pass the PT test, great, can't do the job. Have fun doing whatever else you're going to do. You ain't a PJ anymore. That is how we live our lives until the day that you retire. That beret is rented, and the rent is due every M or effing day, period. So I was just training. We were doing a confined space rescue event. It was great. We were in the south of England, and we were actually working on a ship. It doesn't make any sense to talk about ropes in a ship, but if you think about the superstructure, if somebody hurts themselves way down in the middle of a ship and you have to try to get that person up in order to get them out, you have to go through a maze of overarching catwalks and stairs that make no sense in really small spaces. It's great to train for confined space because you have to make rope systems to haul really heavy things up or patients, and then you have to figure where's your anchor and how am I going to get them through this. It's really, really good, really intense. And we got the call for whatever reason that we had to come back home. And they were like, you guys need to come back home right now. Well, it turns out the rescue unit that was right up the road was deployed. They'd gotten a call that somebody was experiencing abdominal pain and they thought it was appendicitis. And it was on a supertanker that couldn't turn around. And the doctor on the ship was like, I think he's going to die. He needs surgery. He doesn't need antibiotics. Well, there was only one PJ up the road that was even home. So they had helicopters and they had one PJ, but they didn't have another team. So we got back home and we went into deliberate mission planning. And this is where the funny part kind of plays out. There was a possibility for two different COAs. It was the jump mission. We were going to take a C-130, the pararescue community, and specifically the support people. And I want to give a shout out to our support folks. The AFE people, so aerial flight equipment, when they work at an STS or a rescue, these people are wizards. If you can pack it up, like if you can get it into a box, they can figure out a way to put a parachute on it and throw it out of a plane. They're amazing. They're called riggers, RIGGERs. However, in today's environment, I prefer to call them parachute packing Americans.
Yeah.
So the parachute packing Americans, the PPAs, they can roll up a boat and we can throw that boat out. The boat opens up. We can get into the boat. We can open it up, get the engine running, and then we can recover to a larger ship. This was the primary COA. And everybody there, every single senior PJ and combat controller, as a matter of fact, were like, I want on the jump mission because this is going to be the mission of a lifetime. You're telling me they're going to jump in the middle of the ocean, 10-foot rolling seas. We're going to get on this little boat. They're going to hoist us up. Then we're going to care for this dude until we can get him out. That's the thing I want to be on. And then they were like, B team, you're on the helicopters. Well, I was on the B team because I was young. And I happened to be the youngest PJ. So they put me with the one PJ that he was a master sergeant. He was the highest qualification that you could get. They put me with him. So we looked at each other, the helicopter team. We watch our bros take off and we're getting ready to take off in the C-130. They're packing up all their stuff and it looks cool. And we were just deflated. We were like, man, we're going to sit on this helicopter for a 12-hour flight. We're not doing anything. So we're getting ready to take off from Mildenhall. And I look at the guy and his name was Schwartz.
Yeah.
And he looks at me and he goes, dude, you're going. And I was like, what? I was like, what? He was like, ceilings are too low. They're not going to be able to jump. The helicopter can fly underneath it. We're going to have to air refuel a bunch of times. You're going to hoist down in that ship. You need to get your mind right. And I was like, oh, fuck. Because the whole time in mission planning, they were like, the jump mission is the primary COA. Yeah. So I was like, okay. So no kidding. I was out there and I was just reading through my medical book. Like, okay, how am I going to do this? And if this guy needs us to do surgery, there was even a little page that was like battlefield appendectomy. So we prepared for everything. The docs gave us all the antibiotics and we had a way to contact them and do all this other stuff. So we were flying out there, and even on the flight out, we didn't think anything was going to happen. We had one more air refueling over the coast of Ireland as we went northeast off the island of England and then out in the North Sea. And on that last refueling, we started to spill fuel over the windscreen. I think because the probe, the Air Force HH-60, has a refueling probe on it so that we can air refuel. We refueled, well, there's a detente that's supposed to click into place at the end of the probe to stop the fuel from coming out that side. And when you push it in, that's how they put the fuel in, right? Well, that thing didn't move out all the way. So we land in, no kidding, a random farm field in Ireland. Like some sheep and some sheep herder somewhere. We're just like, why is there an airplane up here? So we land, the back ender, the enlisted guy in the back of the aircraft, gets out and, no kidding, Spartan kicks the front of the probe. And you heard clunk. And then the pilot saw the reading, like the pressure go up, and he was like, no, we're good. And then we just got in and took off. And I was like, hold on. We're about to go feet wet. There's absolutely no help for us here. And you're telling me that we just spilled JP8 all over this thing and now suddenly we're good because you kicked it? And the guy goes, no, it happens all the time. I was like, what are you talking about? Well, sure enough, that's what it was. We flew, the ceilings were at 100 feet. Helicopters don't mind flying at 75 feet, 50 feet. So we just bomb out. Couple more refuelings on the way. We'd pop out, meet the tanker, pop back in. And then sure enough, we hoisted down to the moving superstructure of this ship. And I'm hoisted down. They put me down. We did a quick patient assessment on this guy, made sure that he was all good. We put him in our little basket and then they hoisted us right back up. And then we did the same thing in reverse, provided medical treatment. We didn't have to cut him open, thank goodness. So what I largely did there was pain management, make sure he was okay, get him on the monitor, give him some fluids, make him feel better. And then we landed at Shannon Airport and I passed him over to a doctor and he ended up living.
That's awesome.
And that was the whole thing. But I mean, that was, I make a joke about this, but for everything that GWAT was, that was just a random Tuesday in the PJ community. Yeah. Somebody needed help, no other way to get there. We do that.
So that Master Chief, was he like sitting in the brief being like, yeah, you're not going to fucking do Like when they're like, we're gonna jump, we're doing this. He's sitting back like
he didn't say shit until we were on that helicopter, and I think he did.
He was like, "You're not doing it. We're gonna do it."
I was paying attention, but I'm listening to. I mean, it was like a 3-hour brief because we're about to do dangerous stuff, right? Like it's high consequence. If you lose that boat, you're in the middle of the ocean, brother.
Yeah.
Now you're the event. Now we got to figure out how to rescue you.
Yep.
So it was highly professional. It was a long brief. And I'd be lying to you if I'd tell you I was completely locked into that jump brief. Like I was just looking there, I was like, oh great, my friends are gonna jump in and they're gonna take off their dry suits like Jason Bourne.
Yeah.
And it'd be Bond, James Bond at that time, because Jason Bourne didn't exist yet because I'm old. But they're gonna save this guy's life, and then they're eventually gonna get him to care. And I'm gonna have to hear about, oh hey Aaron, how did it look from above the boat? You know, you knew that was gonna happen in the team room. So I mean, I was paying attention, and literally when we're spinning up and we're getting ready to go, it's like, hey, you ready? And I was like, yeah. He's like, you're definitely going in. And he was like, it's my job to stay on here. You're getting hoisted in first, so you're gonna be alone for a little bit until they can get me down there. I was like, hold on. You know when you look for an adult in the room and you realize you're the adult? Yeah. I was like, I need an adult. Is there a smarter PJ that could do this?
Yeah.
And there you go.
That's good shit though. So did they have them kind of waiting there for you guys, like ready to hoist? And you know what I mean? Like, did they at least pre-prep them?
Yeah. Sometimes you can actually land on these boats, but this specific boat, it wouldn't take the weight requirements, which is what drove the hoist in. Because normally, I mean, if you can just land the helicopter in and load them up, super simple.
Good to go.
So the doctor was there, had it, they wheeled him out to us because he was unable to walk. He was in a lot of pain. Like he did have appendicitis. His appendicitis did, it required surgery. It hadn't burst yet, but he was still, I mean, he was in a bad way. Super infection, systemic. It was bad. Like there's some times that I've been on calls, especially as a paramedic, usually on stateside, where I'm like, you didn't need me today. You just wanted to go to the hospital. This guy was not. This guy was sick and he was in a bad way.
Yeah, damn. So you kind of busted your cherry on that first one. That's pretty
cool. I did. Yeah. And it was like that. And that was 6 months out of the pipeline. Actually, I was not ready to deploy, but in that menu of things that I need, I had just so happened I had a bunch of rides on a helicopter and done some hoists, and I was current qualified in medicine. So for that specific thing, I just so happened to be qualified and ready to do it.
That's awesome. So it was kind of like the and also on top of that, what's life living like in England? You get to be
Bro, it was great. I mean, in England, I wouldn't know because I was gone 300 days a year.
Oh, yeah.
I think we did the math. I was in England for 3 years. And I think we did the math, and I was on island for less than 9 months of it. Oh, yeah. I mean, it was just deployment. I spent 6 months at a stretch in Norway one time, doing the Allied Officers Winter Course and then doing this larger exercise that was on the back end of it. And that was the same year as the deployment. The time that I was on England, we were training and doing stuff. But we went to Croatia and did some great work with international SOF teams. The England
was just all over the place then. In Europe, just. And what do you guys do? Like, said you did Norway. What do you guys do in Norway? Like, you're there for 6 months. What do you guys? Will you do training, or are you helping with training, or what's going on with that?
Both. Yeah. So there was a huge exercise called cold response. The cold response exercise is a true Arctic environment. It's above the Arctic Circle. Well, the Norwegians have a rule that unless you graduate their specific course, which is called the Allied Officer Winter Warfare Course, you get certified to take infantry teams out into a true Arctic environment, and you're allowed to stay out for more than 24 hours. So during this huge response, there were like multi-day missions, and our unit was like, well, nobody can be out from the combat controllers would have to sit on a site that they were going to blow up. You'd have to infill over the course of 2 or 3 days, pretending to be a civilian camper to, avoid detection. And then they would call fires in on a simulated radar site. The whole point of this too was to deter Russians from incurring over that area. So it was a little bit of both. It was, joint training. We went up there. That Norwegian winter warfare course was no joke. I mean, it was when we got off the plane, it was -40 Fahrenheit. Fun fact, -40 is where Fahrenheit and Celsius meet up. So it was -40 Celsius and -40 Fahrenheit. So it was super easy. Literally, you would take hot coffee and throw it in there and it would just disappear.
It happens here once in a while.
I had a video of my combat controller in the tent at the time. He's like, let's see if that really works. Yeah. So we get out of the tent, he fires it up. I had an old flip phone video of it, and he would throw it and it just completely disappeared. But working with those guys was great. We did that with a lot of our sister service SOF. The French, the Norwegians, the Gram, the Swiss. The Finnish were great dudes. Those were good guys. The Norwegian Marine Jaeger Commandos are the Tier 1 SEAL equivalent for Norway. Those guys opened up their doors, and we made great friends with those guys, sharing tactics, techniques, and procedures. I worked the Iceland air policing mission. It's the same thing as deterring Russia. Iceland doesn't have a military. Yeah. So in order to stop the Russians from flying their bombers over and incurring on folks, you have to have fighters that fly in that area. Well, basically the world splits time. So America does a couple months, Spain does a couple months, Germany does a couple months, and everybody goes and deploys fighters to make sure that the Russians don't have impunity in the area. I got to do a lot of great work with the Icelandic Coast Guard. Those guys are absolute savages, some of the best helicopter pilots I've ever met, because it's super windy in Iceland. The PJ team actually used to have it was in Reykjavik, but they had a PJ team that lived in Iceland and worked in Iceland.
Oh, no shit, at one point?
Oh,
I've been to Reykjavik. It's awesome.
Yeah,
I've been
yeah.
to Iceland. Yeah.
Reykjavik, and I believe they were in Keflavik. I think Keflavik, Iceland. But we worked between Reykjavik and Keflavik up there before they shut that unit down.
Really?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Man, Air Force, man. It's the way to go. And people, you know, like, I think the irony is the Air Force is the one branch we don't shit on, at least in the Marines.
You can't.
Yeah, we can't.
We're too happy. Are you kidding me? You guys get crap on me from your foxhole, I assume, but I'm too busy looking at my phone because I've got good Wi-Fi in my 5-star hotel.
Exactly.
Crap on me all you want. Be like, oh yeah, you got me.
At not one point, even on my active duty time, we just, because they were amazing. Like, we worked with the Air Force a lot. I'm in Afghanistan. We actually, a good friend of mine who I served with, and he happened to live in Minnesota. We meet up now. He's actually an Air Force officer. Just got off with a squadron command, reserves. And it was just like, they were just great. They were like, hey, you guys want to go to our chow hall? Would you like our MWR? What can we do for you? And it was like, over. Yeah, I know. And I was like, you guys are amazing. I love the Air Force.
Because we don't have that hate that you guys get out in the field all the time. Like we have field exercises, but it ends at the bar, buddy.
I always end up talking with like these guys that are like successful at business. They're like, yeah, you know, I was in the Air Force active duty, and you know, the business was just taking off, and my command was like, you should take some time off to run your business. And I'm like, I can't even get a Friday off with my family. I can't get my leave approved. I got family coming in for 2 days on a Thursday and Friday, and the Marine Corps is losing their ever-loving fucking mind to try to like I just want to go to Waikiki with my family. Right. And they were like, yeah, I don't know if we can swing that.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know, and then like literally the Air Force is like, yeah, you know, my company was taking off, and they just let me have time off so I could run my company. I was like, I love the Air Force. It's awesome.
My favorite joke about the Air Force is the reason that I loved being in the Air Force is it was so close to being in the military. Yeah. It was real close. It wasn't quite. It was pretty close.
I would say it's like civilians with careers, and they throw on a uniform. You know?
100%.
I love it. And they're just like, yeah, we have like opportunities, like everything, you know.
It's like making fun of Elon Musk. Yeah. Okay. You think he cares? He's a trillionaire.
Exactly. Yeah.
We aren't trillionaires, but we got it pretty good, man.
Exactly. So what was the thing when you're working with like it's cool to hear this, the Minnesota has an exchange program. The Missile Guard does, so they have Norway a lot. What's it like working with the tier 1 units? Like what's their mindset? You know, what are they like? We know what ours is. Like guys in the, you know, we hear about it. We have podcasts, all this stuff, but it's crazy to hear sometimes about like the Polish, the Norwegians. Like that we hear about them and they're like, oh man, they're badass, they're fucking awesome. But I hate to say it, what do they do? What do you know? Like, what were you guys talking about? Especially in the GWAT. I mean, shit was popping off. So what was their tier 1 unit like? Like, what do they want to know? What do they offer? What do you guys offer them? Like, yeah.
Brother, I'll tell you what, man, the more that I work with these tier 1 units, and I've worked with our own tier 1 units, I've worked with international SOF teams. I'll tell you the main difference that we have is resource and ability to train. These guys, man, it's like talking to the same person. There's a little bit of a language barrier. I didn't know those guys, but I know those guys. I would have taken them onto my team at any second. Those things, grit, determination, work ethic, intelligence, maturity, emotional maturity, and intelligence, they have all of the same raw materials that we have. We just throw $1 trillion every year at our guys and give them the world to train with. I saw it on a different podcast, I believe it was DJ Shipley talking about it. I'll tell you what, you give the Norwegians the same budget that we have, and they would be on par with our tier 1 units, and it would be a fight right now. Those guys are absolutely the best, especially when you're talking about, there are some countries that have a really small military and a really small budget, so their special operations, even at the highest level, are really small. Yeah. I'll tell you what, man, if you gave them the same resources and support that we had, those guys that are there, you would get along with them immediately. Yeah. It's the same thing. All they want, they love their country. They want to go fight what they perceive to be a negative evil, for lack of a better word, in the world. And those guys are absolute savages. Like, and I want to tell you, know, cold environments and ability to withstand pain and deal with misery, and their selection is no joke. And the things that they can do, you want to talk about ship-borne seizures, brother, you better watch out for them Marine Jaeger commandos because they will murder you on a boat. They are absolute savages. I was so impressed with those guys. The Polish Grom also, some of the best shooters I've ever seen in the world. And I'll tell you what, they don't have all of the niceties that we do. They don't have computer aided training ranges and the best shooter that you've ever seen in your life that they just contract and bring in. They do it largely on their own, and they're still successful and still professional.
Yeah, and that's one thing I have heard is that the aspect they just don't have the money. Like we have an insane amount of money, insane amount of budgets, for almost every single aspect of our military.
And it's not to take away any. I hope that what I just said doesn't take away from how good our tier 1 special operations units are, because they obviously are. All the kudos that they get, and for all the jokes about DevGru versus CAG versus these guys, whatever. It's all nonsense. It's all nonsense, right? And it's not to take anything away from them, but that's the remarkable difference between like our comparative special operations branches. When we brought those guys in our formation, we're like, hey, we're going to do some Air Force stuff today, and this is how we handle problems. Man, they would watch one go, and they'd be like, oh, this is how you do it, and then they would do it exactly. You couldn't tell the difference. If I put an American flag on them, you would just be like, oh, wow, the bigger guy that's allowed to have a beard is just as good as the younger guy that doesn't have a beard. You'd be like, that guy's not American. Yeah, that's the level of professional.
They're just on it.
They're just great. Yeah. And again, especially when we're talking about assessment selection and looking for the right people, all the raw materials are the same. It's like the Supreme Court decision where they said, I can't define what porn is to you, but when I see it, I know. It's the same thing. I can't define what makes a special operator. We've tested people's genes and looked at blood markers and changed selection a bunch of times and played around with a bunch of different stuff. There's still no way to predict it. The 5'6", 135-pound guy gets selected, and the 6'2" Division I athlete at 210 pounds of ripped muscle quits on day 3. So what the heck happened here? No clue. Something in that magic that makes the 5'6" guy succeed, that exists everywhere in the world. And all of those personality types are attracted to the special operations world. And then some of those people just take it one level higher. Yeah. And those guys are just one level higher.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. That's cool to hear. Yeah, especially like you said, we worked with the French Foreign Legion. I mean, obviously they're not like they're pretty hard.
Those are so wild, dude.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're good dudes. But like you hear the one thing I have heard, now I don't know how true this is. I've heard the other foreign militaries, like their selections are buck wild.
They're
like
insane.
Like there's no safety.
No.
Or like that's one thing is like, there's always like you did assessment selection or cadres and everything. There is a very strategic like timing, and it may look like chaos, but you have to do this, you have to do this.
There were certain things that I would have to say at certain points of selection events because all of it is backed by science and data. Yeah. Because we have the money and the logistics to put a bunch of money into studies. The other guys are just like, well, we know what you're going to have to go do, and I've done it, so let's go.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all scheduled, and it's this and that. I've heard some of those guys, like some of them are just like, this is even, I don't even know how you do it. You got
to talk. I'm going to hook you up with my boy Troy Knight. Yeah. Troy Knight was actually one of the first Australian combat controllers. Okay. He's awesome, and he kind of does what we do, like the same sort of thing he wants to tell people about being a combat controller in Australia. Yeah, fantastic dude. Yeah. He comes out to Vegas often. He states, "I'm going to hook him up with you." Okay. He is awesome to talk to about Australian special operations.
Speaking of that, there was a documentary on YouTube. It was run by the Australian media, whatever, but it was Australian. And I don't know if it was SASR. Yeah. And it was a documentary. It was like, it's kind of like Surviving the Cut. Yeah. Like, and one of the things they do, and this was years ago now. I mean, this probably would have been mid 2000 video, maybe early 2010s, maybe. And one of their things was they stripped the dudes down naked, and then they have a female walk through and like assess them medically. And I was like, I saw that, and I was like, that in itself is like.
Can you imagine the EO complaints? Oh,
that's what I thought.
God.
I was like, yeah, we're gonna put you naked in front of this woman, and she's gonna medically assess you.
And really, she's shaming him.
Yeah. And she's just going like up and down, and I'm like, dude, the psychology behind that. And you're just, and it was like they're basically their first event. It was like, oh no, we're just prepping. We haven't even started selection yet. That's where they started. Yeah. And I remember watching it being like, oh my God. And that's just Australia. I was always like, what do the French do? Like, what do the Norwegians do? What do the Polish do? You know what I mean? Like,
those boys are wild.
Yeah. Man. You hear, or even like the British SAS, like some of the stories that come out of them, and you're like, dude, how many of this is legal? Like,
how much do you know about the SBS, the special boat
Not
service?
A ton. I know of them. I know of the SBS, but I don't, everyone, it's kind of like, everyone knows about Navy SEALs. SAS is like the popular brand. I know of the SBS, but I don't know much other than that.
You want to know the best quote? And this is for your own, just pull this string on the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I had, we worked with some guys from the SBS, a couple of jumps. So here and there, never worked with them operationally, never did a whole bunch of training with them, but a couple jumps here. And one of the commanders pulled me aside and he goes, hey, you know how it works in England? I was like, no, what's up, man? He goes, if you heard about it, it's the SAS. If you never heard about it, it was us.
Yeah.
And I was like, you
that.
won me. You got me.
You got me.
You got me.
Now I got to start like Googling.
You got exactly. Yeah, you're like, oh, wait a second.
Yeah,
wait
special boat service. Yeah,
Yeah.
because they're the Marines, right? Yeah, it's the Marines or
Yeah.
whatever, the Royal Marines.
The
Maritime Marines.
yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah, that's crazy. So was there any time when you were in England or even doing that sticks out? You got that rescue, the training. Is there anything else that sticks out to you that's like, man, that was something that I just won't forget? Like so you were in Croatia.
Yeah.
You know, any emergencies that you respond to, like big disasters or, you know,
I'm trying. So
we'll get into the combat stuff, but you know, like
nothing crazy outside of there. I would say like those JSATs, those joint combined exercises and training. I think those were great just because you could see that there were different levels. You made some great inroads with people that you would end up seeing down. I saw one of those guys downrange years later at a place, and it was like you were old friends again. You know, those. This is a personal opinion of mine. I'm an America only sort of guy. I don't think we need any allies. If we wanted to, we're the gorilla in the room. If you don't want to support us, fine, we can do it. You don't want to let us use your base? Okay, tight. We'll just fly our bombers from Whiteman on a 36-hour mission and then clack off your entire country and be home by next time dinner. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I'll tell you what, it is valuable to have those connections and to have people that align with you ideologically, regardless of the flag that you want to wear.
Yeah.
I think those things for me were the biggest thing I learned is having all of those touch points among our nation partners and our national allies. It was really impressive to see.
That's pretty cool. Well, so like say you say that now is like as we're getting older, but you see it like in the movies or video games. Like I know you from 10 years ago. Like in the storyline, now we're all older and we actually have that. Sometimes I look back on it now. I'm like, that's kind of weird. My wife's asked me, especially with Ukraine and all the current events and expanding that bubble.
Yeah.
And I'm like. She's like, could you do some of these stuff? I was like, I mean, I'm not Jason Bourne,
right?
But I was like,
but neither are those guys.
Or I know something like rescues. Like think about rescues. How popular are not popular, but how more in the conscious of rescues are. Like so, something happens in Africa and wherever. I could probably call enough people to do a rescue,
right?
Like to do a legitimate like movie Hollywood rescue. Not not to be like bragging, but like you could do it. Like you probably could be like, hey, my brother, something's happened. You could figure something out.
It's every single old operator or old warfighters thing.
Yeah.
Remember there was the Netflix movie with Ben Affleck where they get the team together and
go Triple Frontier.
Brother, I got 5 friends on speed dial right now, and my friends could kill your friends. So let's go ahead. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Listen, the gear may be on the shelf.
Yeah.
But that part of me isn't dead. So maybe we got to pull the go bag down. Everyone, like that's every guy's dream. Like one last heist with the boys.
Exactly. Yeah. It's always funny too because especially after Ukraine, I know if guys they'd be like, oh, they're like, where'd you get the weapons from? I was like, oh, I could do that now.
Yeah. No, actually. Oh, you don't have a guy? I got a guy.
Yeah.
I got a guy. Yeah. Well, what do you need? What? Yeah. Hold on.
Yeah. Let me
throw a quick text.
Let me give Ryan a text.
Hey man, let me hit signal. Hey man, where you at?
Yeah, it was the guy.
If it's good enough for Hegseth, it's good enough for us.
Yeah, exactly.
Hit him up on Signal.
Yeah, and that's the Jags, right? And I was talking to Ryan when we were in Ukraine a few days before we left. I was like, "What could you get us here?" And he's like, "I was like, can you get it?" He's like, "Dude, PKMs? I get you PKMs, I was like, RPGs all day long." And you just because they just sell it, you can buy them.
Right.
It's amazing. And then I was like, "Well, I love that." And I was like, "Can you give me a javelin?" He's like, "Yeah, it's pretty tough these days."
Listen, I'm qualified. Does that matter?
They're a little bit more serialized. The U.S., this was also like 2 years into the war. So this was 2024. So he goes, by this point, they're kind of tracking them a bit more. It wasn't like month 1 where he was just like, he was shooting them like candy, you know.
Right.
But anyways, so it's kind of like talking with those guys, like you say, you establish those relationships. It's always cool. Like, I know a guy in Norway.
I actually do know a guy, right? Yeah.
Exactly,
I mean, during the entire HKIA evacuation, like there were group chats that would just blow up. You get added to this random group chat with like 40 people. It's like, hey, I need to know a guy that's here. And you'd see 15 responses be like, well, I know a guy that's here and I know a guy that's here and I can get you to here. And one guy would be like, dude, I'm texting that guy right now. Like it is what it is. Like those relationships are valuable.
Yeah, same. I mean, we had the same HK. I was a grunt dude, but it was like we all got thrown into chats. We're like, oh shit, okay, let's work these. And that kind of, we can talk about that later, but that definitely blew those gates open a little bit more when it comes to that type of community.
What a terrible choice of words there. Blew the gates open?
Oh, now I think about it. Yeah, that's terrible. Not what I probably should
say. Sheesh.
No, but that whole situation was like, but that also opened the doors. There we go. Open the doors for like Ukraine when that kicked off. But so when you're doing like that was your first assignment then. So when do you eventually so we start talking like when was your first deployment and what is a PJ like? What are you doing when you go on deployments? Because you have your CCTs, your JTACs, and by the way, what is the difference between JTAC, TACP, CCT? PJ I kind of get, but what's the other? Because PJ you guys are doing rescues, you're more medical based. But what is the difference between CCT, the TACP, and and how do you guys assess out your jobs?
Easiest way to think about it, PJs are problem solvers. Medicine is a large part of our thing and something, especially when you talk about mass casualty, it's something that we hang our hat on. Because if you think about it, aircraft have a lot of people on them. We're the guys that get aircraft. You might have to treat a whole bunch of people. We work in really small teams, like typically 6 men. So if you have 20 casualties, you only have 2 medics. That's a pretty big deal. So we focus heavily on that. But we're the problem solvers for everything. Are you trapped? Are you lost? Are you at the top of a mountain? Are you under the water? We can solve that problem. We can fix it out. Are you in a confined space that nobody else can get into and the air quality might be bad? We got you. Like we'd like to think of ourselves as high-level problem solvers, jack of all trades, but a master of none is better than a master of one. Jack of all trades is actually one of the unofficial career field mottos. We're a jack of all trades. So we have the full suite of operations there. Combat controllers, their actual first mission, everybody attaches them to JTAC because of their performance in GWAT. But combat controllers, their job is actually to make an airfield out of one that didn't exist beforehand. So not only can they call fires in, but their primary mission set is actually finding, certifying, and qualifying an airstrip, something that didn't exist, whether that's a highway in the middle of nowhere, an unimproved airfield that hasn't been used in a long time, anything, to include like moving things out of the way or blowing trees up. They can call in the aircraft like an air traffic controller. They can actually manage the entire air picture from the ground until space, which is at about 50,000 feet. And they can manage the entire aircraft picture like you're setting up an air control tower where one didn't exist. That's why their motto is first there. So everywhere where you see like, oh, these planes are landing for the first time, somebody was on the ground calling those planes in, and that's a combat controller. That's what they do for the larger force. Airfield seizure, airfield establishment, and then they get the certification of JTAC. So all that is, not anybody can be a JTAC, but you can get the JTAC certification in many different career fields. That's an additional piece that they bring to the fight. Precision, gold standard, terminal attack and fires. So that's a combat controller. They're focused towards SOF. So they're meant to attach to other high-risk SOF teams. If you give a SOF team, and I'm, the SEALs, the Rangers, for a long time in GWAT, you were not allowed to go outside of the wire without a combat controller attached to your team and a pararescue team that was staring directly at your team, ready to help you if something happened. Typically, those pararescue teams were from HAFSOC, because if you work for SOCOM, you're focused on a specific team usually. The rescue side, when you're in the ACC, that's where that box is that we're talking about. Hey, there's 6 teams that are in this box. They're all doing a thing. If any one of them calls us or an aircraft goes down or some disaster happens, we're going to respond to that because that's inside of our AO. Usually on the STS, AFSOC side of the house, pararescue and combat control work in tandem to give a force multiplier enabler function to a specific team. TACP are focused on the conventional army. So TACP also works inside of Air Combat Command. They don't have the airfield seizure capability, but what they can do is provide air-to-ground integration from an air-minded USAF mindset in order to also bring terminal attack and fires in support of larger conventional forces. So if you're thinking about the LSCO, large-scale combat operations, if you're talking about moving an entire brigade, like an armored brigade across somewhere, and you need to have joint integrated fires, TACP is the career field for you, right? Now, some very small portion of TACP do work for AFSOC. That requires a separate selection and vetting process, and then they'll work at the 2 series unit or even all the way up to the tier 1 units, at least in history. Some of that is in question for if those spots are going to remain for right now. But that's kind of the difference between the 3 main food groups. Combat rescue officers they're not pararescue officers. It's not the same as a SEAL. They're separate career fields, but they work in tandem with the enlisted force. Special tactics officers are largely the same as combat controllers. They're training pipeline and currency qualifications, and then what they bring to the fight is largely the same. So that's like the main food groups for Air Force Special Operations.
Sounds good. Because I was always curious, like, what is the difference in, like, I imagine it's training, TACP, it's kind of like a level, if you would say TACP, CCT, PJ. When it comes to trainings, like if you're...
It's who's getting the force, right? Like if you're training, and you look at PJ and combat control, we can attach to any team under the sun from the tippity top all the way down in any SOF, right? So we need to be able to do all the things that they can do. All the advanced deployment, gold standard medicine on par with the people that they are. When I attach to a special forces team, I'm not their medic. I'm their technical rescue specialist. Now that's not to say if a medical problem is happening, I'm not gonna hook into the 18 Delta and help them out, or especially if there's a mass casualty. Now it's time to get your medic face on and go do it. But we're there for other things. That technical rescue specialty, always with a mind towards what the Air Force can provide. Because even the best Green Beret, MARSOC Raider, Navy SEAL, they know what the Navy can provide to them, but we bring that Air Force piece into it and be like, hey, we can fix this problem. There's a million different things that we know, and we speak the language, and we can provide that to your force. Combat Control Pararescue are focused towards that special operations contingent, providing forces to SOCOM. TACP provides our forces to the regular Army for the infantry.
Okay. That's kind of like the big difference then. So
and they live and breathe with the Army. When these guys are attached to those guys for 9 months at a time. Spin up 9, 10, 12-month deployment. They're living and breathing with the Army, living in their spaces, working with them day to day, training day to day. TACP is the one that provides that air-minded joint terminal air control, joint terminal attack control to the Army, conventional.
So if you want a really good life, TACP.
Those boys get after it.
Or CC or whatever.
I'm being as nice as I possibly can because I've been, like everybody right now. There's a little drama inside the community, and everybody's like, "Oh, Aaron, you just hate TACPs." I love TACPs, but there's some people that just aren't doing the right thing right now, and I got to call them out. But TACPs are great. I have a bunch of friends that are TACPs. We love them. We love that. I love you, TACPs. You do a great job. Okay, jeez.
Yeah, no, it's cool to see like because even like we all thought about like, man, Air Force is great, but what do they offer? Like as a Marine, it's like, what do they offer? How can I get into combat? What's my thing? Right.
I had probably one of the best compliments that I ever got. I had a serious injury. I talked about it on the Vanguard Wall podcast, and I had to go back to launch school for a bunch of different stuff in order to become, get qualified to be a PJ again. There was a bunch of medical gates I needed to make. And the Bravo Squadron commander from the Army Tier 1 unit was there, and we were out eating dinner, and he was like, Aaron, I love having you guys at the table. Because sometimes there's a problem I can't fix, and I'll just look at the PJ, and he's already got me a 90% solution. You guys are highly valuable in a ton of different things. Remember Ken Jennings is familiar. Well, he's like the guy that killed Jeopardy. They actually had to tell him to stop coming on. And he would tell you, he's like, I'm not smart at any one thing, but I'm pretty smart at a whole bunch of different things, and that's how he was so successful. That's what I like to think of as your PJ. We're not going to be the best sprinter. PJs are not the world example for the best medics. I'll tell you that right now. The Ranger medics, first bat, they went for some ridiculous 9-year period in GWOT where they didn't lose a single casualty that they said they could save. Those dudes are awesome. They focus on medicine. They're a master at medicine. I'm not going to say that PJs as a whole are better than Ranger medics or 18 Deltas. That's a fool's errand to start comparing them. But we're super freaking good. I'll tell you, like the 18 Delta guys, they'll bag on me like, oh, you guys don't even know clinical medicine or whatever else. Those guys did still ask for help when they needed a patient treated, and they couldn't though. And the Green Berets did know who to call if they needed rescued because they were in some sort of weird position. So that is a real thing.
No, it's cool. Like I said, it's cool to know the options that are there. Like I said, I think about that too because some guys are like, "Oh man, Air Force." I was like, "Yeah, dude." I was like, "If you would CCT, PJs, and TACP," I was like, "Get after it, man. You live that good life, that Air Force lifestyle. They give you all the money, all the
show
cool
up,
guns.
Smelling good, looking nice,
can drop some
hair is
bombs.
nice, expensive equipment. Nothing touches this body but crying Arc'teryx, baby. Don't you dead bird gang? Don't you ever bring that Beyond up in my face? I'm kidding. Beyond.
I remember seeing the CCT or JTACs. We called them JTACs, but they were Air Force. So I'm sure they were CCTs or TACPs. But I remember seeing once in a while I see them at the there's a call. It was FOB tour in Afghanistan. I don't know if you remember. But I was attached to 10th Group Special Forces as a Marine. And I remember going to the French Chal because it was a French base. It was wild. Like I tell people, it's like, dude, RC East or that whole, it's like that NATO ISAF was nuts. And so I was going into the French Chow Hall and I saw a dude in cries. And I'm like, that motherfucker's Air Force.
You son of a... looking crispy, not even like, dirty.
It was like he had long hair, he had beard, and I saw like some of the patches. I was like, I know he's not Green Beret. Because like, I'm working with that team, and those guys are still running these like shitty ACUs. You know, this guy's got some clean, or just good looking cries, multicam.
We send our stuff away to a laundry service. You guys just don't even wash them.
Yeah, no, we just like, that's it, man. We got to keep wearing it. Yeah, we don't wash stuff for 7 months, but but no, it's cool to hear that because as like again, I'm from the Marine Corps. I'm like, what else is out there that's a better life, but you can do some really cool shit. So that's how I was kind of with Air Force. I think it's a cool route. So what was your you're going in? You're in England. What is your first deployment? How do you go into the combat side of house?
Yeah, so you're working. So first deployment, got tuned up, went to Iraq. It was in support of the task force, so it was in support of the Tier 1 unit.
Okay.
At this time in GWAT, we were spread thin.
What year was this? Sorry.
So 2010.
Okay,
So
Iraq 2010.
Iraq 2010. Went to a location just north of Baghdad in support of that task force. We used to do a thing, it was called the torch rotation. We were spread so thin, 3 theaters of active combat: Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Mogadishu. There was a lot of things going on in the world. So what the Tier 1 unit did is they basically would invite everybody up for a tryout to fill out these rescue teams that were going to go be put from the AFSOC side of the house. The 2 series and then the overseas units would send their folks. You would go through a train up, but it was really a tryout. You would get selected or non-selected at the end of it to go on that deployment. And I ended up going to Iraq on a small rescue team. So it was a combat rescue officer, which was our team leader, which is super weird. Our team leaders, unlike the other services, because the Air Force just refuses to adhere to other people's language, like our staff sergeants are E5s, not E6s, and whatever else. Team leaders inside of our community are your enlisted big dog. Like that is the PJ1, right? Our PJ1 happened to be an officer that had just gotten out of the OTC at his Tier 1 unit. So it was weird to have an officer that you called a team leader, but that's what it was.
Oh, okay.
So it was myself, another PJ, a combat controller, and then this team leader, and then we had a Ranger security force. And we deployed for that AFSOC mission, which was high-risk teams that were going out to do high-risk missions, and we would support them directly. So regular Air Force aircraft, we would position, and if anything went wrong at all on their mission, we would respond to them specifically. Okay. So we knew who was working, what time they went on target, monitoring radio traffic and making sure that they were okay and ready to go, and then ready to respond to anything that would happen.
How kinetic was that in 2010? Because I'm thinking timeframes.
It was such a wild time in Iraq. So during this time, we actually got stood down from operations for like a month during this time. There was this weird thing where you'd have to talk to the Iraqi ministry, like no kidding, the government of Iraq, and be like, this is the guy we want to go after. And there would be like a 2-day delay where they would approve or disapprove your mission. And as soon as that process happened and that was new, oddly enough, we started showing up to a bunch of dry holes. And you were like, okay, I get this game. There was an operation that was different. It was somewhere else in the country. It wasn't an Air Force team. It was either an Army or a Marine team. They showed up on target. They got into a gunfight. And then the PSYOP machine for Iraq started working. And suddenly the people that showed up with AKs and were trying to shoot helicopters down were just innocent civilians. And the American overlords, the colonizers that we are, killed all these innocent civilians. That obviously wasn't the thing, but there was a lot of backside, high-level political posturing that was going on. And that turned us off for a month. So kinetically, I wish I could tell you I had a sweet mission on there. I didn't.
Well, it's crazy to see that even at your guys' level, it like the bullshit still came down. You know, because we dealt with that stuff earlier on. You know, so that's why I was wondering, because I know that was like almost the year before Iraq shut down, or you know, they ended it. So it's like everyone was shifted gears over to Afghanistan, but it's cool to hear or see what you guys were doing in Iraq in 2010. But
we were busy from a support perspective. Like, man, I mean, we were every single night, we were on the hook every single night, every single battle rhythm, flying to Mosul. There were a bunch of clearing operations. You know, there was great stuff, but luckily nobody needed our help. And that's a weird thing about the pararescue community, is that every mission that pararescue goes on started with a tragic event where somebody probably lost their life. Everything from Jessica Lynch, the famous picture of that person handing Jessica Lynch a flag and saying, hey, I'm an American too. That was actually a legend in the career field, a little T-Dog. That was a pararescue. So those things, it's largely luck, and it's usually bad luck that drives our involvement. Yeah.
So is there anything that sticks out to you then, that first point?
So there were a couple of events. It was more bad luck. The one that I remember the most is a Little Bird pilot was turning his aircraft on and going through his pre-flight checks and accidentally clacked off one of his rockets that punched through
160th guy?
a HESCO. Well, yeah. The end of this story, to Tarantino it a little bit, is that guy was at home getting fired from that organization less than 72 hours later. So God, that sucks. They were pretty serious. But that raised our heart rate because there was a huge explosion where there was no explosion that was supposed to be. And we responded to that only to run up. And it was funny because the other PJ, beat me out there. I went and got the med bag because we were thinking base attack or helicopter crash. Just prior to that deployment, there was actually a 47 that had an issue on takeoff and rolled over, and it was a huge mass casualty. One of my friends from the same unit I worked with actually responded to that. So that was in the back of our head. I'm grabbing everybody in the mass casualty kit and grabbing the Rangers. And then we sprint out to where we think this happened, and there's a Little Bird and it's turning. it's loud, and I look at my friend, like I go to the other side of the aircraft because he's already over here, and I was trying to orient to what was going on. So I go over and through the little bird, which is like this far apart. I was like, what happened? And he just goes, kind of like shook his head, and the pilot just has his head down, and I just couldn't figure it out. And the pilot like punches his stuff and spins it down. He hit the wrong button. It punched through a HESCO. The specific rocket didn't arm until a certain G-force was acquired. So it punches through, the rocket's still firing, and then it skips out and it blows up, and that's the explosion that we heard, was the rocket detonating basically in the center of the airfield.
Oh, jeez.
Not a good day.
Not a good day,
Not
man.
a good day.
Oh, dude.
One button ended your career, my friend.
One button that you would think there'd be like one or two, at least.
You think it had to
I'm
be
turning it on, like, whoop, oh shit.
I'm not a little bird pilot, but I assume it's harder to fire a rocket than bumping something with your elbow, but apparently it ain't that hard.
Wow, yeah. I wonder if they went back and then like the command fires them, then they're like, we got to fix that button. Like, you know?
The other one from that time was just every single day. They called it Mortaritaville because every single day I'm talking like 10 or 12 incoming.
Okay,
like C-rams going off at all, to the point where it just didn't even phase us anymore. Probably the funniest story I have from that deployment is we would go out. My job was to show up. We were night dwellers. Like we always worked during the night. So you wake up at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You'd get your dinner in. You'd get going. There was an initial air mission brief, and then it was my job to take the Rangers, and we would do 2 hours of flat range and 2 hours of CQC every night. And that was my job. And then the command, so the commander of the team, that team leader, and the JTAC would stay on, and they would get all the packets, they would get all the products. ISR would get up. Vic would get all of his firing stuff in, and like, hey, if we need to call fires, here's my preset firing stuff. And they would come meet us out afterwards. So we're shooting, and we just didn't even respect the incoming at that point. You got really good at hearing which C-RAM would fire off, and you'd be like, that one wasn't even close.
Yeah.
Everybody else on base, however, was for real playing the game. So when the sound went off, you were supposed to like stop what you're doing, run into the bunkers, cower, and then wait. And we were just over it at this point. So we were shooting, the far C-RAM went off, and we were the only people on the range. Like there was an Indian guy, oddly enough, his name was Baloo, like from the Jungle Book.
Yeah.
So he's out there. He would just let us do whatever we want. He was like, as long as you guys are here and no one else is here, like we could walk lanes. Like guys would be shooting next to you and you could walk a lane and do whatever. Like he would let us do that because he's like, you guys are good. Everybody else, that was a no-go. But we just continued to shoot our course of fire. I was like, hey man, this is no different. Pistol for an hour, rifle for an hour, then we're going to go to the shoot house. Well, the phone rings and Blue's like, it's for you. And I was like, hello? Dude is just super pissed. He's like, I could hear you shooting, because the range sat right next to the big jock. They made this huge building that was like super air conditioned, screens up everywhere, you could see everything. He's like, who is this? And I was like, it's Aaron. There you go. Because you're supposed to be undercover. You're not supposed to be shooting, whatever. And I was like, all right, tight. He's like, who are you with? And I was like, Task Force White. I hung the phone up. Not the move. We were done anyway. Like we were leaving. Well, I was betting on the fact that they didn't know to call where we sat. You had to call it was like a green line to a red line to a scampy line. And unless you knew all the buttons to push to actually call our phone, you were good. Well, it turned out that was like the OPSO from the JSOC Tier 1 unit. Yeah. And he got my team leader on the phone. And when I got in, he was like, hey, Aaron, did you shoot last night when you were supposed to be not shooting? And I looked at him, I was like, did you... Depends. Did you get a call? And he was like, I sure did. I was like, all right, sorry, man. He was like, He was like, don't do that again. I got yelled at. I was like, okay, cool.
I got yelled at. Yeah. That's quite, so you guys, how long were you guys doing that for? What's your
those deployments were 6 months. It was a little bit longer. So 6 month deployment. And then, some stuff that almost went terribly bad, but it got good. But CSAR is come sit and relax. Yeah. That's what that stands for. So if nothing happens, that's the best part of it.
Yeah. So what do you do then when you guys get back from that? What's your operation tempo? So that's 2010 into 11 then, or what do you?
Yeah, so the summer of 2010. So got back late in 2010, and then I was hot for orders. So I got back off of that. Well, there was the year of the injury, so that was 2010 into 2011, and then I was getting back and getting qualified and all that stuff. So I was off status for 6 months, 8 months, and then I ended up getting orders and then going directly to the 58th Rescue Squadron. So change of commands, going from AFSOC to the Air Combat Command in Las Vegas, Nevada. The 58th Rescue Squadron no longer exists. They just decommissioned it. They took, remember I said there were the big three? Yeah. So they basically took all the men, equipment, and support between the 58th, and they made an East Coast Squadron and a West Coast Squadron.
So it's just two now. Yeah.
They kept Moody that's the 38th Rescue Squadron, and they kept Davis Monthan, which is in Arizona. So they split those two between those, and that just happened last summer. Was the 58th is no longer a thing. But that's where I went for the next it was supposed to be a 4-year tour. I ended up getting orders out of that one quick, but I got 3 deployments out of that one, almost a 4th. So it was off to the races, deployed every single year.
Yeah. So what was your first deployment there? Like
That was to Africa.
Yeah.
So went to the Horn of Africa.
How was that?
Good time.
Good time.
Good time. lots of fun. So Camp Lemonnier Djibouti in the Horn of Africa. A lot of training, not a lot of missions, not a lot of stuff going on, but it was really good because I got to see a completely different side of it. The rescue mission in and of itself has its own challenges. We did a ton of training with partner forces on base to include our Djiboutian counterparts and Kenyan counterparts, where we folded in with kind of like the SEAL teams and some of the other Raider teams that, well, before the Raiders, but some of the Marine teams that were doing the FID mission, Foreign Internal Defense. We, of course, held alert for everything that was going on in the Horn of Africa. And then we had the distinct privilege of being there. That was during the second 9/11 where Benghazi happened. So we were just down the road with Benghazi happened. Really? Well, that started a chain of events to where if we thought that this would spread to other embassies, if this was going to be a larger continent problem, we actually had to come up with tactics, techniques, and procedures for small teams to actually get somewhere. One of the main pararescue food groups as well, which is a cool thing that people don't know, is we do non-combatant evacuation operations. So American civilians, diplomats, people that America has allied interests with, if something happens in one of those, we're one of the main forces that's qualified to go in there and assist the Department of State in the evacuation. So like in Beirut, in Benghazi, in those different places where we live. So a lot of finding people that are off in the woods and collapsing them back to the embassy. And if we were going to respond, because there was a month period there where we're like, hey, this could be a really big deal. Like this could start spreading. If they use the same playbook from Benghazi and just applied it to Kenya or these other places where we have embassies, it was a really big deal.
Do you know, I mean, sometimes it comes back, I don't do you know kind of what happened in Benghazi? Like, do you have enough, some guys in the community that know? I mean, like, speak in vagueness. It's been a long time since like I've tracked the story. Like, obviously I remember the movie, stuff that was around. I was actually in Afghanistan when it happened. So we were all getting spun up. Right. Where like they didn't know if they're going to send some of our guys over. Obviously we were contractors. I was working for quote unquote Blackwater.
Right. Yeah.
Academi IDS, what do they want to call themselves?
Eric Prince, whatever he's called.
Yeah. So so everyone's like, oh my God, what's going on? And it was obviously contractors that were involved. When you guys got that word, what was, can you speak on it at all? Or, like,
I don't have any inside information to it, but
or what was your guys' view of it, what was unfolding?
It was a remarkable diplomatic failure that rests solely with the Secretary of State at the time. It rests solely with the people that were in it. Like, I don't even need to say the name, but let's just say that she's got 62 people in her immediate circle, which is mysteriously committed suicide over the course of her career. Other conspiratorial stuff aside, it was just a remarkable failure in support and being able to flow the people there that could fix the problem and taking too long to do it. And it put those gentlemen, the 6 contractors in question in an absolute terrible scenario. We lost an ambassador in that event. It was just a remarkable failure. And from us watching it very close, like I was watching this develop on Merc screens. So
I was going to say, you guys probably had ISR.
We were watching it in real time as this went on. Not to the level of sitting in the jock watching the ISR screens, but we were innately aware because they were like, hey, we might have to go to this thing. And you guys are really the closest people to it that we could spin up and get down there. There were other teams, they called them the SIF at the time, the Commanders in Extremist Force. Those guys showed up and came to our compound, and they were getting ready to blow out too, and there was the possibility that we were going to put people extra PJ. They already had a PJ with them. That's a cool thing that from that 321st mission, their primary force enabler posture was actually to those teams in Germany. So I spent a lot of time in Germany supporting, not me directly supporting those teams, but with the unit supporting that team.
It's kind of curious, like you said, you guys are in the area, like what people thought, or like, I'd almost have to dive back into it again because it's such a vague memory now of like some of the details.
It will make you so furiously angry. Even just seeing the reports and the after actions, it's one of those things that you read and be like, oh, okay, well, we just failed to fix this problem, and it's disgusting is like the only word that I can use.
Yeah. Like I said, we was like from our end in Afghanistan, they were like, we just lost diplomat, which is our job as contractors. It was like, how do you lose them? That's what we were like from our end. And then, obviously situations are different, but at the same point, you're like, dude, what the fuck's going on over there? And so I remember waking up to that. So then when you guys were working in Africa, so that like, so it wasn't crazy. Is there any rescues you guys did that were?
Yeah, we actually went over. So Yemen is right across the Gulf of Aden. There were actually some really, really bad burn patients from an IED that happened over there, and then we had to get them back to the larger medical structure in Djibouti and then fly them out. We sent our young PJs in support of those things. Actually had a great young PJ. So they're 2 patients, high level medical team working from the Army. They can turn the back of the C-130 into a surgical suite. They're absolutely fantastic. Mm-hmm. They had one patient that they were like, this guy's really critical. We're going to focus on this patient. Hey, PJ dude, we're focus on this guy. We think he's okay. And about halfway through the flight, the young PJ starts going, guys, this is actually the critical patient, was performing life-saving care on this patient and ended up stopping the dying from happening long enough to get the surgeons to focus on him. Did amazing work. That they both ended up living. That was a great support that we did. Probably my funniest story from that is, every once in a while our communication suites are awesome, sometimes you lose link with one of our unmanned platforms, and sometimes those platforms have weapons on them. Mm-hmm. And if those things just crash into the ocean, we have to go get them. Mm-hmm. We were lucky enough to not have to go get them, but when they would lose link, probably the funniest thing that I saw anybody from the team do is, these guys fly these things from a trailer.
Yeah.
Like the pilots are flying from a trailer. Well, the PJ's job is to go get the pilot, right? Yeah. So we realized we lost link. One of the young J's just sprinted over and was like, he's like, are you okay? Because you got to get the pilot of the aircraft, right?
Yeah.
That's not really a save, but it was funny. And we would give him crap about it. Be like, our guy made sure the pilot of that aircraft was okay. But that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no.
Just think about it.
Yeah. We had I was advanced static. We were doing for Blackwater Z services, and we were on a CIA black site in Pakistan. They had the drone or the same thing.
RPA pilot.
Yeah. They were contractors too, though. But we'd go in. They were like, "You guys want to check it out?" We're like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, cool." And then we got to fly it a little bit. It's funny. Like you pull back the curtain, you're just like, "This is ridiculous."
Yeah, it's a video game. Might as well be an Xbox controller.
Or you're just like, "Who's running our kind of like think we're some like elite disciplined warfighters, like just some dipshits behind us."
27-year-old
fun.
kid. Yeah. Hey, think I could do a barrel roll?
Yeah. My buddy was on that contract for 6 years. I jumped over to Whips after that, but he's like, "Yeah, man." They're like, I think there was one incident. They claimed it was a shoot down. He goes, "No, dude. They forget that they just run out of fuel.
Right.
They just run out of fuel and they lawn dart them."
Yeah.
And he's like, one became an international incident. He's like, they just fucking ran out of fuel. They just didn't want to admit it. It's just like, he's like, I was there.
Well, on that Iraq deployment, we had one of the agency birds that went down. And the problem was that it was loaded with bombs. Mm-hmm. And that, just to speak to the bureaucracy of the military, and sometimes even our own, sometimes it be your own people. Even sometimes our folks, our own people in the Air Force don't know what we do well enough. Mm-hmm. We had one of those birds that went down with like a 500-pounder on it, literally right outside of base. We saw it happen on our ISR. We were calling, because in our stock, we had the Special Tactics Operations Center, or the JOC, whatever you want to call it. We saw it go down. We saw the Merc chatter go off, and we were like, dude, we can be spun up in 6 minutes. We had just done training. Part of our job is to get it's personnel recovery encompasses sensitive equipment as the same as it does a person. Yeah. And we were loaded, ready to go. We had just done, no kidding, went over to the boneyard. We had cut one of these things apart. We knew exactly how to do it. And some of the stuff is really dangerous. Mm-hmm. The pods have something called beryllium in it. It's extremely carcinogenic. Like you have to wrap it in plastic and like no kidding, like floor wax. You have to coat that in floor wax and then wrap it up in plastic so that it doesn't actually hurt you. There's entire Tyvek suits that you have to wear when you're cutting some of this stuff. Oh yeah, because you cut some of that really lightweight composite material apart and it gets anywhere in your lungs, you're getting turbo cancer, bro. Mm. Super turbo cancer. So we had just trained on all this and we were ready to go. We watched it happen. And we no kidding went to the JOC, and I'll never forget. I know this guy's name, but I don't want to put it out there because like a Spartan, I hope he's forgotten. But he no kidding looked at us, and our mission commander, who was a major, went into the room and was like, we can take off in 8 minutes. We've got a combat controller. If we can't cut it apart, we can blow it in place. We can have this done. No problem. You guys got civilians coming to the area. They are going to start playing around this 500-pound bomb. This is about to be a serious problem. You should launch this right now. And the Air Force guy that was in charge of the helicopters literally looked at him and goes, well, yeah, but there's not a surveyed HLZ there. So how are you going to land? And he had like one of his little brain books, and he just put his little marker in and he closed it and he just walked out of the room. And then 8 hours later, with this whole security force in a flatbed trailer after civilians, we watched them like jumping up and down on it and like touching stuff and trying to pull stuff with this highly dangerous, highly carcinogenic aircraft.
Yeah.
They literally pulled out a construction crew full of contractors in a flatbed truck with security and picked it up. And 16 hours later, they had it on base and we could have solved their problem in an hour. And we just didn't get to do it.
Yeah.
But that's what it is.
You have those stories, man.
It's everybody talks about special operations like it's just cool all the time. No, it's 99% queep and things you don't want to do for 1% of time that is sheer terror and panic. And if you live through it, it's fun.
Yep.
That's what it is.
That's what I say combat was too. You're just like, dude, it's like 90% boring shit, 10% kind of cool. You know,
kind of cool.
And then 1% got real cool.
Terrifying. Got real, right, yeah. If you're telling the story and you're alive, it got real cool for a second. Cool. And then,
got real sporty, was real, I got a sketch there for a second.
Yeah. And then I can tell the story however I want.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hashtag Tim Kennedy.
Yeah. 50 grenades.
It was just some fish stories, bro.
Yeah. Hey, I gotta hand it to him. That was my first viral clip.
Was it really?
800. It's up to 850,000. You guys have probably a lot better clips than I do, but so Brent Tucker came on.
Yeah.
So I launched this podcast a year and a half ago. I went on Anti-Hero to promote Embed Actual when I went to Ukraine, the mini doc I did. And way too late, but it was like, I'll still try to do a podcast run or whatever. 2 of them came back. and Anti-Hero was one of them.
Right.
And they had blown up that December. And so I was like, hey, and also I was also like, here's my credentials. So I sent all my stuff over. You know, just like, I don't want to end up on your shit list.
Right. Here's my DD-214.
Here's
I'm not saying anything outside of this. And I'm probably going to short sell myself here.
Yeah, exactly. So that's exactly what I did. So they contacted me like in January. I think I went out in like February or March. And I asked Brent Tucker. I was like, hey, and the Tim Kennedy stuff blew up. Obviously, it blew their channel up. And so I was like, hey, man, would you like to come on? I just started a podcast. He's like, absolutely. So Brent Tucker came on in, I think it was June. And it literally, he flew in on I think it was like a Tuesday or Wednesday night. Tim Kennedy dropped his like quote unquote apology that night. So I pick up Brent from the hotel.
Right.
And I was like, hey man. And he's like, oh yeah. So we got coffee. And I was like, well, he's coming on. Obviously we were going to tell some cool guy Delta stories, but like we actually more focused on veterans and all that stuff. So, and specifically that holding a veterans accountable is basically the theme of the show. So yeah, did it. I recorded it and I was like, you know what? I will give the guys that did the work, i.e. like David Hookstead, and I will give you guys the weekend.
Shout out to my boy Nate over at Valhalla.
Yeah,
that's
Valhalla.
My dude. That's my boy.
Yeah, Valhalla. I was like, I'll let these guys have it. Yeah, Nate's one of them. Yeah. And I was like, I'll give them the weekend to do all their stuff, and then I will post this clip on Monday, and then I think Brent's episode is going to go live like, I don't know, like a week later.
Right.
So I posted on Monday. Dude, that shit.
Super nuclear.
Hook
just
off.
Right away.
I almost felt bad because like Nate's, David Hookstead's, all these others were like, you know, they got their 20,000, 30,000. Dude, mine went nuclear. Within like a day, it was at like 50,000. The next day it was 100. It hit. I think actually it was 200,000 in 2 days.
Good.
And I was like, I almost felt guilty.
It's
I was like,
terrifying,
I'm so sorry.
isn't it?
Yeah. I was like, I'm so sorry. You know, like you guys did all the work, you know.
And you're one little clip.
Yeah. And I'm like some rando podcast I just started.
Right.
And it was, dude, it went absolute viral. It hit. I got a good payout from it. So
you get what you get, man.
Yeah.
I don't have any bad feelings towards him. I actually rolled with him one time back.
Oh, did you really?
Dude, like I was in and around the Austin spaces when I was at Kirtland. I spent a ton of time in San Antonio. I lived at the Onnit gym. He's a nice guy. He outran his headlights.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing we talk about was just like, me and Brent said that too. We were like, there's no reason to embellish.
And I think
there's no reason.
I think he's a good man. I think he means well. I think in his heart of hearts, he's a good dude. There's no reason. I know.
Well, that was the thing is that I know that obviously when that was all going on, because Brent had some friends that were good friends of Tim. This is what Brent was telling me. He's like, I don't throw text messages out. And I don't think he ever did, but he was telling me, he's like, dude, like, Tim kind of, he got ahead of his skis because he was like, I got a lot of followers. He literally said, I had a lot of followers. I have over 1 million followers. It's like, dude, that ain't going to save you.
Right.
That ain't going to save you, man. Not in this community.
Yeah.
And we said the same thing like you're saying, man. It's like, I met him once at Black Rifle Coffee. It's kind of weird because he was pretty nice to me just in passing. And I remember he came on, he's like, oh yeah, nice to meet you. I know who you are. And I was like, that's weird. Like, but again though, like Evan knew me. Yeah. My name was known within the company, especially with the Green Beret community. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like that, I mean, maybe somebody said something or whatever. So he was nice to me. I agree with you. He was nice to me. But it was just like, man, that was just indicative of, I mean, you can't be doing that.
No.
You just can't be doing it, you know, at the end, because a lot of people get caught. There's a lot of stuff going on, you know, like, and here we are, everyone's got their own podcast, everyone has their own opinions, but you gotta, you know, downplay it more than embellish.
Right.
Because
and unfortunately, negativity sells, man.
It does.
Negativity sells.
Can't live
I can tell you from personal experience as a guy that's made posts that I shouldn't have or engaged in comments. And when I was held accountable for that, it hurts in the beginning. Luckily, I've grown enough. Not only did I deserve it, I'm thankful for that.
Yeah.
I'm glad that somebody called me on it because I'll never do it again. Yeah. I'd like to think that we can all learn. We can all be better. Yeah. I hope he takes the opportunity to learn and be better and be open, transparent, and authentic because some of those boys are not playing. They're not playing around.
No. Yeah. Well, it was the thing too, as like we were talking about that. I was like, dude, like, and I guess for me it was so much the negativity, but like, oh, we need to cash in on the negativity. But for me, it was like, we need to, one, hold accountable, but also two, it's like there's guys that are like silent professionals or whatever. And
there are guys that are doing it the right way.
The right way. And there's just, or just like, you're getting sick of this shit. Yeah. Like, you know, we were talking about the Brovet kind of community. Like a lot of it's past now. Like, you know, we had 10, 15 years of, you know, GWAT a little bit post GWAT now, but it's only been over for technically for 4 years. But it's like that era is gone. We're in our 30s, 40s, 50s. And it is definitely like, hey man, like we're just kind of sick of this shit. Like guys that are embellishing, guys are, and I think they've been making money off it. I think that's what kind of burned a lot of people. It's like, dude, you're making money off of this. Civilians don't know the difference. Right. You know, you're kind of fucking over some other guys too, like in the community. Like if you say something bad about a dude that tries to hold you accountable, everyone's going to believe you because you have 1 million followers. Right. That's not healthy. Right. Especially for guys that have like legit, as we both know, legit careers. Right. Like, so I don't know. I think the accountability, I agree with you. Negativity, I can't live like that, man. But accountability, I think there's a difference between accountability and negativity. Yeah. And there was a run there of accountability, I think, it scared the veteran community enough to be like, yeah, you guys, we all need to straighten out our shit. You know, agreed. Agreed. Yeah. That's there we go. We fixed it. Yeah, we go. Fixed it. Tim Kennedy stuff fixed.
Can we all move on?
Yeah,
no,
we all move.
We're not move on.
No, we're not. And there's I can get some few dollars out of that one.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
But so then what were we talking about?
After Iraq, after Iraq, and then after Africa. Yeah. So this period of the 58 for me, it was just off to the races, man. Yeah. This is your classic GWOT op tempo. Okay. I was the the first troop chief. We reorganized a little bit, changed some of the words that we called ourselves. We had this crazy idea that we were never going to break the teams up. The teams were going to live together, eat together, breathe together. There weren't going to be. We didn't have the affordability to take a long training cycle. Like we just didn't. You would get back off your deployment. When I got back off that Africa deployment, I knew 8 months later I was going to be in Bastion in Helmand province, and I lost friends in Helmand. Like the entire crew that went down with Pedro 66. That was a Las Vegas-based helicopter crew. I did my entire spin-up through, when I was in England, I did my entire spin-up to get to my next skill level with the entire crew that went down. I knew every single person on that aircraft. David Smith, Simone, Aguilar, who lived, but he was an amputee. He was literally on fire. I think he had 90% burns over his fire. I lost 3 PJ friends of mine. I was extremely connected to that event when I was getting ready to go to Iraq. So I knew that Helmand was a big deal. We didn't have a whole lot of time to train for it. The pace of mission there was crazy. Pararescue, on the rescue side of the house, what they did is the Kazovac mission, the Army Kazovac birds were doing Kazovac, and then to a smaller degree, the English MERT teams, it was MERT, so the medical evaluation and resuscitation teams, they basically split the medevac mission into thirds. And it was like, you take one, you take one, you take one. Even splitting them into thirds, we had guys from the 58 that would go on a deployment and they would come back with 150 missions during a 4-month deployment. Jeez. They would literally put a patient, and this is not hyperbolic, they would take the patient that they just picked up out of a firefight, they would take them to the hospital. We had to invent a radio call for when maintainers had to come out and wash the blood out of the helicopters so that they could go on their next mission, and they were already getting their next call before they would get washed out. That's the pace of mission that we were getting into there.
And what year was that?
So that was 11, and so let's see. So, and I'm trying to think about this, and I don't want to misspeak. I went Africa, Bastion, Bagram. We closed down Bastion in like 13 into 14, or no, 12 into 13. We closed down Bastion, and then 13 into 14, we closed down, or we didn't close down Bagram, but that was my deployment to Bagram, Afghanistan. So the Bastion rotation was first.
It's getting spicy.
And I might be a year back because I spanned years. Like we were the Christmas troop. We deployed every single year, and we missed Christmas every single time. We were gone like September to like February every single year. But we were going to Bastion. We knew we were the last team that we were down there. We were still doing the medevac mission. And while things were slowing down in that part of it, we were still extremely busy. I went in a leadership role on that one. So I was holding alert and actually flying, doing the PJ gig like 2 days a week. I think it was Sundays. I would take half of the shift for my outgoing team leader because we worked in 12s. There was always, 24-hour operations, 2 teams. I would take the last half of the outgoing shift team leader and then the first half of the next one. And then my job was, the disposition and the leadership of the forces in Bastion proper down there. Things were still going on. We had some serious IED mission, worked a lot with the Marine dudes that were working out of Herat. They would come down, if they needed us. We had great connective tissue with those guys. The Helmand mission was largely a Marine mission, as you know. Marines were hot and heavy in Helmand for almost the entirety of the time that they were there. So it was a lot, and it was a learning experience for me. I was a brand new guy because of my rank, because I was a cross trainee. I had to be qualified. The people that I ended up supervising on that deployment trained me to get to their level, and then I took a supervisory role over them. So I had a whole new thing. I think I've told this story before, but they were mats, where my team was 2 mats. And by the way, these 2 mats they were at the exact opposite. One guy completely stoic, unable to be rattled. Like, this guy could win the lottery or lose his mom and he'd have the same face on. He was just flat, and he was a great leader and a great guy. And the other guy, complete opposite. Hyperbolic, huge guy, huge personality, very, opinionated in some things, and, hilarious in the team room, but sometimes hard to leash, as a guy. That guy went on to a tier 1 unit and did great things. He's still in. But that was another kind of leadership challenge I had, is that, I didn't have the time, and then I'm telling them on missions like, hey, you're going to do this and you're going to do this, and this is how I'm organizing you. And sometimes they disagreed with me, and it was completely fair for them to do so. But one of the mats looked at me at one point and was like, where do you get off telling me that you're going to do this with my team? I trained you to do, like, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be qualified. He's not wrong, but those are the things that you have to take on as a leader. Like, you have to be able to remove your ego and go, okay, well, you're right, but this is still a thing that I got to do. So we're going to have to do this, and we're going to have to find a way through it. And then we were the last rescue team. Like, we turned off that entire location for Bastion, and then we were no longer a thing.
Was there anything that you remember specifically from Bastion, like mass CAS or IEDs that stick out to you?
The toll that it takes on the guys that do this job. It was the only time that I've ever taken a PJ off of alert. One of the younger team members, who's a great guy now, and he still works for the community, not in an active duty sense. But I told this story, but he had to make the terrible decision about literally cutting an American apart that was damaged in an IED, but there was no other way to get him out of the vehicle. So we don't leave anybody behind. And he had to make that decision. The guy's 24, man. What are you supposed to do with that? How are you supposed to lead a guy through that? Like, I wasn't there, and he gets back, and now I got to expect him to go on another call? And then it was even worse when I had to tell him that he had to come off, because the only thing that he wanted to do was go back to the job and push those emotions aside, because he trained 2 years of his life to get here. And now some dork is telling him that he can't go out. What are you supposed to do with that? How are you? When I go home, how am I supposed to look at his wife, his family, the people that love him, and how am I supposed to look at them in the face and be like, no, the deployment went great, everybody came home? What do you do with that? But we all take that on, because there's no off time. We look at the recent developments in Iran, and we talk about the great work that the pararescue community did, and they did. They didn't get to take a time off. They didn't have a victory lap. It's not like President Trump was like, okay, cool, yeah, no more combat operations. We're not going to fly anybody over this area. They went home, they washed the blood off their uniform, they got their helicopters ready to go, and they took alert the next time that they came on cycle, and that's it. And that's the nature of the job. But these things take a toll. Trauma is like a cup. There's only so much you can fill it up before it overflows, and you no longer have the ability to stop how much is flowing in, because then every drop makes your cup overflow. And that was really the first time that I looked at these guys and I understood the real toll that it takes. Being in the area, flying over the exact place where I lost 5 friends in one event, 6 friends in one event. David Smith was a young Air Force special mission aviator that sat in the back of the aircraft at 25 years old. He ends up losing his life because of one 7.62 round that hit the tail rotor. That's what brought Pedro 6.6 down. And if it wasn't for Wisniewski, the pilot that fought with his literal dying breath to make sure that he didn't crash into the fob that he was flying over and put it into a field where nobody was, he would have killed more people. I don't even know where we find men like that. But these are the type of people that you work with every single day. When you talk about special operations is a mistress, the military is a mistress. And to watch these people give their all for it only to die and then have a short, 10-minute ramp side memorial for him, only to go and go, okay, great. Well, there's cake and cookies and punch in this little chow hall tent, but you guys have alert, so go back to work. Like that was the first time that I was really like, holy shit, man! Like this job takes more than it gives. Like I owe a lot to the pararescue community, but that was the first time that I was like, holy crap! Like it takes a lot more, and to see that, especially in the dudes' faces, like. It's tough.
Well, I imagine too, like I said, you're seeing that all the time. Like, us on the ground, we hit an ID every few weeks or something like that. Right. You guys are seeing the results of that every day.
8 calls a day.
Yeah. Was there, would the guys talk about that? I mean, like when you guys did get home, when does that settle in for you? Is that
when you're drunk at the bar?
Yeah.
I mean, and it is like, I hate to say it, but drinking and dealing with these unhealthy coping mechanisms is insane. We just brought up one of my young guys that worked on that team in Vegas. A couple years later, was involved in a murder-suicide that was directly related to his mental health and the toll that he's taken it off. And there was a time, especially in the PJ community, where it's a real problem, where somebody says, "Hey, some of these group chats for like a 5-year period, somebody would type in, 'Hey, do you remember X person?' And the first, and again, we're terrible at this because we avoid trauma via humor, but it's like helicopter or suicide because you knew that was coming. Hey, do you remember this person because they're not here anymore? Helicopter or suicide. And that's how prevalent this stuff is because of the mental toll that it takes. And later in my career, I reached the limit of my cup as well to where I could not do it anymore. Just could not take not one more drop of trauma in my cup. And it was largely a me problem. And sometimes you would get guys to be honest, and some guys, the really emotionally intelligent guys, would say, "Hey, like I'm having a problem, or I need to step away." But I'll tell you what, 99% of the dudes were like, "Well, that's the job, and this sucks, but everybody else seems to be fine. So I guess I just show up to the gym and I work out, and then when I get done, I'm just going to drink super hard, and we're not going to talk about it. I'm going to have fun with my friends, and I'll deal with it later."
Yeah.
That is not the healthiest way to go about it, my friend. I can tell you from personal experience.
No, I 100% agree with you. I mean, I think the GWAT definitely opened up a lot of doors for the mental health and knowing when to call it or when to be like, "Yo, man, you need a break."
Well, and the good thing is that there's great organizations. Yeah. My friend Steve, which is a PJ that ended up working in one of those tier 1 units, he has Shields and Stripes. Shields and Stripes is an absolutely fantastic organization, 501c3 nonprofit that focuses on first responder and military mental health and recovery, giving them the tools that they need. They run cohorts all the time, and I'm glad to see that Steve is doing what he's doing because he had those problems myself. I went on that first training spin up with Steve. He's one of my best friends in the entire world. He's great man, great organization, and it's good to see it. But the problem is that organizations like Steve are addressing a problem that's only going to get bigger. Because like I said, all of those folks in my peer group, because I was a little bit earlier, I was a cross trainee, so my service commitment was done before them. My peer group, the guys that had those 140 missions, those guys are all retiring now. Those guys are all losing a mission now. And I hate saying this, but if you think 22 a day is bad, wait until the GWAT generation starts to fully get out. Wait until we see 20 years after the GWAT generation, because unfortunately, I think this is a problem that we're not going to solve, and it's going to become bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the purpose of what you do next. I think that gets a lot of guys.
It does.
I was pretty fortunate when I got out. I had a pretty good plan, but I was also never a lifer either. So it's like this weird thing. Like my wife says it to me pretty often. She's like, "You're pretty well adjusted." I was like, "Well, I got my issues, but I also came from." I set goals for myself since I was younger. Like I was a wrestler, so I don't know if that helped my process. I still struggled because there are times I'm like, "Dude, I gotta get the fuck out of here." I got to, you know, like I want to go back or I want to do something. Contracting for me was like a therapy.
Right.
You know, it definitely exacerbated stuff, but you know, it's not healthy, but it was.
Let me just keep re-exposing myself to the same trauma, see if that works.
Exactly.
Yeah, good idea, bud.
Yeah.
Good job, Ethan.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't get shot at again. Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things where like, you know, like you need to do that checklist. And I think when guys were getting out in my generation that were just infantry guys, like not to say just, but like we do our deployments and we get out. Like we don't do 20 years. Marine infantry is not a 20-year career field. No. Like very few guys keep going.
Right.
And it's like, what levels are you going to? Like I said, the Marines don't quite offer your guys' pipeline or Delta or Rangers or, you know, whatever. So we kind of, I don't know, like I said, I've been out for 15, 16 years. So like I was dealing with it and then guys were slowly trickling out. Mm-hmm. Maybe they did another deployment, like, all right, man, you got to go here. You got to do this. You got to do this. Like try this therapy or go find a purpose, go rekindle something, go find, you know, and it's hard. It's not like easy. Like, oh yeah, I found my purpose yesterday. It was fine. Right. Now I'm good to go. Like, especially guys that get off 20. My brother's retiring next week, you know, and he told me, he's like, it's kind of crazy, man. Like, I don't know. I've been told what to do after 20 years.
It's just like Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
You've been institutionalized.
Yeah.
Everybody in the military is Brooks.
Yep.
You got to ask permission to go to the bathroom. Dude, when I was, you know, I transitioned out, I was we were talking about it earlier, but I am a walking stereotype. My wife jokes. She's like, oh, 6 foot tall dude, sort of brash, sort of cocky, kind of a dickhead to people he doesn't know, tattoos. You just described everybody that's in special operations, like 6 foot tall white dude, sort of Mexican looking apparently. But, you know, I was that guy that for a year, I was like tight, got a great job, high paying. All my friends were jealous, immediately into the C-suite. And I got to be honest with you, it was the worst time of my life. You know, not the worst time of my life, but I had no mission. You know, thank God that I had the Ones Ready podcast because I get to talk to people every day. For as dumb as the questions are and as easy as like, oh, what do I do with my wife? Like, bro, we have 40 hours of content on family stuff. And that's right. But I get to connect with people that are at the beginning of their journey and I get to help them avoid that mistake. That's a mission. These teams, and we talked about kind of the drama that's going on inside of the Air Force Special Warfare Training Wing community right now and the stuff that they're doing.
Let's do that because I don't know what's going on.
Let's not, brother. It's a training thing. We'll figure it out, whatever. I don't care. And people, you know, when I talk about it on my podcast, people are like, I don't understand why Aaron is so mad. Well, because it's my mission now. These young kids are on... I am a sergeant. Sergeant means to serve. I was a proud enlisted guy my entire career. I never wanted to be an officer, not because I hate officers, which I do. I don't. But it's because I want to coach and guide and mentor. You know, mentorship to me has been described the best way that I possibly can. Mentorship is holding a door that you couldn't walk through so that other people could walk through it yourself. If I didn't have these messages from these kids and saying, hey, I just got through this assessment selection, or you changed my life because I was 150 pounds overweight. Now I have a mission, and now I'm actually qualified for military service. Holy crap, man. Like those things are what keeps me going. Those are what fills my cup of service up now. And if I didn't have that, bro, I don't know where I would be. I have no idea where I would be if it wasn't for that platform and that project and some of the other stuff like Veteran Bushido Brotherhood that, you know, we take combat veterans that are missing that mission, missing that accountability and don't have a tribe, and we put them on a jiu-jitsu mat and be like, okay, what did you do in the military? It was hard. It sucked. You lost all the time. You had to learn. The learning curve was steep. And if you didn't learn, you got killed. Well, you're not going to get killed, but you are going to get choked unconscious. And if you don't show up to class tomorrow, somebody's going to look at you and go, hey, I missed you on Tuesday. That's what we missed from the military. And we just used jiu-jitsu because through suffering, those bonds of adversity are made stronger. You know, if those bonds of brotherhood, that's what we remember. Like, I miss the clowns. I don't miss the circus. My military experience, career, whatever, that is what it is. But that's in the past. I don't miss the writing EPRs and staying late after work and doing admin and going to annual training and doing my computer-based training. Because no matter how cool you are, you still have to do military stuff, right? I don't miss any of that. I miss the team, though. I miss getting off a hard training event and everybody's pounding Gatorade and water as fast as they can because they're dehydrated, and we almost all died on this stupid training event or died in a helicopter crash, and now we're laughing about it in the team room. That's what I miss because it's a shared sense of purpose. Adversity forges those bonds. Like iron sharpens iron, we sharpen each other. That's what we all miss. Veteran Bushido Brotherhood, that's what we're trying to give you. Go to class, lose every role. Some 135-pound purple belt is going to put it on you, and you're going to be helpless. And when you get done, he's going to laugh about it. He's going to give you a hug. He's going to tell you how to do better. And then you get to do that again for 5 more rounds. That's what the guys miss. That's what you miss when you get out of the military. And unless you find that purpose, man, you were lost. And we see it everywhere. And sometimes it ends in the worst possible scenario where guys take their own life because they feel isolated, they feel alone, and they feel like nobody understands them. And that's going to happen more.
Yeah, especially like I said, the guys that are starting to retire,
Yep.
Yeah, like I said, and luckily for my brother, he got a job, but it's one of those things too where, like I said, he told me, he's like, man, it's like, yeah, but it's different. It's 20 years and you might have things figured out, but you don't. You know, you're still starting over.
I still don't.
Yeah.
I had a good mentor tell me, he's like, bro, it takes 5 years to transition.
Yeah.
He's like, it takes 5 years. And the very first time that I left, I lived in Vegas. I was lucky to find a job in Vegas. It worked out perfectly. Again, I am the luckiest person on the face of the planet. The first time that I was going to leave on the weekend, I called my civilian CEO and I go, hey man, I'm going to be in this place for this long. Here's the number that you can reach me. I'll be on email. He goes, Aaron, are you going to be on email? And I was like, yeah. He goes, okay, why are you telling me this? And I literally hung the phone up and I was like, okay, I'm a real boy now.
Yeah.
But like, it's as stupid as like, okay, I need a doctor's appointment.
Yeah.
How do I do that? I need a dental checkup. Like I didn't get an email telling me I had to show up or you were going to tell my commander.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's all of these little things that you're truly institutionalized. And I lived that life for more than 2 decades. It takes a long time to break those habit patterns, both good and bad.
Yeah.
I'm still going to show up 15 minutes early. I'm still going to get mad if you show up 5 minutes early because you're late, technically, whatever. I'm still going to say a joke that's going to get me reported to HR. Luckily, my company doesn't have an HR company or policy. It's just my co-host, Trev. We joke that he's the HR company.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll move into that subject. So when did you get some more deployments after that? And then what was retirement like? Like I said, you put a lot of time in.
Yeah. So 3 deployments out of Vegas, and then I had a schoolhouse gig. The schoolhouse gig was amazing. I ended up being the operations superintendent in the Air Force. There's the chief. He's the E9. And then the next enlisted guy, either an E7 or an E8 is your operations superintendent. I was lucky enough to be the operations superintendent of the pararescue schoolhouse. Probably my best assignment. Yeah. Like seeing these guys that are going to do the next thing and being able, and this was completely different. When I went through, we didn't have a whole lot of combat experience. Those guys that were at the schoolhouses in those early 2000s, they'd been locked into those assignments. They were watching their friends leave. They didn't have the combat experience. That's completely different now. We have the most combat tested, combat proven instructional staff at every single one of these schools, DOW wide, that we've ever seen before. And that's amazing. And the input, the instruction that these students, I hesitate to call them kids, but they are kids. Yeah. They're under 25. Their brains aren't even fully formed yet. But the input that they're getting from those guys is amazing. They're not guessing at what it takes. Every single scenario that we run at the Pararescue Schoolhouse today is off of a real world event that we did that made the headlines. And that's important and that's great. And seeing this team go from a guy that has all these pieces and parts to put it together to look like a PJ, holy crap, the job satisfaction I got out of that. Not because I did it, but because they did it. Because they were able to look like a PJ at the end of this 2 years of pipeline and through a 91% attrition rate and all these other things that we put out there to talk about how hard the job is. But it also gives you the opportunity to be like, hey man, here's all the times that I failed. Anytime that I'm on a podcast, it's never about my own self or my own personal missions or whatever I've done. It's mainly focusing on my failures because I hope that people hear that and they go, I don't want to go through Indoc 4 times. Tight. Let me tell you how to get through it for the love of goodness. Let me tell you how to, put alcohol down earlier because it'll help the rest of your life and you won't have to deal with this. Let me tell you about not dealing with these serious traumas correctly. And let me tell you how to avoid these things because my life would be better if it wasn't, if I didn't deal with them in that way. And that schoolhouse gig was amazing. And then from there, I finished my career out. So back to AFSOC at the 22 STS. I had the distinct privilege of living in Tacoma, Washington during the entirety of COVID, which was tight. I literally landed from a TDY. My wife, there was a Asian restaurant my wife wanted to try in Seattle. Seattle has great Asian food, huge Asian population there. She was like, hey, there's a great restaurant. I want to try it. She picks me up from the airport and the city just felt weird. And we parked And normally in downtown, like we're driving downtown, they have an Arc'teryx store. And I remember this because, again, Dead Bird Gang. And it was boarded up. Like it was completely like boards everywhere. And I was like, what is happening? Like I was in Texas for like 2 weeks for a TDY. I was like, what is happening? We parked the car and there's 2 cops and they're walking around, but they're in kit with long guns. And I looked at him and I was like, hey, fella, I look at Tara real quick before I get out of the car. And I was like, hey, did you bring my bag? Meaning my gun. And she was like, oh yeah, of course I did. I was like, thank you. That helps me. And I was like, okay. And I look at the cops. I was like, hey, what's going on? And they were like, you shouldn't be here. And then they just left. And I was like, what is happening? That was the first night of the BLM riots. It's when Chaz and Chop happened.
Oh, yep.
And we were literally driving out as that city was on fire, quite literally. And then that was the next 5 years of my life in that. And then going through the military and how they handle COVID. And we were just at the epicenter of it. So we watched our friends in Florida live in a completely different life. I mean, we would text our friends.
It's a different planet.
Oh my God, dude. I remember distinctly during this time, there was a gas station that was right down the street from my house. And I would stop in there on the way to work, grab an energy drink or whatever. And I walked in and I didn't have a mask on because that shit was fake. I walk in and I was like, I'm going to grab this thing. And I set it down on the counter and the lady goes, I can't serve you until you have a mask on. She said this behind a hanging plexiglass thing that was not encased. She had a mask on. There was a hanging plexiglass sheet that I could go like this and I could look at her in the face. And I was like, you are not going to provide me service because I don't have this mask on. And she goes, yep. And I took $5 out and I showed it to the camera and I put it down. I was like, keep the change. You figure this out however you want. I just took it and left. That was my life for 5 years, was trying to figure this out, right? And we would talk to our friends in Florida and we'd be like, let me throw a text out. Hey, are you guys wearing masks at work? And they'd be like, no. I'd be like, what are you talking about? We were. It was wild. It was a crazy experience. I got one more deployment out of it. I went down to Africa. I was doing a completely different mission. So we were doing the Global Access mission. Global Access is usually a combat controller-led mission, but I had the distinct privilege of being a PJ that was in charge of a troop that did that. Amazing. Some of the things, I mean, even late in my career, I was an E8 at this point. Late in my career, I got to see a completely different side of a mission that we were doing. Highly valuable. A lot of people don't know about it, and you can only do it in the Air Force.
That's pretty cool.
And it was super awesome.
What'd you guys do? Or can you talk about it?
Oh, brother.
Can you talk about it?
I mean, I can talk about it. So like the Global Access mission is, there are plans for everything, right? Yeah. And especially when you talk like, linking it to Benghazi, if you're talking about evacuating people where you have to have airfields to do it, well, not the only people, but the subject matter experts, at least in the special operations world, are combat controllers at this because that's their entire job. So when you talk about going to tons of different countries and going to making sure these runways were good for evacuations and certifying runways and airstrips and working with partner forces, especially working with the Kenyans. Somalia is north of Kenya. There's a Bonai forest in between. Well, that's a huge area of travel for violent extremist organizations that want to go in and out of Kenya. Kenya has a nascent program that they want to make look like Air Force Special Warfare. So they have people that do medicine, people that do radios, they integrate with helicopters. Granted, to a very small scale, that logistics and funding is a big deal here because they just don't have the logistics and funding to do it. But they need people to teach them how to do it. And that was one of our primary missions, was working with these partner forces to get them to where they can hold their own until the American cavalry can come in either from the north up at DJ or south down in Kenya. Highly interesting, super valuable work. I got to see a completely different side. Literally, there were some times where I was like, oh, wow, I didn't even know we did this. And I'm the guy that's in charge of the team. This is tight, But really, really interesting stuff. We went to the same place. It's called CSL Manda Bay. A year before, they were in a base attack, and the people that fixed that base attack was a combined force of the Marines and the Air Force Special Tactics team. And it was great. I mean, their actions were great. The event was horrible. We lost people in that event. But every once in a while, you take a terrible event like that and you get better, and this place was getting better because of it. It was because of the way that the Air Force Special Operations community involved and ingratiated themselves in that event.
Nice. That's awesome. So can you get specific on that event? What happened there?
Oh, terrible. So the American base, the combined support location, sits in Manda Bay. The bay is literally on the coast of Kenya. Well, it sits inside of a larger Kenyan base because of logistics and funding. That base is in no way secure. You could literally just drive a boat up onto the one road that can get you right into the base. And if you're motivated enough, all you have to do is a couple wire cutters and you're in. There's no integrated defense system. There's no anything. There's not. You don't have cameras and motion detected fence. If you try to climb the fence of Andrews Air Force Base or Joint Base Andrews now, if you shake the fence too hard, you will have like 10 cops show up pointing guns at you, and sometimes it's a rabbit. That's how sensitive those equipment are. It ain't like that in Africa, homie. So basically a violent extremist organization meant to do damage to the airfield. They gained access through a number of different holes in the security perimeter, and they were able to get onto the American-held runway. A couple of aircraft were killed, and a couple of Americans were actually killed in this event. A National Guardsman, his first name was Henry. I'll think of his last name later. We dedicated one of the drop zones there and actually had a jump for his family, sent the flag back to his family, certified the drop zone in his name. But it was a huge event, destroyed multiple aircraft. It was a really big deal. The base attack at Manda Bay, people don't know about it. We did an entire episode if you want to hear the backstory. We actually have the combat controller that was part of the team that responded to this event. He goes in depth. Security forces had some serious issues and some holes in their game that were also highlighted. We were lucky enough to have the security forces leader that was recognized for that event come on and give the real talk about what happened and how they made it better. It's an extremely interesting event. You can just search CSL Manda Bay on our page and you can find the entire story there. But short story, it was a base attack. You know, before this, people treated this largely as sort of a vacation and not a deployment. They got a little bit too complacent in their security procedures, and then unfortunately it came to a head in Manda Bay.
Yeah, that's I hate to say it, that's always typically the story. You know, it's like, it got real lax, real chill.
Right.
And then shit went completely sideways.
It's all chill until it isn't.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's all chill until there are no kidding people in the woods that are lobbing grenades at your planes and trying to, they almost got a plane that was taking off. Another plane was disabled and completely destroyed on the runway, and we lost American lives doing it. It was a bad event.
Yeah, exactly. So you wrap up that deployment and you retire. What's that? You know, we've kind of discussed it a little bit earlier, but what's the lead up to that? I mean, and how many years did you did in total?
Yeah, I think so. All said and done, I think my DD 214 says 24 years. It was a medical retirement. I had to raise my hand because I got to the point with my past traumas and my totally unhealthy coping mechanisms. I was one of those guys that was renowned on my teams that I would drink all of my friends that were hard drinkers under the table, and I'd be at the gym at 5:30 in the morning going after it. That is not healthy. And I did that for 25 years. I didn't hit a rock bottom. I got sober about 2 years ago. I didn't hit rock bottom. It wasn't this thing where it was like, my wife looked at me and was like, you have to stop drinking or I'm going to leave you. I didn't have that. I just woke up one morning and I was like, I am so sick of feeling this way and feeling about these things. And then as I got a little bit of distance from the drinking, I looked back and the regret of knowing what I could have been and the wasted potential that I just spent 20 years on this pursuit of drinking. It's a lot to deal with. And I work through that every day, both with the damage that I did to the relationships. This is my second marriage, and I was completely at fault for my first marriage falling apart because I had a mistress, and it was special operations and to a larger extent drinking. And my relationships with my kids has healed. I have 2 older kids and 2 younger kids. I'm a more present dad for them now. But it got to the point at the end of my career where I was literally so unhealthy. I was the operations superintendent at the time at the 2-2, and I remember a distinct event where the boys were getting out ready to go do a jump, and they were short on jump masters. They had a short timeline, and somebody stuck their head in and was like, hey, can you come help me JMPI real quick? I was like, yeah, no problem. So I come out, I do JMPI as those guys leave, and I walk back to my office, and I sit down, and I immediately went into just a debilitating panic attack where I had to shut my door and lay on the floor, and I was about 2 seconds away from sticking my head out and being like, hey, you need to actually get somebody here because I think I'm seriously having a medical problem. Because I was terrified that one of those guys would hurt themselves. And I was terrified that I would be the guy that JMPI'd them, and it led to their incident. And, I was involved in the event where we lost Cole Condiff, a combat controller of the Gulf of America. I talked about that during the, went into an entire description of that event. I took that extremely personally. I took that as a huge personal failure. I'm still not over it. It still gives me nightmares. I'm luckily on the other side of, no kidding, physical manifestations like panic attacks, but it affects me every single day. Losing Mike Cathcart in Bagram, it was in Condos, but it was during my Bagram deployment. I took those things as a huge personal failure. Everything that I knew about me as a person, unfortunately, I can bring up 3 events where, no, I was not, in fact, that person. Everybody talks about imposter syndrome. What happens when the imposter syndrome is valid? What happens when you can look at objectively an event and go, no, you weren't the best for a number of different reasons, and these people died. You're never supposed to internalize somebody that died that you didn't actually kill. Unfortunately, even though I know that, that's not where I am. And hopefully I'll get there one day, but I'm not. And I had to be honest and say, at that point, I can't at the same breath say I'm a PJ 24 hour, any time a day, 24 hours, this phone rings, I'm going to be able to go. That wasn't the truth. And that led to my medical retirement and my exit from the military with a ton of resentment. I didn't have a retirement ceremony. I didn't do any of those things. I was completely disillusioned for a number of different reasons with command and the circus generally. I personified that in some members of our leadership. And I am a polarizing person. I'm never a person that holds what they say, and sometimes I'm not the most tactful person, and I burned a shit ton of bridges with those people, and I was largely a net negative to the Air Force, my organization, and the Beret. And it hurts to say it, but that's what it was. Yeah. And at some point you have to be honest with yourself, and you can either continue to be a net negative or you can get out of the way. And I had to make the choice to get out of the way, no matter what that meant. Not hyperbolically, I think it saved my life. Yeah. Like I think that I know where I was going had I not. And I think the career field is probably better off for it. Yeah. And there's a ton of people out there that would probably agree with me, to include the people, God bless them, the people that I had to work for. Because I was not an easy person to lead. I always said that I would be terrible. If it wasn't for me being a PJ, I probably wouldn't have made it very long in the military. If I didn't have the job, but the job was so righteous to me and the mission was so righteous that I was able to dampen those parts of myself or my normal actions to continue doing the job. But there's a timeline on that. Yeah. There's an expiration date on how long you can live an unauthentic life before it just becomes too much. And for me, it became too much. And I had to step away, and it was the best choice, I think, for everybody, certainly for myself. Yeah.
So stepping away, getting out, you said there was no retirement ceremony, all that kind of stuff. So
my retirement, by the way, and I used to feel much more strongly about this. It's just funny now, but this is how much my command cared about me. You know what my retirement date on my certificate said? The ones that were signed off by like the chain of command all the way up to my wing commander. You know what date it was?
What?
February 30th. Thanks, guys.
Technically.
22 years. I retired on February 30th. I have the documents to prove it. That's how much they cared about me. They saw my retirement certificate and the certification. They were like, Aaron Love, February 30th. February 30th doesn't exist. Yeah. We occasionally have a February 28th.
Yeah.
That's how much that they cared about me.
Yeah.
When I got it, I was still in contact with kind of like the first sergeant because they had to mail him to my new house, and I finally got him, and I just sent him a picture. His name is Jamie. Jamie's an awesome guy. Yeah. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have gotten through the last year of my career. And I sent it to Jamie, and I was just like, February 30th, huh? And he did the right thing. He was like, okay, man, I was like, don't fix it. It's funnier this way. But that was the perfect bow on top of that career, right? Is just to be like, okay, cool. Well, you get what you deserve, and I probably deserve that. I probably deserve that level of it. So at that point, I had so much resentment and so much unresolved trauma that I was dealing with that I couldn't possibly engage in a helpful way. I just couldn't, and there's no way that I could continue being a PJ.
Yeah. So, like I said, you're getting out. You got that retirement. What is like? You have jobs lined up. Like, what's your next step? We kind of discussed it a little bit prior, but like I said, it's a big deal, man. Like, it was, and for you, it's rough. There's no sentimental. There's guys that I talked to over the years, and this was years prior to this. But we all kind of we all find it in certain aspects or certain time periods. So like you found out 24 years in. I remember hearing about that and kind of feeling that same way, man. Like you get back from deployment. I got off my third. It's like, no one cares, And I talked to other guys that kept deploying in the National Guard. People don't quite think of the Guard boys deployed a lot.
Oh,
if
you
wanted to get after it.
19th and 20th group?
Yeah.
Whoa, you better look at them deployment awards, baby.
Yep. Even these AGR Minnesota boys, like, you want to get on a pump? They got their pumps.
Anytime you want.
Anytime they want it.
Raise your hand.
And they did it. And I remember talking to one guy, and he's just like, dude, you get home from the airport because you're solo, because you're integrated. So you're like a one-off or something. He's like, there's no parade.
Nobody clapping for you.
You get home from the airport. Event. Yep. No one's picking you up from the airport. You got your bags.
Welcome home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you start to feel that, like it's I think everyone feels that at a certain point, through their career or their life, when it comes to that war fighting operating, like there's a day that you have to hang it up. It doesn't mean you have to completely walk away or you keep your 1 foot in, whatever. But there's a day that it's just like, it starts getting to like, man, there's nobody left to come back to. There's nobody picking you up. It's pretty lonely on that side of the game.
I would say that there's a benefit because I'd like to think that I've grown. And I always make the joke, especially in the last like 2 or 3 years, like I'm trying to get to Aaron 2.0, right? Aaron 1.0 was a terrible person. We're all broken humans. We're all equal in that regard. We're all trying to do the best. Some people have figured it out a little bit sooner. I'm trying to get to a point where I'm a better person. And in this point where I'm trying to be a better person, I can look back on the way that I left the military, and I can look back on my career for what it was, and I can say at least that the one benefit that it gave me is that part of that mission that people miss, and then they take extreme steps to try to get back to, whether that's attention-seeking behavior or whether it's drinking or high-risk activities or whatever it is that they try to fill that void. I had so much resentment that it was a clean break for me. The day that I left that unit and the day that my voice stopped echoing in that unit, I was able to have a clean break and step away from it. Thankfully, with my job that I currently have, amazing company, amazing mission, I get just enough of that. I have a mission that I truly care about, and these people that I'm trying to help get through the hardest course that they're gonna take. I have a mission where I can impact them and I can help them be the best version of themselves. That's great. I was lucky in this regard that I wasn't one of those guys that made the job who I am. Pararescue made me who I am as a person, for good, bad, for everything that it took from me. I still owe more of that to that beret than it owes me. And I say that with the most humility that I possibly can. It made me who I am, good, bad, or indifferent. I really do owe it a debt of gratitude. But that's not who I am. That was a job that I did. And when the times that I did it right, I'd like to think that I did it the right way. There's plenty of people out there that say that I didn't. They're right too. Because the times that I was doing it wrong, I was a negative impact on the career field. I fully admit that. Good. But I had that behind me where resentment is no longer my cross to bear. However, it allowed me to have a clean break and really step into the next thing without the baggage of the career. Because I see too many of my friends, too many of these old guys that care deeply about something. They've been out longer than they were in, and they're still engaged on these chats and going on the Airman Senior NCO Facebook page and saying stuff and doing all this other stuff because they made the job part of their identity. And then when you attack the job, like when I give, the TAC-P guys that are currently mad at me for talking about them, no, I'm talking about the career field. I'm talking about the choices the career field is making. I'm talking about what the career field is doing, but you are internalizing it like an attack on you because your ego and your id are wrapped up in a thing that does not care about you. I'm lucky to not have that attachment. So for that, it was a good thing. It took me a long time to get there, and I'm happy to have the impact with the kids that are trying to get in, or with my day job, or working with the tippity top of the fighter pilots and the Space Force and cyber and intel and all these other people. I get to see support guys that are doing the Lord's work. Like, shout out to all the support guys. What's up to my maintainers? I love the maintainers. Seeing those people really giving their all and they're in the fight, I am so happy to take a step back and for once be the guy that supports as opposed to the guy that's supporting, and that's what gives me mission now. But it took me a long time to get there because it's super easy to be negative and say, oh, well, I was wronged, or they did this thing to me. No, I did it to myself. But at least now I'm at a place where I can internalize that and go, okay, cool. Every consequence that I've ever gotten is part of my actions, and I deserved it. And I can accept that and go on to this next part of my life. It'll never be better. The Stoics would tell you regret is the past and you can't change it. Anxiety is the future, and that might not happen, so you have to live in the present. I can accept all of those things as true and at least be authentic from this second on moving out. Yeah. And if I can just communicate that to somebody in the same space, whether it's getting them on the mat in jiu-jitsu or helping their training plan to become a special operator, whether it's talking to somebody about my passion in politics or what I think the best way forward is for America, great. Learn from my mistakes. Let's get you to a place where you can be a better version of yourself, and that better version of yourself is better than I'll ever be. Great. That's my only mission. That's my only goal at this point. And I get to engage in only the things that I'm passionate about. When I said I was leaving the military, I was like, great, I'm only doing things that I care about. I just had a mentor of mine, a great friend, a guy that I went through Indoc with. He's a vetted special operations commander in his own regard. And he was like, what do you got going? I was like, oh, not much. Here's my big four. Here's kind of the stuff I'm looking at. He's like, Aaron, only you would get on the phone with me and tell me these 4 full-time jobs that you do simultaneously is just a couple stuff. He's like, you just are a military working dog. I don't know any other way to say it. It just turns out I'm passionate about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I want other people to find that, whatever that looks like for them. I don't care if you want to be the world's best Walmart greeter. If you DM me and you say, I want to be the world's best Walmart greeter, I'll come up with a way to do that. Or you want to be the best F-35 pilot in the Air Force. Okay. You want to be the next Air Force Cross winner, Medal of Honor winner, pararescueman, an entire career. You want to be a chief. You want to be a colonel. I'd love to help you do that. I don't care what it is because I care. The only thing I care about in my life is my kids and my family. And to a second lesser degree, I care about everybody in my circle being better, whether it's my friends in their business, the people that are still doing it active duty, anybody that wants to be a podcaster or whatever I may have figured out before you did. I can't wait to give you every single cheat code to where I am and watch you go be the biggest absolute platform, whatever in the world. Yeah, I don't care. I want to see other people succeed.
That's awesome. I mean, it's great. Like I said, the rising tide raises all ships,
It's it.
Yeah.
The theory of abundance is a real thing, man. And I'll tell you what, Aaron 2.0, excuse me, Aaron 2.0 kind of figured this out. When my life turned around when I stopped drinking because I'm a fucking idiot when I drink. But it was when I started focusing on everybody else, all these things that we tell everybody, remove the focus from internal, make it external. If you serve other people, the universe will serve you back. And if you live in a godly way, then you will find yourself with more benefit. I can only tell you from personal experience, man, that's true. And that's the one thing that changed is when I got out of my own head and I got out of my own way and I started caring about other people more than myself and I ordered the love of my life as I was supposed to, it turns out everything got better. And I'm just going to keep doing that because it gets better every single day. Yeah. My friends that see me and they're still in, they're like, I had a combat controller friend of mine come to my specific organization. He's a student, so I'm serving him as a contractor. Like he's literally one of the people that I'm going to hopefully make a better human during this entire thing through our wide range of human performance optimization and cognitive training that I do for a day job. But he was like, how's retired life, dude? And I was like, it honestly gets better every single day. It's like the opposite of Office Space. He's like, you're telling me every day is the worst day? Oh, that sucks. It's the opposite for me. Every day I wake up, it gets a little bit better. And I just can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I'm excited you're pursuing all these things. I think that's a good thing to put out there for the guys that are in the newer generation, the guys that have gotten out too. Find your purpose, improve something. You don't have to go, I think a lot of guys in the mentality think they have to go right back to 100% or being like I said, even fitness, like, oh, I used to run a 6-minute mile. Dude, that was 15 years ago and you're about 50 pounds heavier. It ain't going to happen.
How about you take a walk and get some sunlight on your face? Man? How about you give yourself some grace?
Yep.
And you actually give the one thing that we don't do, outside of a few, influencer examples that constantly live in that space and aggrandize themselves. How about you give yourself some credit for the time served and you realize that you don't have to be that anymore. And it was a big thing for me too. Like when I first got out, if I wasn't working out 6 days a week, which is my normal lifting and strength and conditioning cycle, and going to jiu-jitsu on at least 4 of those days, I thought I was a total failure. And my wife was like, you could just go to jiu-jitsu like twice a week. And on those days, you don't have to lift. And then you can just you're still working out 7 days a week. You can just pick different stuff. And I was like, what? Yeah. What? Oh, you mean be a loser? You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to do that. Yeah. You could just be your own self. And comparison is the thief of joy. You don't have to be these other people. You can just be the best of you.
Yeah. I know guys get wrapped up into that too. I mean, I've been guilty. I know, like I said, I'm sure you felt it too. It's just like,
I'm projecting.
Yeah. Like, oh my God. Yeah.
Oh my God. You know what I mean? Like, good thing for you, I'm jacked and tan. You know what?
Yeah. And what's the thing too is other guys too, I'm like, dude, like, as we're getting older with the trends too, but like talk about drinking, right? Like I used to drink a ton. It was fun, but it's gotten older. You get kids. You're like, dude, I can't do this anymore. And then you get your fitness goals. Well, it's like, dude, I used to drink one, like a Jameson whiskey, go to bed. That was it. It's like I stopped doing that, and it does. It improves your sleep patterns. Like
I got 2 hours worth of a presentation I could show you that I give to every single pilot that comes through, and I can tell you. Like I'm not here to tell you what to do. You can do whatever you want. I think the best way, and I found this through some real internal talks is, I have a lot of friends that have died. My friend Peter Cranes was a good man. He died in a training accident in Boise in 2019. Peter Cranes died in a training accident, and then the Cole Condiff thing happened, the whole Cole Condiff event. Those happened within a month each other from me. The last time that I saw Peter, we were in Las Vegas for our live draft because we all played in the same fantasy football league. We didn't know Peter was going to show up. He was a tier 1 guy. He showed up. We didn't know he was going to be there. The one guy that knew kept it a secret. The guy that married me, one of my best friends, Shane, didn't tell anybody he was coming. Peter just showed up poolside at a cabana in Las Vegas. We partied our absolute balls off for like 15 hours. The next morning, I woke up. Peter was getting ready to leave. The room was in absolute shambles. I mean, just like, it looked like a mass casualty scene. Guys were just hungover, sleeping on couches, like the Hangover movie sort of scenario, right? Peter was like, that was a good one. I gave Peter a hug. That was the last time I saw him. Said, I loved you. What I wouldn't give for the 15 hours before that to be sober and to have those memories live in my mind so that the last time that I saw my friend, I remembered it. I'm going to have to live with that for the rest of my life. I never want to do that again. I mean, my son wakes up at 5:30 in the morning. When I was still drinking, that little toddler would wake up and he would be like, Daddy, come and play with me. Or he'd wake up, he couldn't talk yet, but he would be like, and he'd be touching my face.
Yep.
And there were mornings that I was hungover and I didn't feel like it. What I wouldn't give to be able to get out of bed with him and go play and go have time with my son. And that's what made me stop drinking.
Yeah.
I can't do that anymore. And I just won't.
No, I agree with you. I'm the same way now too. I get up with the kids. It's like, yeah, it's you still want to feel like shit. But they're,
we're all tired.
We're all tired.
That's
man.
your job,
Yeah.
brother. You were designed for it.
Yeah, and it's the thing too is like, I'll have my one little margarita on a Friday night, and that's it.
Yep.
I'll have two. Next morning, I'm a little, so I always test the boundaries. I'm like, man, the second one I do, and I'm like, God, I shouldn't have done it.
There is a time and a place for it. I would never, and again, I would never. I tell people this all the time. I don't care. Sometimes when the pilots graduate from the U.S. Air Force Weapons School, they go out for patch night. Guess what happens on patch night? They all drink way too much. And there is a time and a place, as long as you're managing your relationship with alcohol and it's not negatively affecting your life. Man, there's sometimes I have beers with the boys. I got it. It's just now my beer doesn't have any alcohol in it. And I go home and get a good night's sleep.
Same.
And then I'm up for my son.
I get it. I 100% get it. Now, we, that we covered all that. Kind of cover your post-career, what's going on. One's ready. You've definitely touched it through everything we've talked about. We kind of dive into the section of one's ready, stuff you're doing. You're influencer now. We're talking about you crossed 100,000 on Instagram. I think I can officially call you an influencer. You're veteran Bushido, right? Is that
veteran
right?
Bushido brotherhood. Yeah.
And like the work you're doing, and I don't know, we could hit one or the other, but one's ready. I kind of wanted to talk about, especially with the podcast. Here we are on the podcast. When did you start that, and what was the the beginning of that? Why did you start it? And then I've seen some of the stuff you do. What do you guys do exactly? And then I see you guys are training guys. So get into a little more detail on because I think it's great. Like I kind of know what you guys are doing, but what are you doing specifically? And then also I think it's awesome you guys are helping train dudes for. Are you doing specific Air Force, or are you guys like, hey, some dude wants to go Ranger or SF, or do you guys do the gamut? On all that stuff.
So 2019, we had this crazy idea, like, hey, Peaches, myself, Trent Siegmiller, we are the One's Ready platform now. It started off, and I want to give all credit, Brian Silva, who had How to Be a PJ. He had this crazy idea that he was like, hey, we're answering all these same questions. We're on a bunch of different platforms, and it was always the same, 20 questions. What does a PJ even do? And what does a combat controller do? Are they just JTACs? Those questions that you had here, we got those same questions from hundreds of people, and we're just answering them on our own. And, Brian brought up, he was like, well, why don't we just have a podcast? We were all active duty, so there was a little bit of wackiness there. Like, how do we do it? How do we make it happen? But everything that we do arises from a need. And at the beginning of the platform, we were just like, listen, if we're open, we're honest, we're vulnerable, we're transparent, and we're authentic, people are going to resonate to this, because the one thing that I want to tell you is that with all of my failures and everything that I am, I'm just a normal dude. PJs are not, we call it Superman school, or colloquially it's been called Superman school. You're not superhero. You're not a different brand of human. I have the same genetic makeup as every other random Irish white guy from Northeast Ohio. I'm not particularly interesting or special in any regard, which means everybody out there could do this job. But number one, they're not aware of it, just like you. I didn't even, I was aware of PJs, but I don't know. I heard you guys get drowned at school, and I heard all these other crazy things. We're like, why don't we just we'll answer frequently asked questions. And then people that are making this decision, that 23% of people in America that qualify for service and think they might want to be a special operator, they should know about the goodness of the Air Force. They should know about all the good things that the Air Force and these communities specifically can bring to you. And the joke was, well, if we have the podcast, we won't have to answer the questions anymore. Newsflash, 7 years later, we're still answering the exact same questions to the same people, right? But it's important. And that just kind of grew into what we were doing now. And it's just telling people what exactly, assessment selection is not secret. This is not some thing behind a curtain where we can't tell you exactly what it is that you need to do. And if we know what the requirements are, well, then we can back it up and we can tell you how to train for the requirements and we can get you the information. And then it started branching out to where, okay, well, there's a bunch of career fields that support Air Force Special Warfare. And I bet you didn't know if you came in as an intel person that you could work with ground operators in the Air Force. I bet there's a whole group of people that would want to do that, but they just don't know about it. Yeah, I bet you didn't know as a vehicle maintainer, you get into the Air Force to be a vehicle maintainer and literally turn wrenches. Well, when those dudes work at an STS or at a rescue squadron, they drive boats, they act as OPFOR, they know how to program a radio, they can shoot heavy weapons, they can give maintenance on any one of the things that they can. You can get tandem jumps out of it, you can get cool, like when I was talking about going to Norway, I had a finance nerd that walked around with a sack full of cash and he would pay people for equipment that we needed, and we got to bring him to all the training events. That's ridiculous. That's so awesome that you get to do that, and people just didn't know it. So as kind of the umbrella grew, we kind of grew into this messaging platform where then we started having leadership ping us. And we'd be like, hey, man, we're having this problem with basic trainees that they don't know this basic fact. You guys are sort of the people that own the space. Like when people, and this isn't me talking, this is RAND in 2022 and 2024 did a study, something like 90% of special warfare, Air Force special warfare candidates, their primary source of information or how they heard about it was the One's Ready platform. And it just sort of ballooned. Yeah.
They had a report like One's Ready platform.
Well, and I mean, it is just a fact, but it does sound like me bragging. Like it's not like people are checking other nationwide recruiters have just added us. How did you hear about the Air Force? Friend, family, One's Ready platform, other. That's the space ownership that we just have. Like we're in the niche. So we just continued this thing, and it's kind of grown in this small niche of people that want to get in the Air Force as the home for where you learn about stuff. And it's highly valuable. We talk to, it's a way for not only the people that are in, a lot of times the people that are in, when you're in your career, you're too busy deploying and focus on your given task, and you have no idea what's going on down at training. When the Air Force decided to completely move away from the Indoc model to an attributes-based selection model, there was a lot of feelings on that. Because Indoc produced PJs for 50 years in the same way that we did it. That course was largely unchanged. Like we tweaked it and it always evolved, but it was largely the same. And if you said you went through Indoc, that meant something. And then when we changed to Air Force Assessment and Selection, Air Force Special Warfare Assessment and Selection, or ANS, there's a lot of feelings in the career field. And there's a lot of people that say, oh, bring Indoc back again, and this new course won't work. We found ourselves in the space where we're like the bridge, the conduit, we're the older guys that went through Indoc that are now the champions of what the new pipeline optimization looks like, and it's a way to keep the community connected. We talk to parents of these folks that are going in, because I know when I was young, I didn't know what being a PJ was. My mom sure didn't know. Imagine she has a place where she could be like, my son is in this school and he said this thing, what does it mean? You're gonna get a DM from myself or Peaches, and we're gonna go, here's what he means, here's what's next, here's what challenges he's facing, here's how you can support him. Wives get a hold of us, cross trainees that don't know how to get their package to get approved and get in. Sometimes they're unaware of a waiver. Their commander tells them one thing and we're like, no, totally, just show them this waiver and this will help your process out. We've become sort of the belly button for all of these things that are inside of Air Force Special Warfare. And it's just because we just decided not to quit. We for 7 years, we wake up at 6:30 on Saturday and Sunday and we record 2 or 3 episodes. And then we just got to this place where more people wanted to come on. And then we wanted to talk to other special operators. And we started to talk about, well, how is this CAG operator with 20 deployments, how is he the same as the PJ? What did they have in common? Because these are remarkably different people, but they did the same thing at the highest level. And when you start telling those stories, again, from the 5 pillars of open, honest, vulnerable, transparent, authentic, holy cow, this kid that never knew that these jobs existed suddenly started to think, wait a second, I could do that. And who knows, that person might be the next Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, or like Pararescueman, Chief Master Sergeant, SEAC number 4, Ramon Colon Lopez, old CeeLo, CZ. He achieved the highest enlisted position in the United States military, and he did it with a Maroon Beret on his head. There's no reason that any 17-year-old listening to our podcast right now can't do it. Or 32-year-old that thinks they're too old, and we can help them with a training plan and tell him the challenges that he's going to get with his family, with his everything, to support him to get him through there. So from an educational standpoint, that's kind of where Operator Training Summit grew. There's a bunch of people out there that do a bunch of different training programs, and they're all great. Like if you want to show up to one of SOCOM athletes' Hell Nights, they're going to put you through 48 hours of the hardest training that you're ever going to get. That's a reach back moment. That's proving to you that you can do something hard, and when the chips are down, you know how you're going to react. That's super valuable. We're on the other end of it. What we've seen is a deficiency in the way that people are preparing. They think they're doing a push-up correctly. They've never been evaluated by an operator. So they come to me and they're like, I got 75 push-ups. And I go, cool, 2-minute clock, go. Time, you actually have 42 push-ups because I would have taken 32 of them away because you've been training incorrectly the entire time. What you're eating like, what you're sleeping like. Do you know how to ruck? Has anybody ever taught you how to run? Has anybody taught you ever how to pack a ruck? You're doing all these pool events that you're seeing on YouTube, and you're doing a mask and snorkel recovery. Do you know there's a way more efficient way to do it where it's not going to take you that much time? That's where we live with Operator Training Summit. We try to align it to about a month before the kids ship, so they get their date. We usually, all of our courses are aligned a month before that. There is a cadence to these training events, and unless you have people, myself, Chris Thomas, Trent Siegmiller, combined, we have something like 30 years in the AETC instructional space as instructors. Trent was one of the people that wrote the Career Field Education and Training Plan for Special Reconnaissance. I'm a master instructor. Chris is a master instructor down at the selection. We can take you through a pool event that mimics the cadence of it. We can pull the curtain back and go, hey guys, just like you were talking about earlier, it feels like chaos. It's actually very structured. Just like in The Dark Knight, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, what does the Joker say to Two-Face when he's in the hospital? A plan, no matter how terrifying, is more comfortable than chaos. If everything goes to plan, even if the plan is terrifying, nobody panics because it's part of the plan. But the second that you do something outside of the plan, what happens? Chaos. Tight. We'll show you the plan so that you can turn the volume down on all of this. We can show you all of these things that you know, when you show up and you have no training to these events, and the instructor's like, you have to do this thing specifically. You have to come up with your right hand above your head, looking at a 45-degree angle, simulating that you're holding on to your die belt or your BC. You can't push off the bottom of the pool. You have to tread at the top, and you have to come up. You have to say, okay, Sergeant. All your fingers have to be touching. You have to maintain a perfect circle and maintain eye contact with the guy. When you're in the pool down in San Antonio for the first time at the Maltz Aquatic Training Center, you don't have the bandwidth to take all that information in. So let's give you the information and let's help you train. Think of it like the NFL Combine. Are the NFL Combine events secret? No. There's entire training organizations that will train you how to do the best at those events, because we want to show the cadre at those selection events the best version of yourself. So if we give you the guidance, the education, and the continued mentorship, when people come to an OTS, they get added to a group chat. That group chat is 400 people big, of OTS graduates that are training together all over the country, sharing their training wins and talking to people about where they are in the process, and you immediately get onto a huge team with a wide swath of information to get you everything you need to know so that you can just focus on performing and not having to learn and perform at the same time, because we don't do well as that as humans. No. That's our remarkable difference from everybody else. Yes, it's going to be hard. No, we're not going to smoke you. We turn the volume up very little. Like in the intensity realm, we do a couple events that turn it up to like a 5. But then we stop, we turn the volume all the way down, and we go, hey, here's how you performed, here's how you could be better, here's what the instructors are looking for, here's what these attributes mean, and here's how you do it. We have one of the smartest endurance athletes in the world, Taylor Starch, record holder, currently does everything. Like if he tells you about running an ultra marathon, he can show you his time from last weekend where he dropped a 60-miler. And he can tell you, this is why I'm telling you it's important. He can look at your hips and he's going to tell you your hips are trash. So let's fix your mobility. Because if your mobility is a little bit better, especially in your hip, your lower leg, you're going to avoid musculoskeletal injury. Like if we put a huge ruck on your back and expect you to ruck super fast, and you've never done that before, you're going to break the structure of your body unless you've trained for it. We give you the information to train correctly. And because if you're training correctly on your own, by the time you get there, you're going to be light years ahead of your peers. And we're seeing that with every person that goes from OTS into ANS. We have guest instructors that come out from Silver Star recipient, combat controllers, Air Force crosswinners, recipients, all of these guys that have done the thing that just care about pouring their experience into these folks. The entire GWAT generation is the most combat tested generation on the face of the planet. Unless they tell their stories, unless they pour that information into the younger generation isn't going to know what to do when bullets start coming in. But they will now, because we're getting that information out and we're doing it early.
That's cool. So you guys seen, like, what's your success rate? I mean, have you guys, like, kids going in that are, or even like enlisted guys that are like, holy shit, if I want to go to become a PJ, they can come to you guys. What's that like? You know, what is that success rate, right? Like, you know,
just started the program, so it's less than a year old.
Got it.
So the pipelines are so long that we have a long time for people. And a lot of times people come at the very beginning of their process. I'd say about 50% of the people think they want to do it, and they want to get the information to train, to get ready to go to their IFT, and then get through. The best feedback that we've gotten is actually from our friends at the instruction, and they can tell you when we run a pool session, I can tell who's been in an OTS and who hasn't. I can see the people that already know how to do these things and they react appropriately in the moment, and almost to a man, they've attended one of your courses. That's the best piece of feedback that we've gotten.
Nice.
I am highly interested in that success rate because I think it's going to be high once we start graduating people through. And we get messages. There's people in the pipeline right now that are through assessment selection that keep us updated on their current courses. But again, it's a 2-year pipeline, and it's not a real thing until you put that beret on, and it takes 2 years.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of lag in our success rate.
Yeah. I was going to say that first assessment or that in-doc phase, like the pretty high success rate.
Assessment and selection,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. But again, the Zulu course is immediately after that, and that's another huge kick in the teeth. So, and that takes a little bit longer to see through.
Because there's some other ones that exist for like SFAS, right? Like,
there's a bunch of them.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
Yeah. And again,
because I've seen some of that on Instagram. So
sure. And there's a bunch of these too. And I love the like, oh, these guys are another modern day night project where they're just yelling at kids. Like, people came to us right away as soon as we started the platform. They're like, when are you guys doing in-person training? And we resisted that, no kidding, for 5 years. Because we couldn't find it. We were like, we don't want to do a reach back moment event. That's just not where we live. Trent, Peaches, myself, Chris, Taylor, we are not the people. Like, I can smoke any group of people. It takes me about 10 minutes. You know why? Because I'm not doing it. I'm just sitting there, and I can make you tired. I can take you outside right now and just give you a list of exercises and be like, keep going, keep going. I can take you to failure. And that is valuable. Like, if you got further than you thought, I could coach you to get further. But at the end, you're sore and you're tired, and you may have learned something about your ability to continue in misery. But what about tomorrow when you're not sore anymore? What value are you getting then? For us, the value that you're getting is you can change your entire training program with the input, both with what are we focusing on? Like, for instance, people that go to Air Force assessment selection, if you're a faster runner, you have like a 95% graduation rate, right? I can draw a line, and by the way, this is really interesting to think about. It doesn't matter what the standard is. Say the standard is 10 minutes for a mile. The people that run 9 minutes for a mile have an exponential increase in their success rate. So our standard is usually 7-minute miles. Guess what the people who run 6-minute miles do at the back end? They graduate way more. People that exceed that standard, faster runners, typically make it. Faster runners, faster swimmers. So if we're thinking about a training thing and you only have a certain amount of time in your day, people that are doing all these crazy WaterCon events, okay, that's like one small part of your thing. How much time are you running? How much time are you doing cardio? How much time are you spending time on feet to avoid musculoskeletal injuries? Those are the things that we can give, like the no kidding big problems. We've taken all of the big problems from the training organization and all of our experience, and we fixed every single one of those problems and given you a long timeline to fix those problems, to prepare and come in. But it's taken off. We have our next one August 13th and 14th in San Diego. September, we go out to Pennsylvania, so September 12th and 13th. September 12th and 13th is also the Veteran Bushido Brotherhood Throwdown. We do it every time, so I'll be at both events. I'm trying to figure out how to be in 2 places at once, but I'll figure it out. And then October, Miami of Ohio is almost 100%, and then we'll probably run another one in Vegas here in the winter, so November-ish time.
So those are people, they just show up to these locations and they're like, hey, I'm either new or they just want to get the training, or they're maybe going to ship off. So like, do you see guys then that repeat? They fly to you guys each
multiple
time?
times.
Yeah, like
we've had people that have come to 2 or 3 that are in their training and they want to come and keep, because we change it every single time. If there's any requirements that change, we are the people that know about those change first because of our connective tissue to the training organization. We immediately change the course to answer those problems. When instructors call us, and they do often, and they say, hey, these guys suck at this, we go, okay, we're going to devote more time to that. The next people that you see aren't going to suck at this anymore, at least not from us.
So when they do start those events, what are you guys typically doing? They're like, hey, we're going to work on push-ups. We're going to show you how to do this. The technical, get your mind ready for this, that type of stuff. Do you actually like, hey, run time, we're getting on a track, go, like that type of stuff?
So we have a land day and a water day. So land day is everything from push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups. They go through a no-kidding evaluation from people that have worked, like myself, Trent, Peaches, people that have worked in the actual, Chris Thomas, in the actual instructional thing. And we hold them to a very high standard for what that form looks like. And we give them an accurate evaluation of where we are for all the calisthenics. There's a rucking block. Taylor Starch handles the running block and the mobility block. Taylor Starch will absolutely blow your mind. One session with him, he calls it, you're getting starched. He will crunch your hips in such a way. You will do mobility that will leave you sweating. At 130 heart rate, it will be the hardest thing that you've ever done, and it's just stretching and moving and opening your hips and moving your body in such a way. But you will feel an immediate benefit from that. With the expectation is if you follow that prescription, you're going to be more mobile, more durable, harder to kill, harder to injure, sort of thing. We go through mindset. We have it's an attributes-based selection model, so we have entire educational blocks on, okay, we're saying we're looking for teamwork. Well, what are the cadre actually evaluating? What does good teamwork look like to a cadre? More importantly, here's the behaviors that the cadre are looking for that means you're not being a good teammate. Are you getting your gear ready first and not helping your teammates out when there's heat mitigation gear or heavy gear that you're carrying? The cadre are evaluating you 24/7 down there. They can tell when you don't run to pick up that piece of equipment that's heavy because you're tired. And they mark it in their little book. Candidate number 14 had a chance to pick this up. He didn't do it. They mark it down. That goes into your evaluation folder. That's everything from grit, determination, teamwork, communication, interpersonal skills, these 9 attributes that we're assessing for. We open the curtain and tell them exactly what the cadre are looking for and how to do it. And then how to express it in the best possible way. And they're getting accurate feedback on that stuff. The land day to include mindset, guest speakers, all this stuff. Kids always want to hear war stories, so we make sure to bring in people to tell them war stories. And that just is what it is. They need to hear it from the old guys, right? And then the water day is everything in the pool. We spend hours on the smallest parts that people just don't understand for a reason. For instance, for an underwater. Underwaters are a big part of this. A lot of people quit on underwaters. You have to do 5 underwaters, 25 meters, on a 1:30 clock. So the clock says go, you have to do a 25-meter underwater, you swim back, the clock is running the entire time. The second that clock hits 1:30, you have to go on your second one. If you're inefficient at underwaters, that's going to be very, very hard for you to do. We spend like 40 minutes just teaching people how to push off a wall. We take people, the flags on a pool, we take people and I have them show me, hey, push off the wall, show me how it is that you get in your body position, no pull, you're just going to streamline off the wall. Typically their head comes up at that flag. After about 30 minutes of instruction, just talking about your push with nothing else different, I can get those people's feet to clear the flag. Their head is now coming up at 12 meters. Without doing anything other than just some instructional input and really digging down onto the fundamentals of their movement, I can get them almost halfway to the pool and they've expended 0 oxygen. They've done 1 squat, 1 push off the wall underneath the water. I can save you energy. I can save you oxygen. I can save you time. I can make you more efficient. And what that does is it turns the training volume down. Where you used to get tired and you'd have to get into the fight in your second underwater, I can extend that timeline and now you're not feeling that way until the 4th or the 5th underwater. I can't help you when it comes time to get into the fight because you're going to have to. But we do have a mindset block that has a bunch of different people and a bunch of different ways of how they get there and how to keep yourself in control. Everything from breath work to pull yourself into the window of tolerance to deregulation to how to communicate when you're tired. All of these things make a better assessment and selection candidate.
That's pretty cool.
It's so fun. And like I say at every single class, man, I get so much. I love being an instructor. Like Peaches laughs. He's like, man, when you get in an instructor Aaron mode, he's like, it's almost like you're a different person. I just lean into it. I care about instruction and I care about these kids. I want them to succeed. Trent does, Chris does, Taylor does, Peaches does. We all do. we want them to succeed. We want them to crush it.
Yeah.
And we just need to give them the information. They just need somebody to teach them how to do it. Like when you have a little puppy, what's the easiest way to potty train a puppy? You have an older dog. He follows the older dog out. The puppy goes, oh, it's time to go outside and pee. Well, we're the older dogs. We're not in the arena anymore. But I can sure as hell show you how to do it, how to avoid those mistakes, from training to mindset to nutrition to fitness to breath work to any of these other things. I can teach you how to show the cadre who you really are as a person. And if you have the raw material, you're going to succeed.
That's awesome. Well, like I said, it's that flow of information in this era. Like, you know, you kind of envy some of these kids. You're like, man.
You have to meet them where they're at, man.
Yeah.
Like, if that's the game, if they need it, like, the number one thing that these darn kids do, right, is they just ask why. I'll answer why all the time. I can tell you the historical reasoning why we do 13 pull-ups. I can tell you where that standard came from. And then I can help your pull-ups be better. And then I can make sure that the cadre don't take any away, because I can tell you to perfect form. I can teach you what it feels like to do a perfect one, so that when you're at home and I'm not there, you can do a pull-up and you go, nope, Aaron wouldn't count that. Perfect. Train it right. We have, you know, one of the many sayings that we use is we only train 2 ways at Operator Training Summit. We do it the right way, and we do it again. That's it.
That's awesome. So you got any of the instructors, like currently, they're like, motherfuckers. They get like perfect 13s all the time, like, son of a bitch.
Son of a man, this guy crushed. But, you know, and it's stuff you wouldn't even think about. Like, people are just like, well, yeah, the push-up is simple. You're just going to do a push-up until you can't do anymore. What if I told you if you did like 40 push-ups, you took a 3-second rest, and then you did 10 push-ups, and you took a 3-second rest, then you did 10 push-ups, and you did a 3-second rest, and then you did 5s, and you did a 3-second rest, and then you did 5s and a 3-second rest? What if I told you you could PR your push-up event simply by blocking it up and gaming it, because you know what you have to do, and just having a plan before you go in? As opposed to stepping up to an evaluation and like,
go for it.
Don't know how many I'm going to get today. No. I can tell you exactly how you know how to get there, because you've trained and you've earned it. You've earned every single rep that you've done, because you've done it the right way. The instructors can't take any away from you, and you can impose your will on the event. And that's the remarkable feedback that we've gotten from the students, is they went from, I feel like the event was happening to me, and now I feel like I'm driving the event. Now I'm so fresh. One of the students looked at me and he goes, dude, I was so fresh. I got back to the wall and I was staring at the instructor, waiting on him to tell me to go. And I was like, what is this guy waiting for? And it was because he was ready to go, but the instructor, because he was bound by time, had to look at his watch and be like, well, you got 20 seconds. And the guy was completely fresh and ready to go. Like, that was his big win. He was like, I've never done that before. He's like, usually I get back and I'm just fighting to get my heart rate down and trying visualization, and it's not working. He was like, I trained with you guys for a weekend. The next time that I went on this event, I got back and I was like, well, are you going to tell me to go? And it wasn't time yet. That's amazing, because that's the goal, is self-coaching. Our goal is not, you can do it when we're telling you. Our goal is you can do it by yourself, and then you can do it for yourself, and then you can go on. I'm going to hold the door open. I can't go in there anymore, but you can. Now go in.
That's cool. It's benefits of Air Force. They want to help you out.
We do, yeah. Well, our community does it too, and a lot of our community has come back like, oh, you guys are charging money to high school kids to do this stuff, and be like, hey, first of all, it's not high school kids, brother. Second of all, are they successful or are they not? Like, and by the way, I've had a guy say that, and then in the next breath be like, what? But it is really cool when you guys are just. So if you need any guest instructors, let me know. And I'm like, oh, okay. So
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like that flow of information is awesome for this generation. Like, you know, like you bitch about them, you know, all the social media and everything, but those guys that want to do what we didn't have that information. Like I didn't, God knows we didn't, you know, and and it's like, I had no idea what was going on. You just ran harder, you gritted it out, and maybe, God willing, you made the not say made the standard, but you like just did enough.
When the smoke cleared, if you were standing, great, you won. But you know what? Like, man, I interact with these kids on a daily basis, and for as much as we bemoan Gen Z, Gen Alpha, the Zoomers, you know, all these folks, I got to be honest with you, man, it's the same people. They're just like we are. Like, if you just talk to them for a second, these kids try, they want to do it. They want to be here to serve. They want to serve their country. They just communicate in a different way. And if you meet them where they're at, oddly enough, they'll take your input, and then you can actually mold them. And then you can actually, as opposed to just be, oh, these kids don't get it. Well, did you try? Did you try to help them get it? Or did you just complain about them?
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. I think it's cool because like any kid that can go on Instagram and be like, what's this one? Oh, I want to do PJ or I want to do this. And you're like, well, one's ready as this. It's like, well, all right, well, if they're coming to town or maybe I'll watch their videos or just that flow of like, these are the gates. Like 13 pull-ups. They would have never known that. They would have showed up and been like, oh shit, we got to do pull-ups? All right, well, I think I'll try to rip these out now. Like, you know, just that flow of information of access to like, what are we doing next? What are we doing next? You know?
We're allowed to tell you the exact evaluated events to the standard. Half the time we read it off the same script that the instructors of the assessment selection do. You know why? They gave it to us. They exist. You can Google them. There's no reason. It's the NFL Combine. You know you're going to do a 225-pound bench press. So let's train for a 225-pound bench press and then go crush that event.
That's pretty awesome. All right, so we got the ones ready. And then Aaron Loves America.
Oh, boy. You're going to get demonetized right away, bro.
Yeah, no, dude. So what is the, I mean, we've talked, like I said, we touched a little bit on what you do career-wise. We can talk about that too as well.
Yeah.
But you said you kind of, you know, we can go, again, tell me where you want to go with this, but kind of getting a little bit into the politics. I know you're in the influencer phase now, 100,000. Aaron Loves America. I've seen some of your stuff. You're on Fox News. I believe a lot of it was that for the down pilot Iran stuff. Yeah. What's going on with Aaron Loves America? What's your plan with the politics and the
here's the
social
thing.
commentary?
I don't have a plan.
Yeah.
Meta demonetized me a long time ago for saying just true and objectively obvious things on the internet. I don't make money from the account, and I don't care. A friend asked me the other day, I was catching up with him, and he was like, hey, man, what's this thing about? And I was like, it's super weird. I've had the exact same principled positions on nearly everything. I am a conservative. I'm near constitutional literalist in everything that I do. I think the founders got a lot of stuff right. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights are the golden apple inside of the silver frame that we have in America, the Western cultures and values that we have that have led us to becoming the hegemonic superpower of the world and the greatest benevolent force that this universe has ever seen for humanity. It's weird. I'm the exact same person that I was 20 years ago with the exact same views, and somehow now I'm hyperbolically far right for saying the exact same thing that I think are just objectively true. Like all humans are equal, created by a creator that endows you certain inalienable rights, and you should force the government who operates by the will of your consent and your consent only to bend to your will for the overall collective good of the country. Seems pretty standard, but I get death threats on the page for saying that now because people feel some type of way about it. People have often asked, social media is a weird space because you have to condense really nuanced contextual topics into 90-second sound bites. Yeah. The only way that you can do that is by being hyperbolic in your positioning in order to drag people into the center, into a conversation. I have one friend of mine that is on the complete other end of the spectrum all the time. He and I have great conversations that anybody else would look at him and they'd say, that's an argument, you guys hate each other. Yeah. That's not true. But one of his things is like, well, why don't you speak to anybody on the other side of the aisle? And I'm like, well, that's because you're operating from a bad premise. Your a priori assumption is that I want to talk to the people that I'm ideologically opposed to. Progressivism is literally destructive in nature. If you want to conserve things, you want to take the best parts of what we've done and you want to continue that because that got us to where we are. Progressive, or being on the left, literally came out of the French Revolution. The people that sat on the literal left side, they wanted to kill the king. They wanted to resist the things that got their country to where it was. They want to take all the morals and values that until very recent history were established natural law and these things that are objectively true, and they wanted to burn all that to the ground for a future utopia, and unfortunately there's no way to get there. I'm not having the conversation with those people. It's the 80-20 rule. 10% of my followers, 10,000 people, no big deal. 10,000 people, they're going to agree with me absolutely no matter what I say, right? I can say anything, and as long as it's sort of meat and potatoes for them, they're not going to care. 10% of those people that are ideologically opposed to me, they are going to resist me no matter what I say, even if I'm right. But the 80% in the middle that are unsure about which idea is better, I want to inflame these people that are ideologically opposed to me so that they tell me their principled position. I want to show my principled position is better than theirs, supported by fact and reason and logic. And then I want the people in the middle to decide which idea is better. And you can only do that from a hyperbolic adversarial position. I understand that rubs people the wrong way. But I'd like to think that in any topic, we could have a Jeopardy round where you bring up any topic that is big in the world today, And I can give you a principled position rooted in the history of this country, supported by our founding documents and the smartest people in the world, in a simple bumper statement that has nothing to do with religion and everything to do with a simple moral framework that got us to where we are today. I can do that with absolutely everything. My opponents and people that I've debated in the space, in the comments, on shows, those people cannot do that, and they have to resort to attacking me as a person or to a larger system or structure, which I don't adhere to. When those two ideas are presented, I urge the people that see that, pick which idea is better. And at this point, something that I literally do as a side quest that I don't care about, like you said, influencer, and if cringe could power if we could turn that into usable, clean energy, I could power Las Vegas with it because I reject it. However, 100,000 people at this point have been like, your ideas are better, and these ideas suck. And unless we do something drastic, just like in Minnesota, the tide is sort of turning because it finally got bad enough. I'm here to highlight the things that are now bad enough. And I want to say that they're competing ideas and they're inside of ideologies. The actual word ideology came out of the French Revolution. John Adams wrote about this extensively. When those ideas are presented, I want to say, well, which idea is better for America? Which idea gets us, humanity, to the next step, and which one is dependent upon the idea that we tear down all of the institutions and we disregard truth, and then we build something that we've never proven, and we've proven in the small cases that it never works. Marxism and socialism are great examples. It's very, it's very trendy right now for Hassan Piker to go on and talk about how Marxism and socialism is great. He is a Champagne socialist that was born in America. He moved to another country. He grew up. He lives in a $1 million mansion, and he travels to Cuba, and he talks about the impacts of capitalism, right? Yep. When he benefits from capitalism himself, and he wants to tear down the institutions that made him rich for a system that has killed 150 million people worldwide and has never succeeded in a single instance, whether big or small. I think that idea is bad for America. I think that free market capitalism, conservatism, independent rights and freedom, big R rights, endowed to you by a creator, not a government, I think that those ideas are what got us here today and what can get us to the next 250 years of a republic that was supposed to fail 250 years ago, because republics aren't supposed to work over 200 people, and every regime topples in 250 years. The American experiment has proven through a history of performance that it is the archetypical example of the way that everybody should do it. We are the city on the hill. And to ignore, for all of our scars and all of our problems, to ignore the benevolent good that America is and these ideologies espouse for a progressive ideology that has only led to death, destruction, poverty, and the rank degeneracy that we see today. I think that my ideas compete pretty well. And the only thing that you have left is to call me whatever ist or phobe you feel. So let's just put the ideas out there and let's talk about it. The other distinct thing that I do, and I've actually turned down debates before. I won't put their names out.
You're very well spoken. You're like intelligent about that. I like this.
The other thing that I can do is that I don't have to do this when we're talking. You would be surprised. Let me just pull the curtain back on all these debates. These little young, pasty, look like cottage cheese built kids that get on the internet and scream into it and always talk about this stuff. They have teams of people that are working and they're looking up facts and they're trying to do stuff, and they have little earpieces in or they're on a chat. So when they're having these video debates, they have literal teams of people that are attacking the other person's claims and giving them stuff. I have always agreed to every debate in open space live, and I say, no fact checking. We're going to put our phones down and we're just going to talk about ideas. I can do it. Can you? Do you know how many people have ever said that they would do that?
Zero. A
guy that goes on the Tim Pool podcast about, I don't know, every fifth week or something. I was in short talks with his team to go debate.
Tim Pool?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I said that I would debate one of those guys who was on there. He's been on
one
there.
of his buddies or
no, not one of his friends.
Oh, just
a guy that he's had on there that has a different political opinion than mine.
Yep.
I was approached because I have a big enough name now, but now I'm a little bit of a target, and I say everything. We'll do it live. You can't use a phone. You have to talk in an open thing, and people from the audience can kind of like fact check you at the same time. He denied my request because he was unwilling to have an open, honest, good faith conversation where he cannot have an advantage. I'm willing to talk about this stuff anytime. Because again, I can boil everything down to a simple boilerplate. That's it.
It's good stuff though.
Well, It's something. I'll tell you what.
Have you? I mean, like, you know, I wouldn't say that because that in itself can be a career field. You know, we've seen.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at because you know I'm sure we've all heard the same people. You have your Douglas Murrays, you have your Coleman Hughes, you have your Jordan Petersons, like in the conservative space. You know, I mean, have you been approached by any of those? Or I shouldn't say of like, you know, do you? I mean, those guys make a living off of this.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
Are you? I don't know, make a circuit run on that kind of stuff. You
It's
know,
too
like, hey,
cringy, man, because it's so gross. It's so bad. And I think I told you, like, when you pull the curtain back, like, I've been in rooms with these people and talked to them. So not only about 90% of the time, these people don't actually live the thing. Like Hassan Piker is a great thing.
Oh yeah, we know. Yeah.
Marxism, like look at Bernie Sanders. Everybody, you know, socialist and high minimum wage.
Yes.
Brother, you got 3 beach houses, and one of them is on the water that you said global warming is going to raise the sea levels and nobody can live there, but you bought beachfront property for your 3rd house.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's not a good faith conversation. Yeah. When you're just spouting headlines at me and talking points at me and you yourself don't do it, that's not a good faith conversation. Like, why would I entertain that if you don't live it myself? The things that I say, I actually live. One of my favorite malphors, which is you take a statement or a commonly used phrase and you simply adjust it for your own use. There are people out there that'll say that they'll die on the hill that they have, right? Like socialism and Marxism is best, and this progressive nature and the degeneracy that comes along with it from having, you know, no moral framework and no objective authority. They're willing to die on that hill. Okay, well, I'm willing to fucking kill on mine because I live it. When I say that all kids should be protected and that every single person that harms a child should be attached to a millstone and thrown into the ocean, I mean it, and I'll kill you for it. I'll kill for my kids. Yeah. Like people that say I die for my kids, I would die, but you will too.
Yeah.
I would die for someone else's kids, but so will you. I mean that. And I mean that across all things. The worst part about my social media thing is that people try to ascribe other people's actions to my positions, and they'll say, well, obviously you support conservatives, which means you're a Republican, and these Republicans were in the Epstein files, so that's not true. I'm like, no. Simple boilerplate. If you hurt a kid, you should die, to quote Kevin Gates, the rapper. Yeah. He was on with Shannon Sharp. Yeah. Love that clip. Yeah. He goes, if you touch a kid, you're supposed to die. Yeah. And Shannon Sharp's like, whoa, Kev, you sound like you're proud of that. He's like, I am. I'm proud of that. Yeah. He's like, I thought we were supposed to let God handle it. He goes, who? No, you touch a kid, you're supposed to die. I will kill on that hill. I promise you. And I live it in real life. These other people that will do it in the same breath as they will say, oh, well, you support these people and you're a pedo supporter. At the same time, Tim Walz will pardon a person for raping violently a 10-year-old. He was in office. Eric Swalwell, Graham Plattner, a Nazi, and a guy that says that he is a progressive poster child. By the way, he was the biggest names in the world, supported Glenn Plattner and the other guy I was just talking about. I'm blanking on his name. Swalwell. Yeah. Those two were supported by the boilerplate Democratic Party, and were both turned out to be creepy rapists that will pardon literal rapists. Okay? So I'm not holding you to account for them. I'm saying all of them. Yeah. Right?
No, I agree with you. I think it's fun we're talking about this because I don't get to debate or talk about it often, but I listen to some of those podcasts, you know, and conservatives or whatever. And
by the way, there's problems on that side of the fence.
Oh, there is.
The same people that say all these things, the same people that are like, well, I'm a conservative and I have conservative values. They're also on Grindr every time that they go to fucking Tampa for their little thing. And I can tell by the usage. That's completely fair to say because it's true. There are people out there that say a thing and they're doing it for clicks and likes. Yeah. It's gross. It's gross.
Well, I was going to say to you, you know, speaking of the history of the debating, but what's your thoughts? And, you know, it's becoming concerning is the DSA, the socialist mark, because we used to make fun of that. Like I always say, I'm sure, you know, we were all living different lives 15 years ago.
Oh,
right?
Sure.
And this is before I met my wife, and I always say things are always pre-Trump or post-Trump.
The most polarizing thing in history.
2016, and I always tell, and I agree with some of my buddies who were like, man, yeah, it was just a different world. You know, it truly was. Oh, yeah. You know, and
man, when Harambe died in 2016, changed a lot of stuff, brother.
Exactly. So it was like, but I remember the 2010 eras and in all, you know, 2016s or you know the 2010s, and it was like if you brought a lot of this stuff up to people, they'd be like, you're out of your mind. You know, hey, I'm going to force men to play in women's NCAA. Oh, by the way, they're going to recognize them and give them the actual championships. People back in 2010 be like, you're out of your mind. And by the way, it not even crossed anyone's mind.
Right.
Because that was insane.
Because it was so far beyond the pale.
So far beyond the pale. And now you go, okay, so these things have now gone, they were beyond the pale, become fringe, main, and now platformed. Like that was 2024's big thing was we need to have men and women's sports. And the Republicans are like, can we just not do that?
It's the slippery slope fallacy in real life every single day.
But now we're seeing the Marxism. I just call it straight out. It's communism. It's just it's seeping through the oh no, it's not. It's socialism. It's Marxism. It's communism. You're speedballing straight to communism.
Socialism is the stepping stone to communism.
Exactly.
And it's wrapped up in the color revolution, which is quite clearly what we're going through. Like if you don't understand history, the same thing happened in Russia. You can look at the exact same thing that happened for the entire color revolution that happened. It started off with, well, we just want you to respect these views. Okay, now we just want a little political power, and now we want these views to be codified in your law. Okay, now that we have a little bit more power, here's what we need. If you don't celebrate it, we're going to punish you for it. And I can speed run all the way right now to Austin, Texas, and I can pull up the video of the cop that said that if you talk and your words offend somebody, that policeman is going to write you a ticket for offending somebody else. Yep. I'm offended is the world's least useful statement. It does nothing. I like cottage cheese for dinner.
And you see what's going on like in the UK too with the it's like that's scary. And by the way, 10 years ago that wasn't a thing. Nope. You know what I mean? Like the speed run. I like it with the speed running to what's happening now. Maybe because it's information flow is that things move faster, but things can also change faster. So it's like you see us heading into 2024. You see, boom, we can at least write it, and then it's like it shifts so quickly. I mean, we're seeing things play out, and I think maybe this is something that it kind of concerns me, but it should concern people. It does concern me the way that party's going, like with the DSA, but I have hope only because in America and in the time that we live in, our information flow is so much higher. We also have a different constitution. We're not Russians back in the color. You know what I mean? I know what you mean, like the color revolution. We're not. It's not. Those countries in that time frame were almost ripe for the picking. You know, common people don't have the knowledge that they have now. You know what I mean? Like the average person in America is richer, smarter, well-fed, typically more intelligent than say other parts of the world. You know, like our poor people are obese and have cell phones. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We have air conditioning, in our homeless
and they
shelters.
use their cell phones to talk about how good socialism is.
Exactly,
Like it's the most ridiculous thing. I say it all the time, like to people on the internet, like I hate it here. I hate this timeline. What are we talking? Because again, my views have largely not changed my entire adult life. It's just that the other side has gone so far to the left. They have gone so far toward these ideologies that now me being in the center, they're like, look how far right you gone. Be like, brother, I've remained static. Yeah.
And that's something too. I feel like also that's I talked about this with my buddy Rudy. He's a comedian now, but he was a big 93X was our big rock station and stuff like that. So that's what they called it. And I heard him on the radio. My wife was a fan of him. I met him when I was in film school, and so we become friends. He came on the podcast this last year, but we talked about this, and this is my own thing I've been thinking about for a while, but it's the social contract that gets manipulated and that gets taken advantage of. And I've talked with my wife about this and friends too, and I think people need, we're discussing, I'm glad we're talking about this, it's like, let's talk about this, because I think this is something that a lot more people have to bring up or just enact in their own life, that social contract. Well, you have to say, no, that's wrong.
It's a social fabric.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you ever heard the term suicidal empathy?
Oh, yeah.
Made popular by Gad Saad.
Yep,
suicidal empathy. The barbarians are at the gate, and we're worried about offending them with pronouns.
Exactly.
That's where we are in America.
And tearing into the social fabric, all that stuff. I've absolutely heard that. I listen to him all the time. And so I think that's where a lot of this starts, but we have I'm Midwest, we're Minnesota nice. That's that's literally our motto. It's I think we have it on signs, which is fine, because 10 years ago, for the last 100 years, it's been a great motto. And another thing, Prince said this, the artist, he's like, it used to be, it's cold in Minnesota, but keeps the shitty people out. You're like, it creates hard people, typically pretty Midwest nice, but now you're starting to see things unfold in a way that it's just like, okay, people have taken advantage of that social contract, and it's happening all around America. It's happening all around the world much faster because their systems are weak. They're almost built on sticks, where at least we have a good foundation that keeps us in check.
Well, that foundation is built by the largest number of gun ownerships and a history of independent rights and people that will stand up and fight for it.
Exactly.
That's where we were born.
Yep. And then things move so quickly. That's why I see this, but I see why socialism or the communism works so quickly. The DSA coming up in the last it's honestly like a year. You've gone in 1 year. You've seen people the Bernie Bro stuff, and now people are like, well, yeah, they say DSA. I was like, the fuck is a DSA? And then literally like a day later, like I'm watching a clip on YouTube, I'm like, the fuck is DSA? Like somebody's like, oh, I'm working with the DSA, and I'm like.
And now 3 candidates have achieved office under the DSA platform in New York.
Exactly.
Let's see how that's going to work out.
Yeah. And that's a beauty about America.
Thank goodness for federalism.
Yeah. Yep.
And we're going to have a very, I'll tell you what, like the funniest thing that's seen is like, oh, Mom Donnie, I'm blanking on the term. He balanced the budget.
Oh no, yeah.
Oh, did he? Did he get an $8 billion grant from Albany to make his books look clean? You know how that is a ticking time bomb for New York. But
that's
again,
for 1 year, by the way.
That's the beauty of federalism. You look. California has done the same thing, but because of California's GDP, they're able to take the fraud, they're able to take the mismanagement, they're able to take a $7 billion rail project that hasn't made 25 feet of rail in the entirety of its system, hundreds of billions in fraud in Minnesota. That's the beauty of federalism. Is that we're going to have a very real talk of like, and you go back to the founding of America, why should Virginia pay for Rhode Island's debts? That was a huge problem, especially in Alexander Hamilton. I know everybody loves the musical. That guy was a traitor as fuck. You guys don't know this, but Alexander Hamilton worked behind John Adams and raised his own army. And outside of the actual Constitution, he wanted to have his own army and go do it. And he was against the president of the United States. And that's what led to the shootout with him and Burr. And then Burr killed him for it. He was the villain. Disney and Lin-Manuel Miranda pulled one over on you because Alexander Hamilton was a piece of shit. He made the Fed. Anyway. But you look at those things, and federalism is a perfect system to highlight, like, hey, you can make your own choice on this one, New York. But you made your bed, now you're going to have to lie in it, and and I'm totally willing to wait. Yeah. I'm totally willing to wait for it. Because when you come back to the federal government, you're like, we need a bailout. That ain't how it works.
That ain't going to work. No. And I think, too, I think that the one reason why I'm a little more concerned with it is because everything's always dressed up in niceties. It's always about empathy. It's always,
suicidal empathy.
Yeah, and I think people realize that, like, free lunch at school is not socialism.
There is no such right.
Yeah, that's when they're like, well, the DSA supports, like, dude, like, this is a perk. These are perks.
What if I told you roads, fire department, policing existed before taxes?
Exactly.
That is not a socialist endeavor. Free healthcare is not a right. It's not. People don't even understand that there's actually 4 divisions of rights: privileges, liens, and expectations. That's none of those. Like, none of those are a thing. Anything which you have to take somebody else's free capital away for is not, by definition, a right in any sense of the word. Independent rights and freedoms are completely different from when I have to pay for you to enjoy this thing. Healthcare is a great example of it. Healthcare is not a right. It is a privilege here in America, which you pay for. It is not a right. You don't get to take away the things that I have made of my own in order for you to have it. If you have to do that, by definition, that's not a right.
Yep. You can't force somebody's labor either.
You cannot.
Yeah. And that's another big one. Like, you can't force a doctor to this because it's not your right.
You're right.
It's funny, too. Again, love my wife to death. She just came back from England. She works for a company in the medical field. And so they were over there working with NHS. And she came back. She goes, I have thoughts.
Remarkable failure. And I live there, brother. I talk to English people. But one of the best friends in the world, Peaches, is married to a Brit. He met her in England. She lives there. Ask her about the DHS. Ask her.
She got the golden
ticket.
Ask
her about the NHS. Yeah, exactly. She got Big Daddy TRICARE and never looked back. You know what I'm saying? She was like, get out of here. I can do whatever I want. Yeah. I mean, and again, it just feels like you're taking crazy pills. It's always the scope and scale argument. You bring up one thing with this. The best thing that we could have ever done for healthcare specifically is privatize it. Because if I can call...
it works. It works.
If I can call 5... So I need an MRI on my knee, right? There's 5 places around my place that I can call. You know what you can't do right now? You can't call all 5 of them and go, how much is the MRI?
Yes.
And they go, $1,000. Be like, well, down the street's going to give it to me for $900. Do you guys match that price, or I'm not going to the other place? That's a great example of privatized healthcare. You could shop for it. The system that we have right now does not allow for that free market
Yeah.
capitalism. So if the people that are getting the money don't know and don't care where the money is coming from, but it's always coming there, and they aren't required to provide a service to the customer for the money that they're getting, there is no incentive for them to give you the best product.
Yeah.
That is what we're doing in the government with everything. If you have to give the government your money and you expect the government to be shitty with it, when was the last time you had a good experience at the DMV? You know when the best experience I've ever had at the DMV was? In New Mexico, because they have private contractors that are allowed to run their own DMV shops. I was in and out of there in 20 minutes and they were completely pleasant.
I was going to say, I think Minnesota is, because I got in and out of there in like 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
And they
Couldn't
were
be best.
crushing it.
And that is the best example of free market capitalism, because those people compete for your business, and I'm never going to a government-run business like that ever again, because they have a better model.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like, I think there's that, I think people are going to have to differentiate, especially, I mean, you have 2028 coming up, or you have obviously 2026 coming up, 2028.
Yep.
And, you know, there's always ways to do things better. And obviously it's a big system. It's hard to move, but you know, it does concern me sometimes a little bit with like, hey, just how, like I said, feeding off the empathy of people, being like, well, you know, we should have free healthcare. Oh, maybe we should, you know. But when people experience like that, doesn't work. I mean, you like said, you look at NASA and SpaceX right now. You know, what have they done? Like, when
was the last time NASA recovered a rocket that went back to its launch pad?
Exactly.
Never.
And it's exciting. Like, I think people, just because, you know, and look, man, like, I think there's a little bit of bitterness on side of the, you know, I love my Democrat side of the family here.
Sure.
But I think there's a little bit of bitterness with like Elon Musk when like Twitter or X, it's like, dude, it's like, yeah, but man, that guy's going to go down in history. Like, it's going to go down in history as like, he is going to be saving free speech. You know, I mean, like, we were heading down a dark path. Because, you know, I'm sure you have your group chats. Everyone's like, man, I don't know, this admin this time around. I'm like, look, man, don't ever forget what we were looking down the barrel in 2024. I'm not a doom and gloom guy. I'm not a doom and gloom guy. I don't want to be like, this is the end. But I was like,
the last administration violated the First Amendment on behalf of their own interests, thanks to collusion with big tech to censor the Hunter Biden laptop story that's in court, that's verified. The FBI killed that story. You couldn't send it in a DM. What are we talking about?
Exactly. Yes.
So what are we talking about? I will say, and I'll put the plug for the fourth thing that I do. I want everybody to check out the Freedom Syndicate pack. It's a small money pack. It is vetted. It is papered. It is ready to go. I don't need big whales. I'm the chairman of this pack. Our entire thing is we take specifically GWAT veterans, people that align to our interests, that adhere to these values that we have for conservatives in America and are ready to fight in battleground states. These veterans serve their entire career in a time of war, and they're ready to continue serving just like the founding fathers did. They gave up their lives, they gave up their freedom, they gave up whatever money that they could make to do public service the way that it was meant. Everybody that we vet extremely well. We don't support anybody that we don't align to and that has a clean background, and we're a small money pack. I don't need $1 million. I need 1,000 patriots with $10 that care about this country and want to put somebody in one of these battleground states, because small money politics is what will affect your local politics, will change your life in tangible ways right this second. So check out Free Syn Pack. It's over on X, Twitter. You can go to Freedom Syndicate Pack, or you can hit it in my link tree. Come talk to us. If you think about you want to get into forward-facing politics, you actually want to engage in this space, and you want to make a change, talk to Freedom Syndicate Pack. We are small. We just started out. Man, there's 4 of us. There's 3 veterans and a patriot that actually cares about it. There's a Green Beret, an Air Force dude, myself. We want to get people the support that they need, and we made it a small money pack on purpose, because we're not doing it for money. We're doing it for real, tangible change. People that actually want to support America aligned with the founding documents. So Freedom Syndicate Pack.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, it's pretty cool. You know, I think a lot of people too, they think on the bigger national scale, it's like, honestly, it's going to be your local stuff, you know, like we were talking about Adam Schwarzy, you know, coming up here, or he's they're in the running here. And like I said, Minnesota's in that very purple area. We're very cut right down the middle. And so, you know, you got to take things locally, because that's where the issues arise. Your school board. Well, how does the schools go off the rails? It starts with your school board, and then they get some. Because again, that's not. I've talked with my buddy about this, Travis. He's been in Minnesota GOP politics for a long time, and he said that's what we just suck at. Like, it's just one of those things where, like, you got to hand it to some of the activists, who are most activists. They're always,
Slacktivists, the latte liberals.
Yeah, and they go up there. They go, I'm going to run for the school board. I'm going to because most conservatives are like, yeah, man, I got a job. Like, I do enough.
Right.
You know, I'm like, why do I have to figure out
Well,
what's
that's why
going
the
on?
right doesn't protest.
Yeah, exactly.
It's because they're at work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, oh, I got to.
And when they
this.
do, there's no damages. we just had a white supremacist rally that made every single news agency, not a single arrest, not a single damage, no damage caused.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
Funded by the SPLC.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
I don't even.
It's been a wild year. I forgot about.
It's every day, bro.
It's every day.
It's every day. There's something else that I'm just like, what are we doing?
SPLC
I'm taking crazy pills.
Was giving the KKK money. You're like, what?
The chick that ran the SPLC, her husband ran the white supremacist organization that she was funneling to. It's on wax. They had a shared bank account. It wasn't her husband. It was her boyfriend.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
What are we doing?
Yeah. It's like I'm taking crazy pills.
I know.
Day.
Yeah, and you're like, it's like a really poorly written script. You know,
if somebody wrote it, you wouldn't believe it.
You wouldn't believe it.
You'd be like, I don't believe that.
It's
too on the nose.
It's too on the nose. Exactly.
You're telling me a sitting Democratic governor or senator from California not only had a honey trap from the CCP that he had sex with for 2 years, farted on CNN, and then was found out to be an absolute creep who sexually assaulted basically every staffer that ever worked for him, and that guy was your leading candidate to take over for the governor of California, that movie wouldn't sell $1 because you'd be like, that couldn't happen in real life. That's Eric Swalwell.
Yeah.
And the guy can't bench 135. What a dork.
Well, the Graham Plattner one recently has just been wild. That was just wild. I was like, because I didn't know anything about him. I was like,
they pick the worst martyrs every time.
And he was just like, well, because he was a Marine, and they're like, oh, he's a Marine Fallujah vet, and I'm like,
this is the guy that's going to bring masculinity back to the left.
Yeah, and they were just like, what? Because I heard him.
Turns out he's got a Nazi tattoo, and not a Christian cross, not something that people have put on their shields for 700 years, not something that Jimmy Carter had in the rotunda when he was put internment, not that, an actual Nazi tattoo. And then it turns out 2 days after his wife gave birth, he was sending D pics to his mistress where she didn't want him. And then he tried to make her sign an NDA, and since he couldn't get with her, he sexually assaulted another person.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Tight.
Yeah.
Tight. Tell me again how it's Trump's fault. Okay, great. Go ahead. I don't care.
So you like said, you got to start another show. You got to do the fifth thing. Start a new show.
I don't know if I want to, man. I don't have the energy
Get on
for it.
YouTube and go
I got to be honest with you. I catch enough spears and arrows as it is on something that's an absolute joke.
No, that's what I was saying before. I mean, have you thought about, making the runs, not on your own show, but like said to, like Gad said, I know he's got his own stuff to do. Have you tried reaching out to some of those guys? Just in generalities.
I've talked to some people. Like some people have said, like, "Hey, I love your content." Like I've been approached a bunch of times by people like, "Hey, we think you should be bigger." People that are both monetized and not monetized. People have reached out in good faith and been like, "Hey, man, I really enjoy the way that you say stuff or the principles that you put out there." Have you ever considered like branching out on your own? I think there might be a time for it. I don't know if that time is now, and it's just time, because all said and done, it's great to have these 4 things, but if I get to a point where I think my family needs me than anything else, I'll delete that in a second. The second that my family needs more of my time than I'm giving them, there is nothing more. I was watching the UFC fights the other night and had a really rough week of work. It was really busy. My wife just took a new job that's in person. So she was with Meta and she ended up going to this other, a mining company that was doing, it's a crazy thing that I'm demonetized on Meta and she couldn't fix it for me. We talk about that at home. But no, she was, I was like, hey, this is a huge fight. I want to watch the Conor fight. I really like to watch UFC, huge UFC fan. She was great. We had it on, the TV all day, and she's putting my son to bed, and my daughter starts crying, and I see it on the thing, and I put it on pause, and I walked upstairs, and she was like, "Oh, babe, I know the fight's just coming on." I was like, "Listen, these fights are not more important than the kid. My social media account's not more important than my kids. My One's Ready engagement, it's not more important than my kids. If my kids have a problem and we have an OTS coming up, I'm sorry to everybody out there that signed up. I'm not going to be there because there's only one thing I care about, and it's those 2 little kids and that beautiful love of my life that I've married that saved my life, and there is nothing more important to me than that. I will delete all of this, and I make the joke all the time. If I ever get like fuck you money, like for real, like wealthy, not rich money, you're not going to know, but there's going to be signs. And it's going to be that all of my social media is deleted, my number changed. And it's hard to get a hold of me.
It's really, really hard.
It really is. It's really tough. You're like, Aaron's had the same number since 2011. I can't get a hold of him.
Yep. No, that's good stuff. Well, it's kind of like I said, I got a buddy of mine. He's medically retired, and he's a We served together in Afghanistan. He's a former detective, so he's and retired firefighter, and he's like, hey, can I help you out? And so I was like, yeah, man. I was like, if you want to hunt down some of these guests or whatever, like go for it. And he's like, oh, okay. So I gave him the list of like that, Gad said. I was like, they make runs and they reach out to me. I was like, yeah, I'd love to have these because it's fun talking.
Yeah, it really is.
It's awesome. Like we went down your history, but it's also cool to be like, hey, this is what's going on. Veteran talking about local national politics, but even beyond politics, like our culture. Like I bring it up all the time, and I bring it up on a podcast I do with my buddy. I was like, look, man, like the end of the day, like we are the last bastion of hope. Like we are the beacon
the city
to the
on
world.
the hill.
That's it. Like we're it. Like if we go, it all goes. And I think a lot. Like I was bringing up, hey, look at UK. Hey, look at this. Like look at what's going on in Eastern Bloc. Like some of these countries are kind of stable, but they can turn in a heartbeat because they're smaller, because of their borders, because of their culture.
Look at Ireland.
Yeah, exactly. Look at Ireland. I went to Ireland right now in 2022. Didn't see any of that.
People are getting beheaded in the streets on video.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. And I went in 2015. Amazing. Like I went for 2 weeks both times. I love Ireland.
You know what's funny about Ireland? The only 2 times I've set foot on Irish soil? The time that we had the helicopter problem when I dropped that person off. I lived there for 3 years. I have family that still live in County Cork and County Mayo. Still never been. I was there just long enough to give that patient handover and be like, Ireland, huh? Okay. And then I got on a helicopter and flew back home.
Well, I can tell you what, it's pretty awesome. You should visit. It's awesome. It's great. Okay. Yep. Done it twice. Yeah. Dingle. Check out Dingle. So it was really cool. Fun little story. My buddy, same one, the corpsman. He's a corpsman. He invited us out. He goes, invited everybody. He goes, if you ever want to come out, every other year they go to Dingle, and both his family and his wife's family is from there, and they have the oldest Christian ruins in this spot, and they have a Catholic mass in Gaelic.
Wow.
He goes on Easter. And so I called him up and I'm like, hey man,
that is extremely Christ-filled.
Yeah. And I was like, you going, or like you going this year? Cause they go every other year. He's like, yeah, we're going this year. I was like, hey, we're going to come. My parents are coming. They've never gone to Europe. So we're bringing Finley. My daughter was only not even a year old yet.
Yeah.
So I was like, we're going to go to Europe, go to Ireland. And then my parents came along, my aunt. And we'd made like a 2-week family trip around Easter. So we went to Easter Catholic Mass in Gaelic, and it was cool because they were doing the call and response, and like we were doing it because growing up Lutheran,
dude, I could still do it right now.
Like I can't say it right now, but like if they were saying it, I was like, and we started saying it back, even though it was in Gaelic, it was super cool. It was like sunrise, but there's so much fog that the sun was barely getting through, but it was super cool. Goodness. Awesome experience.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was amazing. So, but yeah, man, I guess we're kind of wrapping up here. One, thanks for coming on.
Hey,
2,
I appreciate it.
Where can people find you? You got a lot of stuff going on, so and you got a bigger platform, so But see what you got. Where can people find you? Aaron Loves America. All that. One's Ready. Where can they find you?
Yeah. So the most important thing here is that nobody does anything. Nobody ever speaks for me. I manage every single other account. You can hit us up on One's Ready. Go to onesready.com or operatortrainingsummit.com if the Air Force is something that you want. If you want to hear me rail on about political stuff, check me out over at Aaron_loves_America on Twitter and on Instagram. Please, please, please check out Veteran Bushido Brotherhood. You can find them at vetbushidobrotherhood.org, or you can just Google their Instagram account. I would love it, even if you don't want to do jiu-jitsu. If you just want to support the veteran community and get ahead of this epidemic of people that are losing a mission and taking their lives because of it, that's our entire mission. We want to do 1,000 veterans this year. Go check out Veteran Bushido Brotherhood. And then if you want to engage in any way, I don't need whales. You don't need to give me $1,000. If you're a patriot and you care, $10 is enough. Go to freedomsyndicatepac.org or .com. I think it's .com. Or just Google Freedom Syndicate Pack. You can also find everything on all the link trees that I have. So just go to Aaron Loves America. You can link all the way through there, and I'm easy to find. This is completely narcissistic to say. If you want to get a hold of me, go to Google, type in Aaron Love. If you want to get very specific, type in Aaron Love PJ. I'll pop up. My SEO score is popping, and it's a terrible thing I have to deal with because I'm an influencer. But you can reach out to me. You can get to me anywhere from there. I'm happy to talk to you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming, brother.
Hey, thank you.